This story begins with Sang Ye, who blames himself for not having friends and not having parents who worries for him. Tired of playing, he goes to sleep, but when he opened his eyes he sees a horned girl and he asks what is she doing in his house, but she says that she is not in his house, so he takes a look around and he think he is hallucinating. Saying he notices the other people and realizes that he has been set to another world, and the girl asks the priest if he really is the true prophet, and he says that the prophet must be carrying a magical ring just like hers. Sayangi shows his ring and realizes that she also has another one just like his. She can't believe that someone without magic powers could be the prophet, and she also gets mad because he belongs to the human being tribe. Zhangyi says that he doesn't understand anything and he says that he bought that ring in a street store, so she tells the priest that he can't be the prophet since he is so weak, but he says that there was no mistake summoning him, and Zhang, you will be the prophet that will save demon tribe of being extinguished. Xiangyi, not knowing what's going on, asked them to tell him what's going on, so the girl introduces herself as Isabella Osa, the demon queen, and she says that day they were going to sing a peace treaty with human beings, but she didn't expect that her commander Lillian would betray her with the help of other humans, and while being disarmed, she took a big part of her magic powers, but she could stay alive thanks to the sacrifice of her 4 stronger subordinates. Hearing all that and seeing that he is in another world, Zhangyi was planning to become the protagonist of the story. He asks why doesn't she hide on the mountains, but the other girls say that they are escaping from humans, so she summoned the prophet so he could help her, but they were disappointed since he was useless. In that moment Isabella starts to feel bad and she transforms into a girl looking like a human being, and the priest says that this is because her aura has depleted completely, and they blame Zhangyi because she used all her energy she had left to summon him. In that moment some gentlemen say that the humans are already inside the realm and they escort Isabella so she can manage to escape, and the priest would stay to buy them sometime so they can manage to escape. Isabella tell him to escape with them, but the priest is already preparing them to teleport. Isabella crying tries to take him, but he already took them to another place. In that moment the door is destroyed and Tal's Angus appears, asking where the demon queen is, but she was already gone and planning to take revenge, so they decide to flee for the moment, but they were attacked on the back by the humans and the girls are planning to sacrifice themselves so she can escape. Zhangyi promises that he would protect Isabella, so he grabbed her by hand so they could escape, but she wanted to stay and fight and die with them. Zhangyi says that she does that their sacrifice would be in vain, so Isabella crying sees from afar how everyone dies so she could escape. On their way they come across with some human knights and Isabella gets off Zhangyi's hand and she attacks the knights for killing her subordinates. Zhangyi stops her and apologizes, and a knight says that he heard that demons used to wash human beings' brains. They were planning to kill them because they thought they were working for the demons, but Zhangyi on his knees says that they are not working for them and they were not brainwashed. Isabella wanted to kill him for making her kneel before a human being, but he says that by doing that they could survive, so then they could take revenge, but the knight wanted to kill them anyway so he could get a reward, but there is that guy who stops him and order him to go with his squadron. A knight noticing that he was the white squadron leader didn't want to listen, but being a leader he had authorization to kill then the others. Noticing that they decide to escape, he introduces himself as Surfaces, the White Dragon Knight squadron leader, and he asked them when the demons captured them. Before that Zhangyi thanks him for saving them, but sophists order him to answer first, otherwise he would kill them. He says that he was captured when he was 5 or 6 years old, and he introduces Isabella as his wife and says that she was also captured by the demons, and Sophosa ends up believing him and he offers his cape so he could cover himself since he was naked, and he would take them to the human being tribe city, but Isabella didn't want to go. Zhangyi convinces her to go, and the next day they arrive to the city where Zhangyi gets surprised by seeing how the humans respect the knights. Isabella changes her name to Yi Bei so she can't be recognized, and on their way they get across with this guy from the royal family called Talsbury. When Sophices sees him he ordered his knights to go to the royal palace. Zhangyi asks who he is, in a knight says that he has of a higher rank than sophists by being a regent's son. He says that the current king is very young and the regent supports him making decisions, so he is above every man. Sophists greets him politely, but when Barry notices that he is not the Red Dragon's Knights leader he despises him. But Sophists ask him why the Red Dragon's Knights were ahead of them, that they were supposed to sing the peace treaty with the demons, and he says that the new king's orders were to kill the demon queen. Then Sophis' father, who was the imperial leader, arrives. He is called Gurudita, and he says that he heard his son was in town and he decided to show up and say hello. Xianji is amazed by the fact that Sophis's father was someone important in the kingdom. A knight tells that Gyro is close to the king, and also he and the regent has very different political points of view. In that moment, trumpets can be heard since the Red Dragon's Knight squadron arrival. They were carrying the priest's head impaled in a sword. Watching that, Isabella wanted to kill them all, but Zhangyi calms her down, and while watching Angus promises That H will kill him. Angus thought that Gyro came to welcome him, but he says that he was going to see the king and both decide to go together. His son Barry gets close to him, but he threatens him and says that if he keeps on playing he will kill him, and they went without him. Then both decide to get out from the human realm and they take them to their new home. Zhang Yi is surprised by the fact that it was so big. In that moment some servants appear. One of them introduces herself as Alina and she was going to feed them, but Isabella asks why Sophices is being so nice with them even when he barely knows them. On the other hand, these two presents themselves before the king, who was just a boy, and he congratulates Angus for having completed the mission he assigned to him, but Gyro says that what Angus did was a crime because the mission was to sign a peace treaty with the demons, not killing the queen demon. He also says that if the missing demon queen returns to the demon tribe she will bring war against humans and they will lose a lot of people. Angus says that before they could sign the peace treaty, Lillian told him that she had her people's support to rebel and that if they helped her become the new queen she would make a strong relationship between the two tribes. Then he delivers a letter to the king about what they had agreed with the queen. After reading it, he congratulates him for doing well his job, but Girl says that there's a mistake because he does not believe the demons agreed so easily to accept their new queen. The king says to leave everything in Angus' hands and being the king he obeys, making Angus happy and Girl's sad. Then we see Zhang Yi taking a bath and asking himself how to get back to his world because he doesn't want to be in this world since he saw so many people die before his eyes. Then Sophists arrives to take a bath with him and Zhang Yi thought that all that good treatment they were receiving they were going to take it back slowly, but he came to tell him that they were going to send people to look for his family. And Shangular is saying that since when the demons brainwashed him he can't manage to remember anything from his past. Sophists tell him that he had a brother called Sophisac and the demons captured him and he asked Zhang Yi if he knows him. But Zhang Yi says no because there were a lot of human slaves in the demons tribe. Sophists get sad, but Zhang Yi cheers him up by keep talking and Sophices says that Lillian became the new demon queen and then they keep talking about how his father and the region aren't getting along, and when they finish with their bath, Alina takes him to his room and when the door opens he finds Isabella changing her clothes. She was nervous at the beginning, but she closes the door rapidly and she says that he should stop treating her as the demon queen since Selena had been watching and since he told everyone that they were married they put them both in the same room so they should behave as a married couple to avoid suspicion. Then they hear someone approaching and it is Alina, so they start making love to make Alina leave, but they were only making sounds to fake it. Zhang Yi was taking it too far, so she hits him and makes him go to sleep in the floor, saying he asks her how to get back to his world and she says that she doesn't know, making him sad, but he remembers about the rings and he asks Isabella for hers. He put them together and tries to get back on his own, but all in vain. On the other hand, Alina finds offices and he tells her not to interrupt Isabella and Zhang Yi. Alina asks why is he helping them and he says that when he knew Yanji he felt a familiar connection and he thought he was his lost brother since he resembles so much. Alina says that she was happy for him since she hadn't seen him smile in a long time. Sophists throws her in bed and his reward he ends up making love with her. The next day Yanji wakes up and Alina gives him new clothes. She realizes Isabella is not here so she goes outside and tries to find her. She found Sophices training with his bow on her way and she is amazed about how good he is. Then she saw Isabella as well practicing and she is blown by how good she is. She lost her powers but not her abilities. Then Sophists invite them to eat, but Zhang Yu wanted to leave the human kingdom and says that he doesn't want to bother. Sophists say that there is no problem, that they can stay and live in his mansion forever, but Isabella says that they want to manage by themselves and they didn't want to bother anymore. Sophists say that they cause no trouble and he can find a job for them in the kingdom, but Isabella says that she rather goes back and work for the demon tribe than working for them. In that moment we see a story when the humans were terrorized before because they were weak, then tired of that they reached out a powerful dragon to protect them. The dragon accepts helping them with everything as a sign of gratitude. They use the dragon as a deity, creating dragon knight squadrons of different colors. We focus on the white dragon knight squadron, which is the king's personal cavalry, and there are two ways get into the squadron. One is to demonstrate that strong enough and worthy to serve the king, and the other way is by obtaining a diploma from an honor school in the capital. She says that she wants to be an honor student in that school to get stronger, and Zhang Yi thinks that was the only way to get out the human kingdom. She says that she wants revenge and Zhang Yi scared covers her, saying that they want to save other human beings that are trapped within the demon tribe. Sophosis says no because fights are not as easy as he thinks, but Zhang Yi says that he has other purpose by joining the school. He says that after he graduate, they want to help him and his father to lead the human tribe to the top and return them the favor of helping them. Sophices end up believing him and they accept to enrolling them into the school, and he noticed that Isabella had talent for the school, but he suggests Shanji to cook rather than Fighting 2 months after sophists inscribe them and explain the different branches there are in school. He also says that there is a professor who will evaluate them to decide what branch is better for each one, and the knight is assigned to guide them in school before he says that if they don't manage to pass the selection test, he will take them back to the mansion. Isabella and the other one make fun of him, but Zhang Yi is intended to pass the test in school on the melee branchmaster Mikey also was going to teach them a technique, and this guy has asked him to show the technique before everybody. Mike gives him a rock and asks him to hit a statue with all his strength. He destroys the statue a bit, and Mike asks to show the rock, but it was already destroyed. Mike says that in order to learn the technique he has to attack with all of his strength, but the rock must remain intact. The guy says that it is impossible. Mike grabs a little bird and with all of his strength he destroys the statue, and he demonstrates that the bird is still alive. His students are amazed and are asking to themselves how he did it. Zhang Yi surprises him, and the knight introduces them as students who are going to take the entry tests. Mike asks if he wants to join his branch, and getting angry, he activates a fierce power scaring them all, but he realizes that Isabella didn't get scared, and he proposes her to join his branch, but she refuses since she wants to join the magic or sword mastery. The knight thought that Zhang Yi was also fine, but after he touched him he ended up fainted because he couldn't hold the mix fierce ability. He wakes up after a few moments and he is told that he failed the test. Zhang Yi was happy about it because he didn't see himself training for that every day. He introduces himself to this guy to be his friend. The guy introduces his Alex heir and accepts being his friend. He says goodbye because he had a fight class to attend, and the knight agrees to take them to magic and fencing. Then we see a training field where Dorona the fencing teacher and Wadley AC the magic teacher were fighting to decide which branch would use the training field. Both were equal in powers, but they kept fighting and they use a powerful attack but gets deviated and almost killed an old man, but Zhang Yi manages to save him by a hair. And he was terrified because if the attack would have reached him, he would be dead. Dorona points him with the tip of the sword and asks him who he is because she never saw him by the school before, and Zhang Yi says that he helped the old man from dying, but when he turned to see him he was not there anymore. The knight says that he is sophist is his friend Dan. When she heard that name she was desperate to see him, but the knight says that he didn't came, and angrily she asked why they were there in her branch. He explains that they are new students and they came to take the entry test, but before that they are going to measure their strength. AC gives them a sphere to measure his strength, and Shanji not knowing what to do with the sphere he asks the knight, and he starts explaining. He says that the sphere reveals how much limit power there is inside each person, and that limit power is how strong can a person be with training. If their power limit is low in both magic and fencing they will be rejected. Isabella grabs the sphere, and when Dorona notices that there is not any shine representing her power she was going to reject her, but in that moment the sphere starts to shine with a strong light. Everybody is surprised by the fact that she had so much power, and AC asks if she had learned magic before, and Isabella says yes, but for any reason she lost her magic. AC accepts her into the magic branch, but Isabella goes to the sword and she says that she is hesitant between magic and fencing. Dorona underestimates her, saying that she wouldn't make it to her branch, but Isabella tells that she studied fencing abroad and she wanted to take the test. She accepts and sends Barry to fight against her as a test, and before they start fighting she explained the rules, and one of them is that they can't use all of their limit powers, and after the whole explanation Barry starts attacking them, but Isabella avoids his attacks easily and Barry continues attacking her. But no attacks manage to return. Isabella gets close with one attack and uses an incredible ability to make him get back and making him angry, so he uses his limit powers and attacks, but this guy called Legend stops the attack, saving her, and Zhang Yi thanks him for saving his wife, surprising everyone there by letting them know that they are married. Dorona gets mad with Barry for using his limit powers, and on the other hand she presents her most powerful apprentice, and he was eager to see him as Isabella fight partner in the future. Dorona asks if her abilities were learned from Makia, and her answer was yes, surprising everybody because Makia was known as the sword god. Dorona sees that she is very strong and accepts her as his student. But AC says that she is her student, starting a fight to decide which one of them she stay with, but Zhang Yi interrupts and asks for the sphere so he can measure his powers. He thought that he would have a big power to become the protagonist of that world, but minutes passed fast and the sphere wouldn't start to shine, not even a bit, and AC takes the sphere from him, saying that she already knew the results since the beginning, calling him a useless piece of wood. The other students also starts to mocking him, and the knight explains that the term useless piece of wood is a person that has no power limit, making him sad. Isabella yells to the other students to shut up, if not they would have to face her. Zanya hears that, recovers and says that even if he has no powers Isabella would always protect him, and before he goes to try another branch he cheers her up and wished her luck in whatever branch she chooses on his way, saying he asks the knight if he could join a Branch without having any limit power, he says yes, but for now he can't use a fighting one. After a bit of walking they reach the forging class where he see that they were drawing a sword, but their drawings were terribly bad, saying you thought that in forged classes you would have to be hammering all day to create objects, but Master Ashton Martin says that he doesn't know anything about forging. The knight explains that he was captured by demons and he doesn't know anything about forging, and Martin shows him how the forging is in the human trimeridon, grabs an enormous brush and draws a sword in the floor, and with one word he makes the drawn sword merging out of nowhere. Martin says that this is how humans create things, and if he wanted to forge he had to have a gold alignment crystal. Shangi, not knowing what that is, he asks how to use it. Martin explained that with those crystals he can create things just as he saw with a magic brush, and Zhangyi gets sad because he thought that he needed limit power to use it. He says that limit power is not necessary in the forge. Hearing about that, Zhangyi kneels and asks him to teach him how to forge. Martin asked for a drawing as tests and he draws Darona's portrait, surprising everyone with his drawing skills. Martin accepts him as his student, and before joining a partner he says that he has to know the rules of forging classes. He says that he must be very careful with what he creates and be responsible if something bad happens, and he cannot create living objects. Zhangyi accepts and thanks Martin for accepting him into his branch, and Martin gives him a brush so he can begin with his classes later on. Girl arrives very angry to the king's palace, where he asks for an explanation on why the regent wants to execute a cute. The agriculture minister and the leader of the Grey Dragon's Knights, Pangas, says that the agriculture minister gathered with the East Beasts tribe and the Grey Dragon's Knights leader ordered to bring food to them. Firo says that they did it because that tribe was struggling with drought and food, so they sent food to be able to get along with them. He asks to reconsider that decision of killing them, but Angus shows him that some beasts were already captured and one of them will be the sword god Makia. He also shows the heads of the agriculture minister and the Grey Dragon's Knight leader. The king is confused and asks Angus why he did it. Angus says that as the king is a good person he did the dirty job for him, and he also said that knights from the Black Dragons and Red Dragons are on their way to the east tribe to extinguish them. When Girl hears about that he asked the king to stop that before it caused more tension with other tribes, but the king is afraid, not knowing what to do, so this guy let the chains off on purpose, and Makia, noticing that his powers were coming back, shouts that he will not let his people in his tribe to be extinguished and attacks the king to end everything, but Sophices stops his attack and he stabs Makia, ending with his life. Then this guy is getting near the king to see how he was, and he gives the final blow to Machia. The king gets petrified, scared by that beast, and Guro realizes that everything was planned by Angus, who accepts it with an evil laugh. After that, Zhangyi is walking towards some portals and not knowing where they would take him he asks a knight, and he tell him that those portals takes you from the academy to the residence. He also explains that if he wanted to keep studying in the academy, he would have to live in the campus. Zhangyi asks why he doesn't return to where the knights are, but he gives him a key and says that if he doesn't want to live in the campus they would teleport him back to the mansion, but if he wants to live there the knight would live with him. Zhangyi is a thankful act. He will try to find Sophus's brother when he get back to the demon tribe. On the other hand, we can see Sophus with Hero going to the king to try and make him reconsider some things when making important decisions. When they arrived at night, told them they already knew they were coming, but the king orders were that only him and Gyro could be in the room. Gyro tell him to wait outside getting it alone, and Sophus had a bad feeling about letting him in alone. Hero called the king but he wasn't there, and Angus appears from the shadows and says that he sent the king to practice archery. Gyro knew that this conversation will not end well. Sophist was still waiting for his father, and this guy called Sato appears and talks about the Withered Dragon's Knight squadron should be led by the king, but being just a child that power had to be passed to the regents. In that moment Sophus realizes that something wasn't right, and after seeing the knights he was planning to enter the room, but Sato stops him. Sophus with a sword in it asks what will they do to his father. Nothing, says Sato, because Angus is inside and he is making him see the true state of the capital. Sophus asks more questions, but Sato leaves. On the other hand, Zhangyi decided to stay in the North Campus, and when he opens the door he finds Isabella changing clothes again, but she doesn't care since he already saw her before. Isabella talks about how good they are treating them in the academy, but Zhangyi suggests escaping the academy, but she refuses because the academy controls their students very well and they would notice that they are not in the room. She explains that the academy has a magic field surrounding it and say she would not be able to break it, saying he asked her for another plan, and she says that they must wait until she gets stronger. In the academy she also said that the demon tribe only accepts strong people as leaders, not somebody weak, and she gets sad when Zany sees that he promises her that he would take her back to the demon tribe so she can be the queen. Again saying that he chose the forging branch because it is destined to be powerful. Then he asks her what branch did she chose. Isabella says that she chosen both so she could recover her strength quickly, and both teachers Accepted. Zhang Yi takes advantage of the conversation to get into the bed, and they kept talking about how they could become stronger quicker than when she saw him on the bed. She asked him to leave, but Zhang Yi says that he is just pretending to be a married couple, making her blush. They keep talking, but Isabella throws him out, threatening him with a sword, and he goes to the floor where he starts thinking about things he can create with his magic brush. The next day, Isabella wakes up, and when seeing a silhouette in front of her, she grabs her sword asking who is there, but when she sees it, well, she realizes that it is a statue made by Zhang Yi, and after getting out of bed, she sees other objects, asking to herself what could it be. Then she hears some noise in the living room, and she realizes that there are other creations made by Zhang Yi, and she was planning to ask him everything about those creations in the night in Forge class. They were waiting for Zhang Yi, but as he didn't arrive, they were about to begin with the class, but in that moment Zhang Yi arrives with a bicycle, and everyone is amazed by Zhang Yi's creation because in that world vehicles boosted by human didn't exist. When Martin sees the bicycle, he gets on the bicycle and Zhang Yi teaches him how to use it. It gets complicated at first, but later he managed to drive it. Then Martin destroys the bicycle for not breaking, leaving everyone disappointed because they all wanted to try, saying he promises that he would create another bicycle, but he couldn't in that moment since he ran out of gold alignment because he spent all night trying things. Zhang Yi realizes that the forge works with thoughts, and he asks to himself what would happen if he built objects from his world, so he built a cell phone as a trial, but it didn't work since he doesn't know how cell phones work, and he kept on building useless technological stuff because in his mind he didn't know how they work. Then they get back to the class where Martin gives him another gold alignment stone, and he was going to explain how to differentiate gold alignment stones and its uses. Martin gets his briefcase out from the forge, and she explained that they can use the stone just like a blacksmith does, but that would harm the user. He says that 2 decades ago he was visiting the dwarf tribe to improve his forge, and he saw that they made really beautiful objects, but the one creating them suffered damages to his body because they used hammers just like the blacksmiths did. After Martin's big research, he realized that they could use the stone in a very little form by embedding it into the brush and drawing objects to be created out of nothing, saying he doesn't understand completely, so he asks Martin where the gold alignment stones come from. Martin says that they form inside a mine in the capital's border, but the problem is that a powerful golden dragon lives there. The king used to send the Purple Knight Squadron to collect them, and they would refine the stones and sell them to finance the military. Wharton says that each stone costs 10 golden coins, and everybody is shocked by that because they were too expensive. Zhang Yi doesn't know what 10 gold coins worth, and one of his school partners explains that 500 people can be fed with 10 gold coins for a month, scaring him because he used them deliberately. Then Martin says that that's the lesser ranged stone, and he shows them a range of stones going from the lesser ones up to the better ones, which can reach a price of 50 gold coins. Then he explains that stones differ by color, like the red one which uses fire as base, but they worth up to 500 gold coins. Then he gets his magic brush out, and he explains the limits of his lunar stone and how rare it is. He is the only one who has one in the capital. Then he tell a story about when he was young, studying the forge with the dwarves, but they weren't associable, but later on they acknowledged him by realizing how determined he was. The dwarves had 4 lunar stones, and they gave him one of them as a reward for obtaining many achievements with that stone. Martin built the walls protecting the capital and explains that the power of a lunar stone is infinite but has a price, and that is that extracts the user's consciousness. One of the students says that this side effect must have not affected the master because his looks pretty healthy, but another student points towards a photograph where you can see a handsome guy, and that was the master 10 years ago, and the students are in shock by that because now he is bald and ugly. On the other hand, Sophists is with his father, but he arrived home very upset, saying that everything was over, worrying offices for what they could have done to his father. On the other hand, Isabella was training fencing, and by the end Dorona congratulates her for training more than the others, but she felt bad because she got tired easily. Because that didn't happen when she had all of her power. Then she goes home, and she finds all these stone sculptures of both of her masters, and she realizes that they were made by Zhang Yi. Isabella takes a blueprint, and Zhang Yi says that those were dwarves' tribe's blueprints where they were creating steam machines, surpassing the intelligence of the demons' tribe. Isabella kicks him and warns him about creating too many things, otherwise their identity would be exposed. She also scolded them for creating a sculpture of her and her masters and thinking about what disrespectful things he could do with them. She hits him even more. The next day he was happy because the steam machine worked and he could create a powerful mecha. Did he see that his fellow students were gathered in a place, and one of them says that Master Martin went into the gold alignment mines, and that was because when they went to buy stones last night the prices were too high. Wharton tried to convince them to sell them at a normal price, but they didn't want to because they needed a lot of money for military services. So when angry Martin went on his own to look out for stones, but his students were worried about him because he was just a forging teacher and he alone could not take down a dragon, saying he was going for help from the other teachers, but one of his friends stops him because they were in an audience with the king, saying he was very angry for doing nothing about it, and then he sees Alex and he offers him money and tell him to go and buy 1 gold alignment for his magic brush. Zhangyi builds a car with that to go and save his master. On the other hand, Martin is arriving to the mine, but one of the knights didn't want to let him through because only purple dragon knights were allowed to enter the mine. Even with all that, Martin gets in and starts looking out for gold alignment. Then we see Zen the others arriving the mine and planning how to get in to look for their master, but then an explosion occurs and they see dust coming from inside and Martin getting out from it with the gold alignment. He also defeated some monster with the weapon he invented with the dwarf's help. The guy was happy with his gold alignment, but they could use them already because they needed to be refined, but the problem was that the refinery team worked with the purple dragon knights and in that moment some knights surrounds them in the refinery. Master calls him out for getting into the purple dragon knight's territory. Martin also calls him out because those monsters weren't that strong to justify the price increase of gold alignment. The guy says that it was not his business and give the order to kill them so they could take the gold alignment, but Isabella together with Martin and Alex were defeating almost every one of them. But the refinery master steps in attacking Alex, but Martin protects him and his weapon get destroyed. That guy uses a special slime creating many clones and he planned to attack them, but Zhangyi had finished his creation. Zhangyi is completely covered by the rocks and the refining master attacks the others, but Zhangyi inside the rocks neutralizes him using a powerful attack. Then he throws another attacks to the other master, but he manages to deflect it, hitting his knights, and everyone is surprised to see a mecha getting out from those rocks. The purple knights get scared to see that mecha and Martin is surprised even more because the dwarves wanted to build something like that, but they couldn't, but Zhangyi did. The refining master attacks him with everything he got, but no attacks could manage to damage that mecha, and Zhangyi starts defeating those knights and capture the refining master and threatens him, saying that they must not mess with them, and we can see that the ones behind all that mess were the regent's family. Since they wanted to earn more money, they was planning to raise their prices of gold alignment, but a soldier arrives saying that the forge branch gathered the gold alignment and also they captured the refining master. Surprising everyone, Zhangyi and his group arrives to the kingdom, but the purple knights won't let them through and behind them were the people who raised the prices and they ordered to capture them for breaking the law by collecting gold alignment without any permission, but Sophisis arrives with other guys and says stop, and he tell Barry that the king sent him to stop Martin there. He doesn't buy it, but Legend being his uncle, he releases his power making him obey the new orders given by the king, but this also affected Tsunagi, which ends up being amazed by that enormous power. Being just his nephew, Legend warns him not to be so careless just because his father is the regent, because for Barry he was only a piece of trash. Dorona also scolds him for not going to class and Martin asks officers to arrest him, but he denies because the king never gave that order since he cares so much about him. Zhangyi thanks officers for helping them again and he told him not to do that again because he doesn't want to see him die. On the other hand, AC tells Isabella that she picked her to represent the magic branch in a festival, but she fights again with Dorona because he also wanted her to represent the fencing branch. Sophists ask Zhangyi to go with him to the palace, and once there they talk to the king about the gold alignment price increase. In that moment, Angus arrives informing the king that he discovered that the Purple Knights leader is increasing the price of gold alignment. He also said that he already punished him and suggests the king that the forge branch should be in charge of collecting gold alignment stones. Everybody is surprised by that and the king asks about the military budget, but at the moment he suggests that the White Dragon Knights should handle it. Zhangyi asks her himself why Angus is helping them. The king accepts those suggestions and he asked a favor to Martin to build an arena in 10 days for the upcoming festival. When getting out, this officers ask Angus why he helped them and he says that he did it because he is a very important general. Then they continued talking and Angus says that he helps the king making decisions to make the empire get better because the king is very young to make important decisions. Sophists say that he shouldn't take advantage of his power, making Angus angry. Angus then asks officers if his father didn't tell him anything about what they talked the last night. When Sophists remembers that he asked him what did they do to his father because he arrived home very upset and they were about to start a fight, but some soldiers arrive and tell him that his father hanged himself in the library and Sophists got scared and the other were surprised that Knights Yang were depressed about what happened to Sophosis. He didn't want to feel bad, so he asked Isabella what branch she decided to represent in the festival. She said that she will represent fencing and science branches. He starts bothering her, saying that she should join Legend in the magic branch, making her angry again. The next day, girl's body is getting buried. Isabella and Zhangyi wanted to help Sophists taking revenge against Angus, but Dorona says that it was pretty difficult because Angus is the most Powerful human, and when he was young he was the only one who could hurt the ancient demon king. Sophisis says that he wasn't his biological father, and then he starts to talk about his past when they were very poor, but he was very happy living with his parents. But one night the village was attacked and his real father was killed protecting the village. But yet his death was in vain. Sophists found his parents' bodies but not his brothers, and some days later he found out that he was sold to the demon's tribe. In order to save him, he trained so hard, and he joined the army where he acquired combat experience. And one day Gyro visited the squadron where Sophia's was, and after seeing how Sophisis killed one of his partner's guru, asked why he did it. Sophisis says that he was nearly dead, and leaving him alive would be leaving him with a lot of pain until death came. After that he adopted him, and he treated him very well. He wanted to create along with him a world where every tribe could live in peace. Dorona asks what should they do now, and Sophists say he can only give his bets to move on. Then we see Angus talking with a hooded guy, but he left after this girls arrived picking the heads of some people completing the mission Angus assigns another mission to her. He already enrolled her in the academy where she has to represent the archery branch and gives her a photo of Zhangyi so she can find her target. The next day the forging branch goes to the old royal arena to rebuild it with the help of Mike and AC. Both of them destroys the arena completely and gathered all the debris, so it is easier to rebuild. Martin thanks them. Zhangyi watches Alex and asks to himself if he has a lot of money since he works carrying forging material. Martin says that he works to sustain his family economically while he studies, and Alex proposed himself to win the festival to obtain money and send it to his family. Zhangyi asks how much the champion gets in the 4 eyes, says that the winner takes 1000 gold coins and also a trophy made out of solid gold. He also says that can get the rank of military commander after graduate from the academy, and he gets happy because with that rank he could get out the empire and go back to the demon tribe. While they are rebuilding the arena, Zhangyi's superiors arrive to help them because they owe so much to Master Martin. Then Martin introduces them as their new teachers who will replace him during 10 days so they could be ready for the festival, since forging branch always finished last every year. They would have a special training so that would not happen again. On the other hand, Legend was practicing his magic, which was very powerful, and after seeing that she was pretty confident that she would get first place thanks to him. On the other hand, Isabella was also training, but she has an illusion where she sees her subordinates' bodies who sacrificed for her, and they're the demon queen, presents herself making her remember that everything was her fault by wanting to sing a peace treaty with the humans. She also argues about why she trusted in Lillian. Isabella gets angry, and Dorona notices the enormous power she was about to unleash, so she knocks her out. Dorona is surprised to see all that evil power limit. She was even scared. On the other hand, Sophisis was walking through the capital. He sees an invention he never saw before in the capital, and he is also surprised to see all those citizens using objects he never saw before, and when looking at another store he realizes that all those inventions were Zion's. Then he goes to the royal arena to see Zhangyi, but he is told that he went into the South Forest with Alex before he went there. He told them to give Sophists all the money he got inside the gold alignment mine for the military budget, but he didn't want to accept it because that was money recovered by the people entering the mine. But they told him that it wasn't the case because with Zhangyi's machine, they collected gold alignment faster, and that's why prices went down because it's easier, and that's why also home prices went down. Sophisis gets happy by the fact that Zhangyi is making the empire a place where others can live happily without feeling the pressure of money. On the other hand, Zhangyi and Alex arrives to the South Forest where they found useless wood, and they call it like that because that metal is extremely hard and they can't use it for anything. Zhangyi wanted to corroborate how hard it was to see if he can create a chainsaw to cut it, but it breaks without making even a scratch. Alex asks why does he want that useless thing, but Zhangyi says that it isn't useless just because they can't use it. But if they manage to use it useless, what might become the empire's most valuable resource? The next day everyone is preparing for the festival, and with it the king's arrival. Sophisis announces the beginning of the festival and give the order to every branch representatives to step into the royal arena. Each one of the branches steps in, and the festival winners candidates were fencing branch and the magic branch. Saying you is surprised to see only one person in the cooking branch, and they are underestimated when they stepped in because everyone thought that they were there only to make them lose time. Participant called 9air was angry, but his master asked him to come to avoid any trouble. After so many branches, the forging branch steps into the arena, but the other are depressed because they always finish last in the festival, and Zhangyi tries to cheer them up, but Martin was depressed too. After every branch is inside the arena's offices explain the competition rules. The festival would last for 5 days, and they would be separated by category, the first one crossing the empire and one day going through the locations to place around the empire, and when they get through portals they will get a coin that has a value of 10 points. There will Also be 10 coins hidden through the kingdom in the first 16 contestants, with the higher points will manage to advance. To a new category. He also says that there also are dangerous obstacles in every location, and once he ended the explanation a door appears with a very dangerous location. Everyone starts to get in, and the forging branch was scared. But yet they got in, and that's where refinery master Yalu arrives and tell Martin to get their students' tombs ready. Because they won't get back alive, saying he goes through the door, and he realizes that there is a lake called the Lake of Sound. This girl explains to him that it is called like that because if a person yells in the edge of the lake it creates an echo that lasts longer than the average lino, also known as Toll's Wrens, gets close to Isabella asking her if she wants to get through the lake with him, but she goes towards Yangi, saying that she would find a way to get across with her husband. Zany says that he has an idea to get through the lake together, making Wrens angry because he says that he doesn't respect married women. All the students start to cross the lake, and while all of them were getting far away, the Forge class awaits for Zhangyi to build something, so they get through the lake. Zhangyi builds this yacht named Mar, and this girl says that why doesn't he teleport objects he already created, and Zhangyi says that when forging he does not need to draw very well what he wants to build, since the forge depends on the forger's thought, so if he has a boat sketch then he could create any type of boat with the same drawing. The girl starts to flirt with Zhangyi and his partner called Moto says that he shouldn't tell his secrets to his rivals. Zhangyi says that he shouldn't worry, and in that moment he could see that Isabella was angry, and when she notices that he saw her she turned her head so he couldn't see her. Like that, the other girl introduces herself as Oxa and asks him a favor to take her and his partner because his giant cat didn't want to get into the lake because it's fearful of water. Moto was against taking them because they were rivals, but Oxa says that if they help them she would return the favor to everyone in the Forge class. They all agree and they got ready to cross the lake. On the other hand, the spectators were watching the students, and then we see Martin, who was worried about what Yalu said, going back to the festival Zhangyi man images to get across with some students with his yacht, surprising everyone because that boat was fast. The king was also surprised to see what Zhangyi built, praising him because he thinks that he will be a great forger in the future. Sophices is happy to hear those words and to see that they were talking about Zhangyi. Renz on the other hand was in first position, but suddenly some tentacle attacks, and I make a note here because this guy's real name is Ellie, not Alex as we thought, so he rushes to save his partner who was captured by those tentacles. Once Lee gets to the surface, asks what that thing was, and in that moment the beast goes up. It was the protector of that lake called the Void King. The monster starts to attack them and everyone they start to attack it back, but none of the attacks worked against that monster. Renz angrily uses his magic and surrounds the beast with water, taking it into the sky so it couldn't interfere with him on his way, surprising everyone, showing how strong he can be. When the king saw that, he asks offices if Renz could become as strong as the regent in the future. Sophosis is very honest and says that Renz is very strong, but he can't compare him with the regent because he is comparing a training field with a battlefield. On the other hand, the lead partners are apologizing for delaying him, but Ali didn't want to continue without the men in that moment, saying he appears helping them, getting them into his yacht. They continue their way and the Void King fells near to them with the color turned into red for how angry he was. Hixa explains that if the Void King gets red, it might become a Class S monster, so that's why she tries to stop it. Zhangyi stops her, and together with the Forge class they activate some devices, giving the odd a powerful minigun. Zhangyi starts to attack the Void King with the minigun, surprising everyone for how powerful that weapon was. While they were attacking, the Void King asked to stop since they are hurting him, and Xiang is surprised to know that it can speak human language, so the Void King transforms into a little boy who explains that his master ordered to participate in the festival, and Zhangyi thought that he had a coin so he asked him to hand it over. On the other hand, Renz manages to reach the other door where he finds two, and he went his way getting into the other door. Then the other students arrive and they realizes that the first place will get 2 coins and the second will only get 1 coin, and as they thought that they couldn't beat Renz, they settle with the 10. Zany arrives and he is happy for being able to get through the first round where he got 2 coins after taking them from the Void King. Zhang, he gives a coin to Isabella, but she didn't accept it because she wanted to get her own coins. So they all got into the next round where they found themselves into a burning forest. This was perpetrated by the regent's family, who set fire to the forest to summon the spirit of the forest to kill Zhangyi by Yalu orders. On the other hand, Xiang, he was on his way, and when he realizes that the fire was set intentionally, he asks himself who might have been. Then they found some twins fighting against spirits of the forest, who blames them for having intervened with the peace of the force. Oxa helps them with her magic, and Li along with Isabella cut the spirits into pieces, but they could regenerate. Because they have that ability, Zhangyi tries to talk to them so they don't have to fight, but they didn't want to let them go because they thought they were responsible for the fire. Renz interrogates one of the spirits and he tells that one of the humans started the fire. Renz was angry to know that there were people ahead of him that set the Place on fire. On the other hand, the other managed to contain the spirits in this. Isabella senses that there are people hiding, so she asked them to get out of their hideout. They say that they just arrived to the forest and because of Ren's they could not find anybody of their team in that moment till he feels a great amount of limit power getting close, so that's why all of them gets into fighting position. In that moment some roots start to get out from the earth and start to attack them, but Oxa protects them with her magic. Then from where the roots were a monster called the Thorn Queen appears, which was a rank, as she starts attacking them, and everyone attacks her back but no attacks seemed to affect her. She was so powerful. Isabella starts to attack her, managing to distract her and then cutting her in half with her sword with a combination of sword and magic, but the queen appears from the trees attacking her on her back. But in that moment a big ball hits the queen's face, sending her flying far away. It was Nine who helped them. He introduces himself, but the other make fun of him after hearing his voice, which sounded like a woman's, but after that they apologizes. Isabella asked how the queen appeared from the trees, and Oxa explains that the foreign queen relies on the tree's energy to live, so her tail is connected to every root so she could extract her life power. Then the queen appears once again, starting a new fight. Zhang He knew that the other two were from the pastoral branch, so he asked them to heal his friends and he would compensate in exchange. In that fight the queen almost killed Zhang Yi's friends, but the forging branch intervenes with weapons created by Zhang. Zhang Yi had bought some time and he created another weapon even more powerful, and he starts fighting against the Thorn Queen. Then Isabella asked him to stop. She start to release almost all of her limit power, surprising everyone because that limit power were the same as Rance. Isabella starts to get close to the queen, saying that she finally remembered her, and once the Thorn Queen notices her limit power, she remembered the past when she was little and lived with Isabella in the demon tribe, but as she couldn't live in a place with so much magic, this Isabella frees her, promising her to come back in the future when she could turn this place in a habitable one. When the foreign queen remembers her, she starts to cry out of happiness, and she almost called her demon queen, but Isabella tells her not to reveal her identity. In that moment the giant cat that could also talk and says that that dark limit power comes from the demon tribe, scaring everyone when hearing that. Zhang Yi couldn't explain what was happening there, so Moto explains that they were demon slaves, so she might have learned that they're saying. He start acting like he doesn't want to talk about the past with the demon tribe, but inside he was happy and thankful with Moto for intervening. Then Isabella arrives. She was talking with the queen and tell them that some people set fire to the place, but it wasn't Rents, so it should have been other people who were ahead of Rents, so with that they settled the misunderstanding. But since they didn't want to leave the forest like that, the twins put the fire out with their magic. The four-born queen apologizes for blaming them for everything, so she gives them 5 coins that she found around the forest as reward for saving the forest. Isabella gives them 2 coins and the twins also handed over hers because they had no more limit power to continue, so these two, without doing almost anything, they got 2 coins as well. The others continued with the festival, and the four queen wanted to accompany Isabella, but she refuses because she must escape from the humans first. When that happens, she promised to get back and find her again, and she'd get happy. When they are at the door they see that there is a coin there, which Ali ends up taking it after a game of rock paper scissors, but the girl that works for Angus takes it from him, and as they didn't want to get the coin back to him, saying he was about to start a fight with them, but at least stops him, saying to leave it since he wants to get a coin by himself. On the other hand, the Regent's family were fighting against some monsters, but they couldn't defeat them for how strong they were. In that moment Renz arrives, killing every monster and obtaining 3 more coins. And once he knew that they started the fire, he warns them going back to Zanyi. They were having trouble crossing the mountains from the next round because the wind was very strong. When walking, Billy accidentally steps on a trap, starting an avalanche on them, but the girl from the archery branch helps them and the others as well by stopping the rocks, but the rock starts joining together, becoming giant golems, and as a gratitude gesture Lee destroys the golems with his limit power, but all was for nothing because they end up regenerating themselves, creating a bigger golem that starts attacking Ali. The girl with the bow wanted to help him, but Shangi stops her because that was in Ali's fight. Since from that moment before when they taken his coin he remained cool, so he wants to see what his potential is when fighting, and in that moment they feel an enormous limit power coming from Ali, and he destroys the golem in a very epic way. Everybody is surprised by Ali's limit power, even Renz, who was pretty ahead of them and with badly got various coins. But after using that attack his arm was damaged. Everyone who managed to see his power were surprised for how strong he was. Even the ones that took the coins from him after that they kept going, but some of them couldn't continue because they were too tired, so Nine uses one of his abilities to help them continue. After some time they reach the door, where their Ali's friends decide to surrender and leave everything to him to win the festival. Police says goodbye to his friends, but Shang Yi was worried about Ali when he saw his arms, but Ali tells him to not to worry, that he could keep going. This girl didn't want to see him like that, so she grabbed his hands and with her powers she heals them, making Everyone else jealous seeing how she was healing his wounds. On the other hand, Renz was a bit tired because of the big sun as well as the region's family. Suddenly they see some cars getting close in which Zhang Yi with his group were. And they looked pretty fresh because of the ice windows Ascian made. When Barry sees that, he orders them to get him in. Zhang Yi along with the others makes fun of him and they didn't obey, leaving them alone, and one of his relatives throws a slang to the car which bothers them. After getting across the desert they reach the Crest Kingdom where almost everyone get coins as Yang Yi and everyone in the Forge branch were freezing. Zhang Yi built a helicopter to get across those crests faster, but 99 decides to keep walking because he wanted to test himself once everyone was inside, saying he turns the helicopter on and they find Renz on their way who was climbing the mountain with bare hands. Everyone asked why wasn't him using his magic to climb faster, and then Oxa realizes that something was wrong. In that moment the royal arena starts to fail. The projections are bothering the spectators since they wanted to keep watching the festival, and one of them explains that the students are in the absolute belt. He explains the being inside that site voids the ability to use limit power, and now they would have to get through that round using only their core abilities. Since they could see the projections they were bored for hours waiting to see who ends up finishing in first place in that category. Then they see someone getting out from the door. It was 99, the one who continued by himself, surprising everyone, realizing that the cooking branch finished that round faster. In that moment his coins gets out from him and they join for a total of 30 points, and second place was Elite, and counting his coins he got a total of 40 points, and the people was surprised and seeing what he did before everybody starts to support him to win the festival. The third place is for Renz, who broke the festival record by getting 100 points, and so everybody else were arriving one by one. Moto was sad and he arrived alone. Zany was getting Martin worried and the others asked where Shang Yi was. Barry says that he probably was dead and Moto blames him. A worried officers gets down to the arena asking Moto what happened to Shang Yi, and he tells everything that happened when they reached the top of the mountain in Zhang Yi's helicopter. Zhang Yi was about to dismantle his helicopter so nobody could copy that in the future, and in that moment the region's family arrived. One of them takes a coin from Zhang Yi with a slime. Billy attacked him, but his limit power didn't work on that mountain. The region's family start mocking them, but as Zhang Yi doesn't need limit power, he creates a rocket launch, making the region's family to get down, and after the fight starts, but Zany tell the others to go on because the Forage branch has the advantage there since they didn't need limit power. Billy decides to leave everything into the Forge branch's hands because he also needs to help the others get across with his natural strength. Both sides were fighting and Barry had planned to kill Zhang Yi with his sword, but Isabella intervenes, sending him flying with a swing of her sword. Zhang Yi tells her go on and continue just like the others, but she didn't want to. She wanted to take Regen's family coins, and with that everybody else manages to get to the final door. One family member creates a giant hammer and hits the floor, breaking it, making the whole Forge branch to fall into a pit. Isabella saved everyone, but when she was about to save Shanji, she didn't realize that a big piece of ice was behind her, so as Yanji changes places with her to protect her, making the big piece of ice hit his head and losing his consciousness, and so both of them fell into the bottom of the mountain. When Ali heard that he planned to start a fight with Soft, stops him, saying that if he does that he would be disqualified from the tournament, but Ali didn't care. He wanted to hit them, but in that moment Isabella gets through the final door carrying Zhang Yi, and after a bit she fells due. She was very weak. Oxa asks why did she get to the door carrying that useless, but she says that he is not a useless, that he is his husband, and before passing out she asked them to give Zhang Yi one of her coins. After that the festival first category came to an end and all the 16 students that managed to finish the category are named. Zhang Yi wakes up in the infirmary where he is informed that from the forging branch only he and Maud made it out to the next category. Zhang Yi asked how Isabella was and they said that she recovered fast and she is now training fencing with Sophices in the garden. When Zhang Yi arrived he told her not to train that much since her wounds haven't healed completely, and when talking about how she helped him, Isabella says that she did it just because she wanted a weak rival for the next category, making Zany angry for how she was treating him. And talking with these two sophists say that he has to get ready since he would face the region's family in the morning. At first he was surprised, but then he decides to finish with them since they almost got him killed in the last round. The next day the second round begins and it was combat. Some of them were surprised because the Forge branch got 2 students into the next category, and note here the battles are long and cover many chapters, so I will sum up the most important parts, otherwise I would have to make a lot of videos for this manual. Moto was scared in a room because he never thought that he would be in the next round, saying he asked him to calm down. Moto asks why is he so confident since he is going to fight against the region's family member, and he answers that he is not afraid since he prepared everything to kick their asses in the arena's offices, announces the combat presenting Bushi from the swordsman. branch and Shangyi from the forging branch. Once they entered the arena, the battle starts. Sayani pushes him to the edge of the arena, making his creation explode and throwing him out of the arena. Shangyi thought that he already won. But a slime starts choking him because Bushi didn't fell down completely after the explosion. Shangyi uses one firestone, burning his slime since it was its weakness, and he says that he found out what his weakness was in the past category since he used his slime everywhere but in the desert. With that being said, Shangyi creates a special weapon for him which starts surrounding him inside a sphere. Blushi tries to escape, but he couldn't because the top was made from red iron, and before all that, when Bushi attacked him with the debris, he took advantage and he put dynamite inside, so a big explosion occurs inside the sphere, an explosion able to kill anyone. The king was afraid. But sophists say that losing a life inside the festival would not have any repercussion, although Shangyi won. He asks offices to announce the winner, but in that moment Bushi destroys the sphere by activating his dragon shape when raising his power. In that moment the king explains that it is an ability passed down the family. When a kid is born, is taken to the Lord of Dragons, who gives the baby dragon blood, obtaining dragon powers and becoming a hybrid dragon human. The king also has dragon blood inside him. In the battle, Bushi says that his slime is a dragon slime which once it consumes the user it becomes stronger. Shangyi tries to damage him physically, but no weapon seemed to work, so Bushi thought that he was the winner of that fight. Shangyi tells him not to be so sure about that because when destroying the arena, he found the useless wood he had found before, and with that he locks Bushi up, creating a microwave. He tries to get out, but none of his powerful attacks could destroy the useless wood. Shangyi started giving him a speech to everyone who made fun of him for not having limit power. He explains that useless wood is the hardest material in the world and the forging branch is the only one that can use it, making it a branch destined to be powerful. With all that, he uses his brush with an electric stone to activate his giant microwave. Then we can see Shangyi's past. He was very smart. He even received an offer for a position in Harvard being only 14 years old. This is the reason why he can create advanced technological objects, because he is smart and he knows how things work from inside out. Bushi was asking for help inside that microwave because he couldn't hold that heat anymore, and also his slime was devouring him in order to survive. When Yalu notices that, he orders him to get him out. Shangyi refuses because when they participated in the festival they got rid of them, and he didn't want to free him because he maybe get out alive and then he would try to kill him. In that moment someone interrupts him. It was the academy director called Basil, who saved Bush's life since he is the one in charge of ensure safety and security of every student. As the fight was pretty exciting, he announces that Shangyi was the winner of that fight, getting everyone excited. Shangyi sees Isabella, but she steps out and thinking that maybe she was mad. Basil told him to look for her. On the other hand, Martin confronts Yalu, saying that if he tries to mess up with his students again he would not let him escape, but Basil intervenes, saying that he would not let the teachers fight. He asks Yalu to get rid of that dragon slime since it is a very dangerous object, and ask Martin a favor to fix the arena for the next fight. On the other hand, Shangyas with Isabella, and he gives her a sword made of useless wood before her event starts. Before she goes, Shangyi asked her about what happened in those snowy mountains and why when someone talks trash about him she always defend him, but just after she becomes cold with him, then he shouts that he wanted to understand her better. Isabella says that the priest who summoned him before said that he wasn't the hero who would save the demon tribe. Shangyi says that he is very strong now, but Isabella angrily says that just by defeating a weak human being he shouldn't believe that he was very strong, as he wanted to know what happened before he passed out. She tells that day when they were falling and they could not save themselves from death, their hands started to shine, teleporting them into a dark room. There she found herself with the Void King and Basil, who already knew that she was the Demon Queen. Isabella, furious, asked Basil how did he know she was the Demon Queen, and Basil says that when Martin built the walls he then used the protection magic on them, so he knows who enters and gets out of the kingdom. He told her that he used to visit her house regularly, surprising Isabella by letting her know that he know her father. Basil told her that they stopped talking to each other when a subject merged and they didn't agree with it because they had different points of view. Isabella asks him why did he became friends with his father if he was from another tribe, so he says that he doesn't see differences between tribes since every life was created the same, and she will feel the same when she gets to know the truth since everything sees and surrounds them belongs to a big entity. Isabella doesn't get it completely, and knowing that she is the Demon Queen she asked him if he would let her continue studying in the academy. Basil says yes because he wanted to see if she can surpass her old self with her current form. Isabella starts to think that Basil might have other identity as well since he already know her identity, and he doesn't seem to worry about that. She wanted to fight him, but after being talking with him he made her feel insignificant as an ant. When Shangyi hears all that he already knew that Basil knows that he came from another world, and Isabella says that since the Festival is her only way out of the kingdom she planned to win, and before she goes she told Zhang Yi that from now on could do what he wanted in the arena. His offices get started the second fight introducing Moss Bailey from the magic branch and his giant cat known as General, and on the other side there is Nanai from the cooking branch. Most believed that Failey would win, and even if he appears to be silly, he is one of the strongest specialists in his branch. After that the fight begins. Failey started to prepare an ability while his cat starts attacking Nani to distract him, but when trying to damage it, he couldn't because his body was too hard. In that moment Failey finished with his ability, absorbing a lot of energy from the sun, transforming his cat in someone very powerful, and human-shaped Vani starts throwing powerful and kitchen tool-shaped attacks, but after hitting him none of the attacks damaged him. The cat gets too close to Nanai and starts struggling with him, and after realizing how powerful he was the cat asks why does a chef has such power to fight. Nanai says nothing, continuing fighting, and the cat almost throws him out the arena with one hit. In that moment he focuses on Failey, who is about to throw a powerful attack with all the energy absorbed from the sun. After foreseeing that, Nani starts preparing a powerful defensive ability, throws his attack hitting the defense. Both of them starts to giving it all to see who could came on top, and after a while all the attacks explodes, leaving Failey exhausted since he does not handles that ability very well, yet everyone is surprised to see that they destroyed half of the arena. And Moto asks Ixa what kind of magic failure we're using. She explains the different types of magic that exists, and the one Failey was using, he was a special student in that kind of magic. When Zhang Yi sees that fight he got sad since Isabella told him the truth, saying that he is not that strong. If he would have fought an Ani or failure in the first round he would have lost, so after that fight he would try to find the way to increase his potential so he wouldn't be left behind. Now in the arena Nani managed to hold the powerful attack. Failey is surprised to see that he didn't win with that attack, so the cat starts fighting against Nanai, damaging him with his claws. Nani uses a smoke grenade, but even with that the cat was powerful and manages to damage him inside the mist with his speed. The cat was winning the fight, but suddenly he starts to behave weirdly, going back to his original form. Folly tries to get him back into it. Nanai says that the smoke grenade was known as the cat herb, which made his cat lose its normal functions. But it wasn't dangerous. He asks him if he wanted to keep fighting, but Failey surrenders since not even him could keep fighting, surprising everyone because no one expected Nanai to win. Then another fight begins, introducing Barry into Isabella, both from the same branch. When the fight begins Barry tells Isabella to surrender, but she doesn't listen and start to throw powerful attacks one after the other, making very unable to counter-attack. Everybody is surprised to see how much better got in so little time. Dorona was worried because she didn't want her to get out of control like that one time they were training. Isabella was about to give him the final blow, but he activates his dragon form, blocking her attack and saying to her to become his lover so they could practice fencing together. Isabella doesn't listen and she starts to throw some attacks, surprising Barry because even in his dragon form he could feel Isabella's big power. Barry starts to attack and she gets attracted for a bit, and with his sword he throws at her a powerful attack, destroying half of the arena. Barry thought that he had won, but not, because Isabella used her Dragon Queen limit power to stop the attack, surprising Barry, and with just one movement Isabella makes Barry go back. Barry was angry because she has so much power and he attacks her with the best he's got, but Isabella dodges it easily and reaching his arm as well, so now he wouldn't be able to continue as he was in going back to his original form. Everybody was so excited to see that Isabella won that thrilling fight, and when she was stepping out of the arena Barry's brother rushes straight to kill her for what she just did, but the girl who works for Angus stops him, saying that if he is such a bad loser, then he better leave now. The guy wanted to bully her but's offices makes him leave, saying that he would be disqualified if he stayed. That was the last fight of the day, since they had to repair the arena for the next one. She says that it won't be necessary since her fight wouldn't take long, and Sophices introduces Penny from the archery branch and Tianuo from the Druids branch. On the other hand, on the East Tribe settlement the Dragon Knights were executed shooting beasts by order from Angus on a tree. Those guys were worried because once the humans dismantles the East Tribe settlement, they would move their border just in front of the Orcs' border. Both of them are thinking that as long as Angus remains alive all the tribes that lives in the Zulu plains would never be at peace. Going back to the festival, Penny kept her a promise since Tiendo didn't surrender because she was near to death, surprising Zhang Yi, who thought that she will be a worthy rival for Isabella. When he sees Isabella with Dorona he asks himself what they could be talking about. Sophists announces that the day of activities have ended that night, saying he arrives to his room and he realizes that Isabella's things weren't there, so he goes to look for her. Once he did, he asks her why she left, and she says that she is going to live with Dorona so she could help her control her limit power, but Zany tries to stop her since her true identity might be revealed. Isabella says that he shouldn't worry about her anymore, leaving him alone in the hallway. The next day's offices get started. The next fight introducing Renz from the magic branch and Lantana from the archery branch. Lantana starts attacking, but those powerful attacks didn't work against Ren's defense, but she kept going. And after a while she breaks his defense. Ren starts to release some of his real power, making Lantana use her most powerful attack if she wants to win against him, but that attack only manages to scratch him. Lantana was scared but she decided to keep fighting anyways, but Renz prepares a powerful ability making the weather change. Lantana wanted to move, but her body was paralyzed. Even yet she manages to throw an attack, but Ren stops it with just a hand. He suggests that she should surrender, but she says that she will continue. When hearing that, Renz gathers more power to finish it. When Zhang Yi saw the sky he thought that he was going to summon a dragon, but Oxa says that it is not the case because that dragon form represents Renz's magic. She explains that magic is classified in wolf, tiger and dragon too, where that last one is the highest level. Back to the arena, Renz throws his dragon form attack, creating a big explosion, but she was saved by her master, and the others thought about surrender when their turn against him arrives. Sophisis starts the next fight introducing Li from the combat branch and mainly from the pastoral branch, saying he decides to go because he knows that Ali would win. Ali was having trouble in the arena because he couldn't manage to hit one blow because according to melee he can't use the violence against her. Outside from the arena, Basil finds Zhang Yi and he teleported him to the library so they could talk privately. Basil told him that he could read people's thoughts since his power level was huge. When Zanya hears that, he asked him if he would be able to take him to his world, and Basil says no because he can't do that with his limit power, but with Sangi's ring he could go back. He explains that the stone the ring has is called the Infinite World Gem, which has an enormous amount of limit power in it, and it is extremely rare since only him and Isabella have one. Then he says that with that stone, he can get him back to his world in that precise moment, surprising Zhang Yi, but he decides that not to go since he promised to say Bella that he would take her back to the demon tribe as a queen, and he wasn't planning to get back to his world until he fulfills that promise. When Basil hears that, he thinks about telling him what he didn't tell to Isabella when they both fell from the snow mountain days, says that she wanted to be with him to compete in the festival because they both promised to each other that they would overcome everything together, but Basil asked her if she was going to leave this world's future in Zhang Yi's hand, and she said yes because she was going to help him. Basil asked her what she would do when Zhang Yi gets hurt real bad when trying to help her since he is not responsible for helping this world. She said that she didn't trust him before, but with time she saw how he pushed himself to protect her and help her, and since she didn't want him to suffer she was planning to separate from him, but that would be after the first round, so after the snow mountain she would keep away from him. After that, Basil sent her back to the snow mountain, where with a lot of difficulty she made it through with him on her back so he wouldn't die in that place. Zhang Yi cries after hearing that because the reason Isabella wanted him away was for him to be safe. He was planning to tell Isabella that he already knew everything, but Basil told him to not because that would embarrass her. He says that instead of that he better find a better moment to tell her everything. Then they quickly get back to the arena where another combat had started. They see Moto, who was being massacred by Barry's brother. Basil stops the fight, sending Moto to the infirmary. And standing tall he told Zany that he decided not to surrender. Zhang Yi congratulates him for that, but since Moto was in a very bad shape they took him to the infirmary fast. Isabella was hiding and she was afraid that Zhang Yi could end up like that, saying he was angry, and he asks how Moto's fight came so early, and Lee says that the two battles before that ended up so fast with the Leaves and Ache's victory that night. Zhang Yi was thinking about what else he could do to keep improving, and in that moment someone knocks on his door. It was Renz, who asked him to talk. Once outside, Renz says that he already knows that he was a demon slave, and since he had progressed so fast he proposed the king that once he graduated he could join the army, but Zhang Yi didn't want that rank, he wanted the rank of mayor since he could get in and out the kingdom. Renz says that with that rank, he must be prepared to fight in any moment. So a forger would not be useful. Zhang Yi was angry and wanted to go. He didn't want to be underestimated just by being a forger, and also because Renz would be Zhang Yi's final opponent in the festival. Renz was angry too and says that if he goes to the festival tomorrow he would not have mercy when they have to fight, but Zhang Yi laughs and says that he is not afraid to fight with him. He also says that the reason he is afraid because he have never lost and he thinks he is the only one who could defeat him. Renz was furious and he wanted to kill him, but Sophisis appears and stops him so he would not be disqualified, and before Renz goes Yang, he shouts that he will be the only one who defeats him. Then Sophist takes him to another place and says that nobody in the Forge branch have been able to use useless wood since it cannot be used for building. Martin tells that he tried to use it to forge before, but he couldn't, surprising Zanji because he thought that only him had used it. Sophisis says that there are many legends of Zulio's plains and one of Them talks about the useless wood and says that Zulio's creator used a great amount of power to create all living creatures, but after spending so much power he left the plains the only remains of the ship he used to leave the plains were those pieces of useless wood and then became the useless wood that we know today. Sophists at the end says that the creator was the only one who knew how to use useless wood, surprising Martin who thinks that Zhangyi has a similar power the creator had. Zhangyi says that he only knows the useless wood's properties and he thought that maybe the creator of that world was the same who created the earth. In that moment he remembers that Basil told him that he must not reveal that he is a traveler from another world. Sophists asked Martin if he had heard about the demos using the forge. Martin says no, since the demons have a huge limit power, but they called it magic power and they didn't care about forging. After some talking they came to the conclusion that maybe Zhangyi can defeat Ren since he can use useless wood. The next day the quarterfinal starts and the first fight of the day is Yang Yi against Nai. Before the fight starts Billy tells Zany to be careful because Nai was very powerful. Then Ace arrives and she was with Ali, who had been punished for what he did to Melee in the fight. Billy was mad that day for not being able to give her a punch, so with a bit of luck he manages to destroy Melee's illusion which didn't allow him to hit her. She was scared and throws an attack that would keep him chained while she activates her attraction ability to make Ali fell in love. This gets everyone nervous, even the teachers, but Ali was angry and destroys her charm with his limit power and he didn't care about her being a woman, so he sends her flying with a slap. After that everyone gets disappointed with him after hitting a beautiful girl twice without even thinking about it. Billy also calls her out because she also humiliated Billy when they fought. Before we continue with the story, don't forget to subscribe and like since it's the best way to help the channel and also motivates me to keep going with the next chapter of this manual. When the competitor get into the arena they surprised everyone since none of them expected they would get so far. Nana starts attacking Zhang Yi, who managed to block him, but Nanai gets behind him with his quickness to end the fight fast, but Zhangyi activates a magic barrier and he could do that because Basil told him that he could use magic by drawing glyphs and symbols. After the barrier water comes out from it making Nana go back. Everybody was in shock seeing that he could use advanced magic. Being in the forge branch since he has no limit power. Aces, who was in love with Martin, asked him about how Zhangyi can use magic since he is useless. What? And he says that he found out that a forger can use magic by drawing glyphs or symbols, taking advantage of the magic that lies inside the gold alignment. By drawing the glyphs he could use any type of elemental magic, but that would deplete the alignment stones very fast, destroying the glyphs with it and making it usable just once. Aces gets surprised because he would have to be rich to buy alignment stones every time, and Martin says that in fact he has a lot of money because he sold all the objects he created, being Darona's and Ace's figures, the ones that gave him more money. After knowing that they both wanted to kill Zhang Yi because it was because of him that every man of the city looked at them every time in the arena. Nada attacks Zhang Yi again, but he manages to stop it and he activates an electrical magic attack, destroying Nani's weapons and also hitting him and making him fly. Zhang Yi was happy for using magic but also sad because they only work once, then I could hold that powerful attack, and starts attacking him, but Zany kept sending him flying with every magic he created. In that moment Zhang Yi creates a special brush since he is going to use high-level magic, activating 3 glyphs at the same time, freeing 3 beasts from 3 different elements. Nanai has no other option but to eat power pill, destroying 2 beasts and catching the fire one. Since a cook can bend fire, Martin asks Nana's master Mumu what did he eat, and he says that it is a power pill that promotes limit power. Nai attacks him, the fire beast, but he creates another elemental beast, making them fight and creating an explosion that leaves a smokescreen inside it. Nai was looking for a way to defeat Zhang Yi fast so he could not create another beast, but Zhang Yi creates another extremely powerful beast, copying last Ren's attack. Verona gets surprise for everything Zhang Yi's got, but Aces tries to disgrace him, saying that that was just external power. Zhang Yi tell Neen to surrender since he didn't want to hurt him, but Nani refuses, saying that they were in a battle and Shanji decided to continue with the battle. He attacks Nanai, creates various barriers to defend himself, but they didn't work because the elemental beast destroys it with an explosion that hits Nanai. He was lying on the floor and surfaces was about to announce the winner, but Mumu stops him because they then I didn't give up. He was pretty injured, but he gets into his feet to keep fighting, and Mumu tells the story about Nadai. He was abandoned when he was a baby in Mumu's restaurant front door, and 10 years later he was cooking, but he couldn't do it well. He was sad because times passed and he couldn't cook anything well, so one day he ran out the restaurant and Mumu went after him and saw him crying because he was having a bad time, and he also had a woman-like voice, so people didn't like his food. Mumu calms him, saying that maybe cooking was not his talent, maybe becoming a powerful fighter was it, and with that he managed to calm him, and now he wants to change people's perspective about chefs by becoming a chef who can fight, so he would participate in the festival to fulfill that, and the reason he doesn't give up is because they want everyone to recognize him as chef. Zhang Yi helps him, saying that he respects him as a chef, but Nani pushed him, saying that he is not worthy because he doesn't know how to do anything, so Zhang Yi puts a Marichan out and gives it to Nin to eat it, and after that he lies on the floor after tasting something so delicious. Nada thinks that now Zhang Yi also beat him at being a chef, but when he was getting him up from the floor, he says that anyone can be a chef as long as they have a heart. As a person he can be anything he wanted. After that Nanai goes to his master and he asks him if he is a chef. And Mumu with a big smile says that he is a very good chef. Nanite cries out of happiness to see that his master recognizes him as a chef, and he thanks Zhang Yi for helping him, promising that he would come back stronger in the future. Whether cooking or fighting, after that Sophists announces the winner and presents the next fight. The league against Barry's brother called Buno. Basil asks Mike who is the strongest, and he says that they both are, but Buno should be stronger. On the other hand, Oxa congratulates Yang Yi for winning, and when he meets with Isabella he says that maybe he gets to fight her if he wins the next fight against Ali. Isabella says that she is not sure about Ali winning against Bruno, since Bruno is not weak as his brothers. Since she felt a powerful limit power in the arena, Bruno was happy because he finally would be able to fight against a powerful person. Ali was happy as well because he was going to fight someone of the same branch, and after all that the fight begins. Bruno attack first, hitting Lee with a strong blow, but Ali block exit, but the attacks was so powerful that numb his arm. Even yet he continues with the fight, surprising everyone because these two participants were stronger than the last year's ones, and the king asks offices who won last year, and he says that his NCO won in the arena. He throws a powerful attack, but Bruno dispels his ability quickly, surprisingly, because he never though he was powerful. Zhang Yi is feeling bad about the limit power emerging from the arena. Isabella tries to help him, but Oxa gets ahead and helps him, getting Isabella sapped. Bruno hit silly, sending him flying because he was distracted taking Luna though he had won, but suddenly he feels a strong pressure and he realizes that it was Ali who was using his limit power with his arms, hitting Bruno so hard that he destroys most of the arena. After that attack Lee had his arms damaged and Bruno gets out from the debris, transformed into his dragon form. And with one beating of his wings he makes Lee go back, surprising him because he never though his dragon form was so powerful. Bruno starts making fun of Elite Bully, uses his limit power and attacks many times, but it doesn't work because Bruno was stronger, sending Lee flying with just one blow. Luno starts stepping on him aggressively, avenging his brother's defeat, but Benelli stops his foot with one hand. Billy uses a very powerful ability that he planned to use against friends, but seeing that he was so powerful he had no other choice but to use it against Bruno. Bruno is a bit scared and planned to attack Ali, but he pinches him with a very powerful wave, making all the fire expands through Bruno's body. Billy explains that this fire comes from his limit power, so it can't be put out with normal methods. Basil asks Mike why did he taught him such a powerful technique, and Mike says that he didn't taught him, that it was Ali who managed to dominate alone after he learned the fire ability. Mike decides to go since he already knew that result back in the arena. Ali suggests Bruno to give up, but he keeps attacking. Billy dodges them all easily, and Bruno angrily throws his most powerful attack, Beautily, with his fire ability destroys the attack with a big explosion. After the smoke goes away he sees Bruno injured, who passes away after receiving the attack. Billy also passes away for using that ability, getting also bowled by that, saying he gets down to the arena to help him and announces him as the winner, getting only happy but also sad because he wouldn't be able to participate in the festival anymore because of that ability he used. After that Lee is taken to the infirmary where Melee heals him until he apologizes for that hit in the fight. On the other hand, Sophists announces the next fight, introducing Penny and Isabella, where they both start attacking to each other with normal but powerful attacks. Penny transforms his whip into a rapier and starting to attack Isabella, but she dodges her attacks, and when she attacks her back she manages to reach her, injuring Penny a bit. After that Penny raises her power and starts to attack Isabella with more power. Isabella is surprised because she seems like another person, a very powerful one. Isabella uses her Demon Queen limit power, starting to massacre Penny with many blows until she hits her with the final one, but Penny stops her attack with one hand, and like a crazy she wanted to fight with her for real to see who died first. Isabella throws various attacks, but this time was Penny who injured her with some attacks that were starting to damage her. She starts to remember all the bad things that happened in the past, making her angrier and obtaining more Demon Queen power, worrying Zanji for what it could happen. Basil is also worried, so he creates a barrier surrounding the arena. And every master can feel Isabella's limit power as something very different. Dorona says that Isabella is getting limit power overcharged, but he interrupts her, saying that Isabella's limit power belongs to the demon tribe. Surprising Dorona, then Basil announces some mishaps in the fight and they would solve it in a moment inside the arena. Isabella had a demon appearance because she recovered a little of her true demon queen limit power when Penny saw Isabella. She was very scared, so she decided to escape trying to destroy the barriers, but they restored quickly. Isabella starts using her power to kill her, but Zanji appears asking her to stop fighting, otherwise they would discover her true identity. Her fight was over anyways. Isabella tells him to give her orders, sending them both flying with just an aura. Isabella catches Penny out of the air because she wanted to kill her. Shangi hugs her and asks her not to kill her, otherwise she would attract unnecessary attention, but Isabella starts listening to a voice that tells her to kill Penny, so she was going to do it in that moment, saying he tells her that Basil told him the truth about why she was moving away from him, and he promised that together they would go back to the demon tribe. When Isabella hears that, she starts to calm down, but she starts to listen to the demon queen's voice, saying that she shouldn't be depending on a human being, that she should kill them all so she wouldn't have any troubles on her way. Zhangi notices that he is losing her again. He tries to calm her, but she pushes him away to get close to Penny and kill her, but Zhangi stops her and kisses her to see if she can calm. The ring starts to activate, making Isabella remember everything they've been through. After that, Isabella calms down, and plus she asked him why he was so imprudent and kissed a demon queen, but before he could answer, she ends up passing out for using so much power. Penny wanted to keep fighting, and Zhangi was afraid because he forgot his magic brush, but Basil appears and knocked Penny out to calm her. Zhangi asks him if the other suspect after seeing Isabella's power, and he suggests him to get away from Isabella for a time because he need to clear any of the other people's doubt to warranties Isabella's safety. Then Basil gets rid of the barriers, saying that the fight was over and introducing the fight of Renz against Ixa, but Ixa surrenders because she doesn't want Renz to kill her with one attack since Lee could not fight anymore and Isabella broke some rules. They announced that the finals will be between Renz from the magic branch against Shanji from the forging branch. This gets everyone excited because they wanted to watch that fight later on in the kingdom dungeons. Isabella were being interrogated by the soldiers. She said that she learned the limit power in the demon tribe when she was a slave, but they won't believe her because demons' limit powers are a thing of their own. Then Basil appears and says that a human being can have the same limit power as the demons since both powers are identical, but each tribe develops it differently. The scared soldiers asks why the director is in the kingdom's dungeons, and Basil says that he is there because he doesn't want his students to be treated horribly, scaring the soldiers. On the other hand, Penny was being interrogated as well, but she didn't say a word, making the soldiers angry who were about to use the force against her, but Sato appears, and once he is alone with her he apologizes, calling her Princess Penny. On the other hand, Zhang Yu went to visit their injured friends. Moto asked him if Isabella won the fight, and he says that she was disqualified for using demon power limit, just as Penny, who used beast limit power. He also says that his next opponent will be Renz, scaring everyone else because Zhangi decided not to surrender. Ali asks if he is ready for when Renz uses his dragon, from which will make him even more powerful than he already is. Zhangi says that he haven't fought thoroughly, but the only thing he knows is that he has to win. Once out of the infirmary, he hears some people making fun of him because they think he would not be able to beat Rems. Before we continue with the video, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. That's the best way to help the channel keep growing and bringing you guys the next part of this manhwa. Then he goes to pay a visit to Martin, and he asked him if he would be able to beat Renz, and Martin, with a smile on his face, says that not in the past but the current, saying he could definitely beat him. The next day the fight begins. Sophices announces the winner's rewards, which will be 1,000 gold coins in the rank of commander. Before the fight begins, Renz suggests the king that the fight should end once one of them end up dead, the king, except since Basil also wanted to see that, so the order is that nobody must intervene in that fight until one of them dies. When the fight begins, Renz tells Angie 3 reasons why he want to kill him, and the last one was because Shangi didn't deserve to be married with Isabella because he considered him trash, but in that moment saying you take out the lunar stone Martin gave him, and when seeing that Renz was in love with Isabella he told him that she was her woman. Renz was angry and locked him inside some rocks and setting the surrounding on fire, but Zangi gets out of it, creating a mecha. Renz throws another attack, but Zyangi reflects it since his armor is made out of useless wood. That he approaches faster, runs to hit him, but Renz dodges it very easily. Zhangi keeps attacking him, but Renz protects himself with a barrier, but suddenly behind him some little bombs appear which end up exploding. Renz was injured, and Zhangi takes the opportunity to cut him in half. But it was just a water clone which gets bigger, catching the mecha. Renz plans to crush him, but since the mecha was made out of useless wood he couldn't, so he rather opt to drown him, getting the water inside the mecha with no other option. Zhangi gets out of the mecha and being vulnerable for Ren's attacks, but Zangi stops him using Axe's ice magic, but We see Zhangji with an armor called Magic Knight which he easily created because with the lunar stone everything that he thinks about just appears before him when Renz notices that he wanted to beat him with magic tries to lock him out. Again, but Zhangji manages to escape and to get close to Ren's body since he thinks that mages are weak in melee close combat, but Renz hit him with a blow and sends him flying. Zhangji rushes towards him to hit him, but Renz protects himself and start making fun of him, but this time he strikes with more strength than Zhangji hit him in the face that made Renz angry, sending Zhangji flying with his high-level magic, and he creates a water sword which he starts hitting him with, but it was just a distraction because some kind of hand starts to appear from the ground grabbing Zhangji, who tries to escape, making them explode, but they regenerate so fast. Runs creates an elemental explosion which was a super level magic and he starts attacking him with it, making it very difficult for Zhang Yi and start throwing many water swords, surprising everyone because any normal person should be dead by now. Shanji was having a very bad time inside the mecha because the attacks were pretty strong, but with all that he manages to gather data so he could make his next move. Renz feels that the temperature is elevating, so he creates a barrier and says that elemental magic is useless since he can cancel it. When Zhangji is ready, he shoots a powerful laser, surprising everyone because he took that one from Feli, but Basil is asking why there is no magic aura in the arena. Zhangji escapes from the rock hands while Renz was distracted since he was injured by the laser, making him angrier than he already was. Renz prepares another attack called Destruction Hurricane which was world level magic, surprising Zhangji because there was more levels of magic. Zhangji uses the laser, but this time it doesn't work since Renz protects himself with the hurricanes. Renz prepares an attack to kill him with precision. The rock hand starts to appear once more, making Zhangji escape because if they catch him again he would be done for. The hands end up grabbing him since they were faster. Then Renz throws the hurricanes, making them impact Zhangji's armor, who is having a bad time inside it. Renz starts taking a crazy personality, making fun of Zhangji for not being able to stand up in that moment. We can see Ren's past, who had a powerful right eye named Magic Iris. This eye could absorb any kind of magic. Not being able to control it, friends had to get away from his family. There were only a few people who had that eye because of its power, so those people were considered a threat to the lineage of the royal family. One day the general ordered to kill everyone with that eye, but Ren saved because they had compassion. Although being from the royal family his life was miserable and full of hatred, but then these two arrived. Ace's master, who is Basil, tell her to take care of Rems. She gets close to him, but Ren says that she should step away because his eye could absorb her magic, but Aces doesn't care because she has a lot of magic power and helps him to calm his eye down, promising him that he wasn't alone anymore. Going back to the arena, Zhangji tries to stop the hurricanes with Magic Dragon, but they don't work because Renz absorbed them with his eye, but he couldn't control it. That eye very well, yet being able to activate it only for 15 minutes. Once he activates that right eye, the capabilities increases to the infinite. On the other hand, Zhangji was going to fight with him face to face using his laser's maximum power, but his condenser starts to fail because they overcharged, making Renz laugh harder and increasing his magic powers to the hurricanes. Zhangji couldn't keep up anymore because his body was at the limit in that moment. He sees Dome people getting into the festival to watch his fight Isabella, who cheers him, telling him not to forget the promise of getting back together, making Zhangji happy for what she said. Renz gets angry seeing that Isabella is supporting Zhang Yi, so he tries to kill him so she could see that he was stronger and better than Zhang Yi, but he manages to escape from the hurricanes with the help of the mecha, so then he could start hitting him, and those strikes made more damage than before. Zhang Yi was in pain and surprised because those hurricanes managed to dent his armor made of useless wood. When seeing that Renz was busy fighting the mecha, he takes out some environmental blueprints of very powerful ones, but he was afraid to use them because he didn't know if he could control the damage that might cause. Zhang Yi tell Renz to use his dragon from since he is going to defeat him in front of everyone. Renz captures the mecha easily. After hearing mad and angry, he says that he would not use his dragon form since he was too weak for him. Zhang Yi creates a nuclear weapon from the experimental blueprints that goes by the name of Nuclear Hawkeye, which he attacks Renz with. He activates a world-level barrier that goes by the name of Holy Angel. Janju's attack creates a dome surrounding Rims, and after that the attack ends up exploding inside the dome. This created a strong wave of light that even Lee and Moto could feel. Being so far away from the arena and inside the arena, everybody else was saved because of Basil's magic. The public gets scared when noticing that the whole arena was destroyed by an enormous fireball that was floating over, surprising even the Master's offices. Is very happy to see Zhang Yi's big progress because if he joins the White Dragon Knights they would be so much stronger in the arena. We can see Zhang Yi, who had to cover from his own attack, but he got damaged anyways, and after seeing the ball of fire he was happy because before that he created a barrier surrounding the fire, so its energy couldn't escape. After that the fireball is absorbed by Renz, making the barrier smaller, where we can see Lava coming from it, everybody is in shock, and they see a devilish spirit of fire, and after eating a big part of the fireball he goes in from the lava, Renz comes out, who activated his dragon form to protect himself. Aces is surprised to see that the terrestrial dragon form had evolved when being in danger. With no time to lose, Renz uses the lava to attack Zhang Yi, who manages to dodge it, but his armor was starting to fail, and Renz took advantage of it and sends him to the floor with a single strike, but he could protect himself thanks to a barrier, saying he tries to use his brush. But Renz steps on his hand and then starts stepping on him to the death. With that, Renz wanted to show everyone that saying he was weak. Zhang Yi starts to laugh at him, saying on the outside he seemed easy, but on the inside he just wanted to draw the attention of the people surrounding him. He says that he shouldn't wish others wives and that the other event had been decided. Sided with Sangyi's victory, Renz was going to kill him to shout his mouth. Isabella wanted to intervene, but Zhang Yi cuts his arm with the laser, surprising everyone with what he just did. After that, his armor completely runs out of power, and Renz was very angry for what he did, so he was about to use of his limit power to kill him. Renz attacks, but his body starts to behave weirdly. Zhang Yi says that his senses will start failing until his last cell dies. After losing his sight, Renz asked Zhang Yi what was happening because he couldn't see, but he could hear voices. Sangyi explains that when he absorbed the explosion, he already knew he had won because all the symptoms he was feeling were because of radiation. In this part, what I understood was that when Shangyi created that big explosion, Ren's DNA code was bombarded by the nuclear core, causing irreversible damage. Men start bleeding everywhere, and Aces was going to help him, but Basil stops her because Renz must experiment his own difficulties. Ren starts screaming in pain and Shangyi tells him to surrender, but in that moment Ren's bodies start to wrinkle, turning into something really ugly. Even so, Renz gets up to keep fighting. He didn't want to lose against Seeing You, since it would be shameful. Zhang Yi was angry, so he hits him to end it once, and for all surprising everyone, he defeated Renz, leaving him at the edge of death. Sophisis enters the arena. He was happy, and he announces that saying he was the winner. Everyone was happy because no one expected that result. Aces asked Basil to cure Renz, but he says that it would be very difficult because he never saw something like that, but he promised that he would find the cure. On the other hand, Zhang Yi ends up passing out. He was exhausted. Isabella catches him and thanks him for keeping the promise. Martin was very happy because despite always finishing last in the former events, they could win one with the help of Shang Yi. In that moment, the king arrives and hands over the trophy to Martin, making everyone in the forging branch happy. In the night, everyone was looking for a cure for Renz, but they didn't know how. Also, Renz was getting worse, so Basil gets out a very powerful stone, a stone known as the development stone, which was the artifact that built the world and all living creatures. They use it on Renz to try to cure him. Basil says that he saved his life with that, but he would have to live with all the imperfections. Aces asks how is it possible that this stone had so much power, and Basil says that he will tell her in the future. Renz wakes up, but he wanted to kill Zhang Yi, and Aces calms him, hitting him, saying that the fight was over and Zhang Yi won. He was sad because besides he lost the fight, he now has imperfections all over his body. On the other hand, Zhang Yi wakes up and realizes that he is with all of his friends who wanted to celebrate for winning the festival. Moto, on the other hand, was sad because Shang Yi was healed by the master from the pastoral branch called Yulina, and he was healed by a man not very masculine. While they were talking, they were interrupted by Isabella, who asks them to leave the room so she could give Xiangyi his food. So with no other choice, they decide to go. Xiangyi tells her that she should be Darona's room because it is too late, but Isabella says that she came back to live with him in the room. When Zanya hears that, he gets so happy, and then Isabella gives him the food she made for him, which looked pretty bad, but Zhangyi eats it anyways. Then they start talking about what they will do after getting the rank of commander. Isabella suggests to go back to the demon tribe, but Zhangyi asks how would they do to defeat Lillian's army, so they decide that Isabella should recover all of her power to be able to fight, but Isabella's recovering rate was slow, but thanks to Darona's teaching she could increase her limit power. Incredibly, she could also recover faster because her demon core had activated. Again, Zhangyi asks her what that was, and she explains everything since the beginning. She explains that everyone who has a limit power have something known as source, and that the core that shapes the limit power, but the demon core was a separated entity and the demon queen was the only one who has it, since she is the demon's leader. Then she tells the legend that says that the god of creation's blood flows through the veins of the demon's rulers, and the demon's tribe was established by Isabella's ancestors who conquered other tribes. Zhangyi gets surprised because that's the reason why demons are stronger than humans. Isabella tells that there is a problem, and that is when her demon core activated, she felt someone else inside, and that other personality was the evil demon queen. And once in the house, he talks with Isabella about the demon queen's personality. Zhangyi asked her if she changed her personal reality and other opportunities, but Isabella says no, since this started happening after Lillian stole her powers. Zhangyi asked her why did she stole her powers since it could lead them to a way for her to get her demon queen's limit power back completely. Isabella didn't know exactly what that was, but she remembered some features so Zhang Yi could draw it, but when drawing it he realized that it looked like a penis, so he asked her to be more specific so he could draw it later. Then they both go to visit the forge class, which had become popular thanks to Zhang Yi. Then Zhang Yi shows Martin the drawing he made with Isabella and asked if he have seen that dagger since he has visited numerous corners of the plains. Martin says that maybe he had seen one but he didn't remember well, and he asks Yang Yi if that was one of his new creations. He says no since he found that design in the demon tribe and he wanted to study it so he could contribute with humanity's progress, but Isabella interrupts him saying that this dagger killed the demon queen. When Martin hears that he gets surprised and he grabs a book where he made some notes 5 years ago from a mural painted within some ancient temple. Martin explains that in that book there are different weapons and objects that the gods once used in some tales from when they lived in the plains. Zhang Yi decides to look for a related image, but when taking a look at the book he gets surprised because some drawings looked like airships, cars and other things from his world. After a lot of searching they finally finds an image just like their drawing, and Isabella asks Martin where that temple he mentioned before is. Martin says that it's located within a forest keeper in the mountains in the Eli mountain range. Martin says that 5 years ago they received a help call coming from that place since some lizard was destroying the city, and in order to protect his brothers Lily decided to fight against the lizard which started to attack him, but luckily Mike arrived and defeated the lizard. After that Ali asked Mike to be his master and he accepted since he noted that Ali had potential. Then after the helping mission was fulfilled, the locals showed the temple remains to Martin. One of the locals explained that those remains had been there for thousands of years, so they thought that the gods had built it. When Martin got close to those remains he realized that there were some descriptions in ancient language. Martin managed to copy some of the information since he knew bit about that language. When Zhang Yi hears that he thought if maybe other humans from his world had been there before. The next days, Yang Yi is called by sophists since officially Sophists was going to rank him up, giving him a medal which would allow him to get in and out the kingdom as he pleased. Saying he says goodbye to offices since he along with his friends will go to the ancient temple, remains to start an investigation. Wharton asked him to take the lunar stone with him, but Zhang He refuses because that stone was very important for the kingdom, although he really wanted to take it. After that Zhang Yi builds a car and he started his journey, and in that moment a knight arrives saying that the regent had returned to the kingdom after annihilating the whole East tribe. He also says that he is in a meeting with the king and the king ordered sophists to go to the palace. Once offices is arriving the palace he found himself with the regent who was releasing his power. While walking sophists ask him why did his father commit suicide. After talking with him, Angus says that he just told him the truth about the world and he was planning to tell him as well, but it was very soon for him to comprehend. After feeling some of Angus' powers, Sofa offices starts to bleed a bit. After that he swears that he would kill Angus with his own hands to avenge his father. On the other hand, Zhang Yi built a helicopter in which they arrived the mountain range faster, but they were all dizzy because of the altitude. Billy reunites with some of his child friends who were surprised by the helicopters Yang He built since it was a divine object for them. Then they took them to the village and they were surprised to see that people living there were very strong compared to the people in the capital. Then by afternoon this guy tells Zhang Yi that his helicopter looked a lot like the drawing inside the ancient temple. Zhang Yi explains that this was the main reason why they were there, to investigate about those drawings, and that guy said that he would tell everything about that in the morning since they must be tired for the long trip. Everybody says goodbye and they go to sleep, and when Zhang Yi sees that Isabella is separating the blankets he says that he brought his to sleep on the floor. Isabella says that for that one night he could sleep on the bed since he wasn't totally recovered from his wounds. Zhang Yi was pretty excited since he thought he had a chance with Isabella. But sadly he quickly realized that Isabella decided to sleep on the floor. The next day they go to see the remains. And one of the guys told them that his ancestors said that that's where the gods used to live and currently they used it for New Year's celebrations. After a long searching process they finally found the dagger they'd drawn and their ring started to shine as well as some writings in the mural. After that a secret door opens where the mural was, surprisingly, because he never heard about that mural having a secret door before going in. Zhang Yi creates some sensorial spiders with cameras and he sent them to investigate if they could find something dangerous inside since they don't really know what to expect inside. After a little while he confirms that nothing dangerous is inside, so they decide to go in and suddenly all the torches surrounding them lighten up themselves. On his way Zhang Yi asks himself if their rings maybe broke the seal of that mural and also if he could find some clues about how and why he arrived to that world. Then Moto and Elise starts to feel a power increasing. Isabella says that they are feeling it because there is a big amount of limit power inside. In that moment Zhang Yi receives a signal coming from his spider saying that they found Something he sees that it was about a mural in which some tall guy was carrying the dagger they draw. They continue walking, and they found the mural. It was surprising because it was huge, but it was written in ancient language, so they would have to decipher it. Just by the drawings they noticed that the mural had several tribes, and above them there were the gods carrying the dagger they draw, saying he, after analyzing it, says that maybe the mural was made to inform that the gods were the ones who created all the tribes, but they would leave that just as a theory. Then, when taking a look at what the spiders were watching, he realizes that there is more to it, so they decide to go forward. The team goes 10 floors down, but they find nothing. There were not murals anymore, but Zangi receives a signal from one of his spiders. They had detected a life form up ahead. In that moment, some kind of slime falls into Zangi's hand, burning him. Realizing that the whole ceiling was full of that slime, making it dangerous, the slimes start to fall one by one, but the team manages to avoid them. Billy throws a powerful attack to destroy them, but more slime appear, and they were more powerful, so they decided to get on more floor down, and Shangi seals the door so they could not get through. In that moment he receives a signal. One of his spiders were destroyed. Those other rank D crimson spiders were the guilty ones, but behind those spiders a dragon appears and start to destroy the spiders. Isabella says that it is not a dragon since it doesn't emit the same energy as a real dragon does, and in that moment this dragon start talking to them, saying that they shouldn't be in there. Zhangyi says that they're looking for an object, but the dragon didn't like humans, so he starts attacking them, saying he defends from the attack, forging a powerful wall. And Isabella together with Elise start attacking the dragon, but the dragon sends them flying with his huge strength. Isabella decides to use her Demon Queen limit power, using an ability called Magic Sword Aura. The dragon manages to dodge it by a hair, then scared about that he starts destroying the place to kill them with it. The floor crumbles and Zhangyi forges an armor helping Isabella, but when he was about to help Moto, one big rock gets in front of him, but just in time he manages to create a tome to save himself. They both are amazed because they descended so many floors. Zhangyi sees the reports collected by his spiders. With all that information they generated a map, and the place was huge. And every room had different secret chambers, and each one of them had different tasks. Isabella tells Yanji that the magic aura was stronger than before, and that's because they are getting closer to the source emitting it. They both decide to go to that source. On the other hand, the other managed to save themselves, and they decided to keep going forward into the tunnels where they were once. They were walking through, they face some ranks sea thieves bats which start attacking them. Going back to Zhang Yi, he was also fighting monsters. In that moment the Thorn Queen appears, and she starts communicating with the monsters so they could stop fighting, and rather to settle things by talking. Shanji is surprised to see the foreign Queen there, and Isabella says that she brought her there since she promised her that she would look for her. Shangi shows the monsters the dagger drawing, but they didn't want to cooperate since they didn't want to quit the magic or the dagger emits since they survived because of it. Isabella was furious, so she uses more of her Demon Queen limit power, but this time it was stable since she absorbed the energy surrounding her that scared the monsters, making them get away, and the foreign queen becomes a bracelet so she could help them later, as Isabella smelled horrible because a lot of the monsters' blood fell into her. Zhangyi offered her a change of clothes, but she couldn't find a place where to change. On the other hand, the other two managed to beat the bats and decided to go to the end of that tunnel, where they got surprised to find a huge door. Lily decided to open it, but he couldn't. He didn't want to quit trying since Mike taught him that he must overcome every obstacle. Billy uses his limit power to open the door, but it was so difficult. Eventually he managed to do it by using a 200% of his power. Then they both decide to get through. Billy didn't realize that when he entered he activated a thing, and almost everything surrounding them started to shine, surprising them because they had found another mural not far from them. Going back to Zhang Yi, he found a hidden room where a water fountain was, and then he gets surprised to see that everything there was big. Isabella found a bathtub, so she started taking a bath, and Zhang Yi manages to see her thanks to an opening in the door, but like a total gentleman he decides to go because that was wrong. Once he was alone he started thinking about maybe an ancient tribe lived there. That tribe was more powerful than the humans in the demon tribe together, so that's why he asked to himself if those were the ones who created the world, but he also was asking to himself why did they disappeared. Suddenly in that moment he gets his ring out, thinking about maybe that thing was created by that ancient tribe. And lastly, he also asked to himself if the members of that tribe could travel to his world since he was teleported to his current world. Suddenly a hooded person passes by him, so he decided to follow in, creating a wall so he couldn't escape. The person reveals her identity, surprising Zhangyi because it was Penny. Zhangyi asked her if the regent sent her to keep an eye on him, and she answered yes. Zhangyi asks her how much did she saw, and with a smile, she says that she saw everything. In Shedragon app gets behind him asking him to cooperate with her, otherwise she would kill him. Penny says that she already knows that Isabella is the demon queen, surprising Zhangyi because he found himself in the worst spot possible. Zhang Yi asked what does she want from him, and Penny, lowering her rapier, asks him to help her assassinate the regent, surprising Zhang Yi because he couldn't understand since she was working for him. Zhang Yi asks her why she want to kill him, but Penny angrily says that it wasn't his business, and if he doesn't help her she would reveal to the whole kingdom who Isabella really was. Penny says that the regent is waiting for her for some information, and when that happens, she could act and take the opportunity to kill him with his help, so she would contact them later for help, and she explains that the regent is waiting for a signal to act, and when that happens the plains will explode in a war. After saying all that she goes, leaving Zhang Yi doubting about what signal was the regent waiting to act. On the other hand, Moto was escaping from a golem which ends up catching him anyway, but in that moment till he arrives helping him by making the golem collapse. Then more golems appear in front of them, and when Oli realizes that they were powerful, he uses his most powerful ability, and so he starts a fight with them. Going back to Zhang Yi, he thought that for now he could trust Penny since she gave him a lot of information, but then the dragon appeared and grabbed him with its tail. The dragon thought that saying you wanted his gem and it was going to eat him, but Zhang He didn't know about anything about any gem. In that moment Isabella arrives attacking the monster and saving Zhang Yi from dying. The dragon was very angry and starts fighting with Isabella for real. When Zhang Yi realizes that she couldn't fight half naked, he creates an armor for her and he explains that this armor has many enhancements, so the user could not be defeated so easily. Isabella says that she didn't need that thing, but she was happy on her inside since she always see him working on new interesting projects. So the fight against a dragon begins, but Isabella was in disadvantage since the armor increased her power, making it difficult to control. Then the dragon catches Isabella, saying he also starts to fight using a magic armor and injuring the dragon. Zhang Yi frees one of his spiders to follow it to its hideout, where it uses the dagger's powers to recover itself and obtains more power, making it evolve. Then they arrive and realizes that the dragon is in fact a lizard that absorbed the dagger's aura, making it evolve, and that was the reason why the lizard didn't want them to find the dagger. When they see the dagger they realize that it was identical to the one they draw, and that was the weapon. Lillian steals Isabella's power. After that the fight against a lizard starts again, which was more powerful this time. Even Isabella's sword couldn't damage it. Shanji manages to catch him with some special pincers, and Isabella notices that she has an opportunity and uses a magic ability with her sword, destroying the magic barrier the lizard created to defend itself. Zhang Yi takes this advantage to take the dagger, and as he already knew that the dagger could steal powers, he thinks that it is the gem inside the dagger, the one with the powers. Zhang Yi also realizes that the gem looks the same as the gem in their rings. The lizard begs them not to take the gems, but in that moment they decide to try the dagger on the lizard, taking its powers and getting it back to its normal form. That confirmed that the dagger could indeed steal powers. Sayang you wanted to get those powers inside Isabella, but she didn't want it because that power wasn't hers, embarrassing her. Before we continue with the video, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe so the channel can keep growing, and so you can get the next chapter. If you like these kinds of man was recaps, you can watch other man he was that I will be leaving down in the description, so you can watch after this one. Then the ceiling breaks and some golems fall which were damaged by Ellie, and like that the investigation group reunites. Zhang Yi asked why he used that ability since it hurts him, and only tells that they found some golems very powerful before in that battle. Eli was using his most powerful abilities, but the golems always counter them, but Ali was not going to give up, so he used his most powerful attack, going down several floors. On the other hand, the golems stand up again, surprising everyone because despite Lee used his most powerful attack the golems could keep fighting. So now they decide to escape since the only thing the golems wanted was the gem, and when they see the dagger they speed up to block the exit, destroying it. The other golems started to attack them on their backs, but they managed to avoid them, and then they split so that each one fights with one. Everybody start fighting the golems, throwing them powerful attacks, but didn't work because the golems managed to counter them all. Everybody gathered, and Zhang Yi says that he noticed that those golems weren't monsters but machines created by humans. Isabella says that she also noticed it, but there was something weird about them since she could feel an aura of life in them, but they didn't seem to be alive, surprising Zhang Yi with that. The golems prepared again to attack, but after thinking a lot, Zhang Yi came up with a plan to escape and ask the others to buy him some time. Zhang Yi forges some mice and then a dragon ball-like radar with which sent the mice to the golems. Isabella throws an attack to the golems to immobilize them, and the mice start to scratch them with their tails, marking them all. After that, Zhang Yi uses his brush to separate the golems since his plan was to use the golems as materials to forge so he could separate them and defeat them. Zhang Yi goes and grabs some stones that were floating in the air after separating the golems, and he realized that those stones were giving power to the golems. Zhang Yi was going to grab another stone, but the lizard from before appears, taking the stone from him to eat, and in the escape they decided to let him go because they already got what they needed, and in that moment only gets in bad shape for having used his limit. Power without resting. Zhang Yi told him not to worry since he was going to use those stones to heal him, and so he puts the stone into the dagger, healing upperly. Zhang Yi got happy because it was really easy to use it, and he compares it with the lunar stone, but that stone was different since it represented life. So when he gets back to the kingdom, he will ask Basil for a good explanation about the origin of that powerful stone. Then he asked himself if he would be able to create life if he combined those powerful stones with his brush. On the other hand, Isabella sees Zhang Yi and she was more and more convinced that indeed Zhang Yi would be the one who saved her tribe since he is always there when she needs him, saying he was uneasy just by thinking he could create life, but he decides to leave that for later and calls Isabella so they could get back to the village. In that moment we see that Isabella is starting to fall in love with Zhang Yi. The next day, Zhang Yi creates a school in the village. He did that because he promised to leave that if he came with him he would build a school and an orphanage in the village, making everyone happy because now they could live a better life. As a gratitude gesture, Elise brothers give him a bouquet of roses made of paper, and this little girl tell him to give it to Isabella. Zhang Yi took notice and gave the flowers to her, but she was not like other girls and says that they are useless, but she accepts them, saying he was sad hearing those words, and when Isabella noticed it she didn't know why he was like that by night, saying he realizes that Isabella wasn't there, so he decided to look for her and he found her looking at the stars. Isabella says that when she takes her throne back she will help him go back to his world. Zhang Yi says that he misses some things about his world, and Isabella asked him if he will miss the people from this other world when he gets back home. Zhang Yi says that he will miss his friends, but when he was about to say that he will miss her the most, Ali arrives, ruining that romantic moment. Zhang Yi angry starts yelling at him for ruining that moment, and just like that Zhang Yi's first confession falls into pieces. On the other hand, inside the ancient temple those guys were killing monsters, and one of them sees the lizard killing it and obtaining the stone. They say that they were there because of Penny's report, and the others say to their master that they already searched everywhere but they didn't find what they were looking for. One of them said that Penny could have stole it, but the master says that she wouldn't dare, and they decide to go since his ruler was waiting for them. And for good news, then we found ourselves in the kingdom where the regent's family were thinking about taking revenge for the humiliation back in the festival, but they are interrupted by a bunch of people that were welcoming them, making the regent's family get into a good mood. But it happens that they weren't there for them, but for Zhang Yi's team, because they were arriving from their investigation in the ancient temple. The regent's family members were angry, and Moto notices that they were on their way, so he gets out some robotic arms from the truck and send them flying so they could not bother them. The Union Commerce Kingdom made a bronze statue of Zhang Yi in gratitude since thanks to his help they had new ways to earn money. One of them take them to a meeting where they were going to talk about how to improve the ways to earn more benefits. So Isabella goes to not interrupt them. She starts thinking about how Zhang Yi changed a lot. Before he was a person who could just talk but do anything. She asked herself if maybe Zhang Yi was getting better just because he was sad. On the other hand, back in the meeting everybody start talking about how well their business are, but one of them wasn't as good as the others since his product wasn't selling well, so Zhang Yi gives him a new idea to advertise his products, surprising everyone since they didn't know about that technique. After a long conversation, Zhang Yi shows his new project, which will be called electric power, which if it becomes successful it may extend to other tribes, but there was a problem. There were not enough forgers to fulfill that demand. Zhang Yi shows his new invention, a machine that when connected to an electric source it starts to forge automatically without needing a forger. Some of them are happy about that since it solves the production issue, but others were worried because that invention may leave them unemployed. One of them asks Zhang Yi how that machine could forge since it doesn't have thought, since Zhang Yi says that it does it by using magic glyphs. In conclusion, they draw a magic glyph of some object, and with an alignment stone inside the machine they made it forge on its own, but the machine required an electric alignment stone, but the others didn't see that sustainable since that stone's worth more than the objects the forge can make. That one Zhang Yi presents his new invention, an electric generator. That invention can replace the alignment stones. The electric stones works for the operation of many things that they are doing, but these are limited, so they have to become independent of them if they wanted to grow as a society. And in order to achieve that, Zhang Yi and his friends look for many ways to create electricity. After a lot of searching, they managed to create a power generation station where they could keep energy in a box easy to transport with that they could use the forging machine along with other inventions, impressing everyone since with all that the production would increase in each of their independent jobs without spending a lot of money in electric alignment stones. Zhang Yi says that he has a bigger plan, which is to provide electricity to all homes inside the kingdom to finally destroy the region's family tyranny, since they are the ones raising the prices of alignment stones, saying he wants to provide energy to all houses in the kingdom so they can enjoy the benefits of having electricity, so that's why he was looking for everyone's help. But everyone stood still, and that was because Basil took Zhang Yi to his temporal line where only both of them could talk. Once they were talking, Zhangyi told him everything that happened in the ancient temple. When Basil knew that he had the redstone and the dagger, he asked him to show them to him. When showing the objects, he says to Basil that maybe he could create life if he uses the stone. Well, Basil, very upset, told him not to do that since it was forbidden, and he starts pressuring him and asking him if he didn't value life since he wanted to create new lives. Zhangyi, very scared, was thinking about why Basil was behaving like that, plus he wasn't planning on creating life, he was just curious. Basil calms down after reading his mind and realizing that indeed he was only curious, and apologizes because he used a lot of strength to get out his true intentions before he goes. Zhangyi asked why he got angry just like that and why it is forbidden to create life since Zhangyi comes from another world. He planned to tell him everything only to him, so using his magic, he takes him to an illusion where he shows the origins of that red stone which is capable of create life. In that illusion he can see the ancient temple where they recently made an investigation. That illusion was part of Basil's memories, and in that moment a bunch of human beings appear, and surrounding them there was the gods tribe that Zhangyi saw in the ancient temple's murals, and those human beings were thanking the gods for teaching them magic. Saying, he asked why were they thanking him because he heard that magic was taught by a dragon. Basil says that it was a lie, that the basis of knowledge of human beings was built by Elias. In that moment a young Basil appears, surprising Zhangyi, but Basil says that in that moment he was God's slave. The gods were scolding him for bringing weak sacrifices, but humans were begging them to accept any kind of job. With a mocking tone the gods accepted, and they took out their daggers with which they aimed towards the human beings, creating a big circle on top of them, and it starts to absorb all those human beings, even the children who were screaming out of pain. Zhangyi wanted to help them, but Basil says that even when it looked so real, that was just a part of his memories after that sphere absorbed every person. The redstone is created, scaring Zhangyi asks if the stone on his ring was also created by killing innocent people. Basil affirms that, but Zhangyi's stone was special because it has high purity, and the higher purity the redstone is, the more people died in order to create it, scaring Zhangyi even more. When the gods realized that they only managed to create a low purity redstone, they gave it to Basil, which he asked why would they give him something so valuable. The gods start laughing, saying that they have no plan in using that low purity redstone since it is trash for them, and they are planning of making another one with higher purity by killing more humans in the future. Zhangyi realizes that God saw them as livestock, and he asked Basil if humans were really created by those gods, and Basil says yes, and he also says that those gods are the same lineage as Isabella. Before we continue with the video, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe so the channel can keep growing and so you can get the next chapter. If you like these kinds of man was recaps, you can watch other man he was that I will be leaving down in the description so you can watch after this one. Those gods were so powerful that they didn't have any enemies who could face them, but they faced a problem with no solution regarding his limited resources. The redstone was the source of life in the Xiaoluo plains, and natural resources were running out as well since the gods' tribe were expanding, but the God King realized that he could create life with that stone, so he was planning to create more lives so in the future he could create more red stones. The first lives created were the dwarves, human beings and beasts, which helped the god with their conquers. After some time the first redstone depleted, so the gods started recycling lives to create new redstones. In the beginning human beings were the weakest all them all, but with time they evolved, getting knowledge and eventually becoming the strongest of all the planes. The gods liked it because they became their most valuable resource to produce red stones. That's the truth about this world, the world where the gods experiment with human beings. Basil says that he was the first human being they created, so he became a self doing the dirty job for them. Zhangyi asked him why the gods passed that knowledge to them if they would kill them at the end. Basil says that they did it so the humans could survive and the purity of their bodies would increase with time. Basil, together with the royal family lineage, were the first ones to be created, so they were known as the most loyal slaves, but Basil was immortal and the lineage family weren't, since the royal family knew how to use the power of life. The god summoned a dragon that was supposed to protect the royal family. Now that Zhangyi knows all that he can relate with the death of Gyro, the East tribe killing by the regent, and so much more, this lead him to the illusion that the ritual of creating redstones continues and Basil is still helping those gods. Basil says that one part of that is true, but there are so many things that he couldn't tell him, so he asked him to keep watching his memories. The God King suggests the other gods to hibernate since the redstones were about to run out before the God King also hibernate, gives Basil instructions to take care of his livestock and to provide redstones while they rested until someday they wake up. And his reward, the God King made a redstone, and once inside Basil, it made him immortal. Lastly, the God King says that if one day the humans start to deviate from their way, he should show them the wrath of the gods. After all that, Basil closes the illusion, and Zhangyi was very scared and asked him if he helped all the regents with the mission of providing human beings to Sacrifice. Basil says no because the royal family has made their job pretty well, so well that they've never needed his help. Now he tells him about how the regions came to an agreement with Lillian and not with Isabella, and that's because Lillian offered the demons lives for the ritual of Redstone's creation during the next 5 years. That made Angus not such an authoritarian, but someone whose priority was always to protect his tribe at any cost. So Zhang asked him if he created the academy to make high-quality lives for the gods. In that moment Isabella arrives and asked why he got out from the meeting, and Zhang says that he was talking to Basil, but he wasn't there, making him look like a fool when he was going. Zhang he wasn't planning on telling everything to Isabella. On the other hand, inside the royal palace, the king had received a letter from the dwarves asking for reinforcements since the dwarves and the demons were about to start a war. Sophists say that he will send reinforcements since human beings and dwarves have always been good to each other, but before making a decision he asked Angus, and he says that it is not recommended to send reinforcements because humans and demons are at peace since Lillian fulfilled her part of the deal when they signed the peace treaty. It means that Lillian is indeed sending demon life forms for the Redstone's creation. The other important lords from the kingdom agreed with the region since they wouldn't get anything by getting involved in that war. The only thing they would get would be troubles with the demon tribe. The king, noticing that everyone greedy, decided not to send reinforcements to the dwarves' tribe. Later in the forge class, Martin was angry and wanted to help the dwarfs. Sophists tell him not to do that, otherwise he would be disobeying the king's orders, but Martin wanted to go even if he died because the dwarves always helped him with his investigations, saying he decides to go with Martin and Isabella as well. And before anyone told her anything, she already had all set up to go. Zhang tells her to stop being so proactive since they would discover her identity. Isabella says that she wanted to see what Lillian had planned since the demon tribe never had issues with the dwarf's tribe. Martin tells Sanji that he doesn't need them to go with him since he didn't want them to get into trouble, but Zany says that he is going to protect him because their friendship is not less thing than he had with the dwarves. Martin was so happy and accepts Zhang's company, but Sophists intervenes saying that they should not disobey the king's orders, that if they do he would punish them himself. Later that day, Zhang wanted to get out from the kingdom, but he came across with some white dragon knights at the exit, so he asked them how could they get out. Isabella tells him that Offices treats him like a brother because he thinks that Zhang Yi is his lost brother, so he wouldn't let him go to dangerous places. While they were passing by, they saw Rims, who was being beaten by the regent's family, which were taking revenge because Ren's always used to intimidate them with his powers. Busey was about to cut off one of his hands, but Zhang intervenes, protecting him because he asked why he did that to if he tried to kill him before, saying he says that he can't stand seeing how they abuse the weak, and they decide to go because Aces was about to arrive. Zhang asks Renz if he is okay, but Renz told him not to bother him, that just like the others he just wanted to humiliate him. Zhang wasn't expecting a thank you. In that moment Aces arrives and scolds him for letting Zhang help him, and that he should thank Zhang for not killing him since he was the one who proposed the battle to death of Sad Rince. Thanks Zany for not killing him in the festival, and then he just ran since he had anything else to say. On the other hand, Aces apologizes with Shanji for always underestimate him and for what he did for Rents, but now he would have to overcome his obstacles by himself. Changing subjects, Aces was very angry with Sanmi because he used to sell dolls about her, but she let it go since she realized that he was a good kid. By night, this group gathered to the go and helps the dwarves tribe. They also invited Nanai because his was strong. Sophists arrived, but he wasn't going to arrest them. On the contrary, he brought reinforcements to help the dwarves. Zhang asked him why he was helping them instead of arresting them. Sophist said that before he was worried about the situation, so he went to speak to the king alone. The king allowed to secretly send help to the dwarves tribes, so he arranged some things with other masters to protect the king while he was away. On the other hand, Dorona gives Isabella a suppression seal, so when she loses control of her limit powers, the seal could help her control it. After that, everyone that was going to the dwarves tribe arrives, and after some talking Zhang forges a helicopter to go to their destiny. Before they go, Zhang gives Aces a letter, so she delivers it to someone and says that he will find a way to cure Rents. When they were leaving, Dorona notices that Penny was behind the helicopter following Shang Yi and his group. Inside the helicopter, they introduce the head of servants, Selena, who is also going with them. Sophists say that she is also going because her magic is useful since she can change the size of things, making their investigation easier. Zanji prepares everything, loading a map into the helicopter so it can be autopiloted and he could rest. On the other hand, near the dwarf's kingdom, Prince Marvin along with other dwarves were escaping from the demons and they were about to catch them. So Marvin was going to buy his friends sometime so they could escape. The others were very sad, leaving him to go and find reinforcement and help him. On the other hand, the others were talking in the helicopter about how to face the demons, but they were attacked by some flying stingrays. The demons were about to attack them once more, but saying he attacks them with the Hell's weapons, which were damaging the stingrays. Even protected by magic, the demons decided to go surprising everyone that helicopter was really powerful and saying he was happy about that, but sophists tell everyone to prepare themselves since a huge wave of demons were approaching. They took out the helicopter's weapons. So they couldn't use them anymore. The damage was done by the King Stingray, who was also using a pillar of the demon. Army called Papate Sophises gets out from the helicopter to talk to Papate. He asked him not to attack them since the demon tribe and humans are ally and they had a peace treaty. Papate says that he would not attack them, but Lillian had ordered them to defeat the dwarves tribe in 3 days so the human tribe could trade with the demons. Tate told his men to escort them back to their kingdom, but Sophisis says that it won't happen since they were ordered to go to the dwarves tribe to talk about commerce when Pape realizes that Sophisis was going to be in the middle of his mission. He planned to start a battle with him, Sophisis, except since they had no other option, so a fight between these two starts. A fight where the helicopter were being damaged, so Zhang Yi decides to retire back in the fight. Sophises were making real damage to Papate, who was very impressed about Sophis's powers. On the other hand, the other demons start to attack the helicopter, leaving it in a very critical condition. So Zhang Yi decides to land to avoid an accident. Sophises was worried about Zhang Yi, so he decides to finish off Pape quickly with the powerful attack to go and help them. Pappy was trying hold the attack, but it didn't work since it landed on his body, receiving a lot of damage. After that, Sophisis decides to go and help Zhang Yi, who in a blink of an eye was beating almost every demon on his way. Sophisis orders him to step aside, but Papate destroys their helicopter. Sophisis was very angry and started attacking him. He was worried about his friends, but they managed to save themselves thanks to their abilities. Zhang Yi, on the other hand, only had one low-quality alignment stone, so he couldn't do anything, and he had a stingray above him. The stingray gets one of its tentacles out, worrying Zhang Yi, who thinks that he is about to get killed, but he was saved above that stingray. There was Isabella, who had no other option but to kill it in that moment. The stingrays gets out of control since they had no demon to control them. Wharton wanted to help them, but they were assaulted from behind by other demons, making it difficult to get to them, but Penny appears, saving them by killing the demons that surrounded them. She told them to land because it was going to be very difficult to fight against those demons in the air, so with no other choice they decide to land on the other hand. Zhang Yi and Isabella manages to save themselves. Isabella noticed that something wrong was happening, saying he sees a monster crushed, and he asked himself if maybe it was crushed by the dwarf's kingdom, since Martin told him that the dwarves' kingdom was a moving city that were moving to the southwest because of the season. While they were walking, someone attacked them out of nothing. These were little demons which were shooting missiles and then hide in the sand to reload their weapons. Zhang Yi discovers their pattern and plans to use his low-quality stone to attack them, so he asked Isabella to distract them. Meanwhile, the demons realizes that Zhang used the weakest, so they decide to attack him first, but Zhang Yi finishes his plan. He created some trampoline with which they managed to put them all together, and Isabella defeats them, saying you was happy about that, but Isabella told him not to be since some pillar demons could arrive. She tells him that there are 12 pillars which are more powerful than Ren's, and given his current condition, it would be very difficult to kill just one. While they were talking, the ground starts trembling in Billion. The third rank of the pillars appears. Isabella gets her when trying to escape. Valiant, since Balian was a fool demon, he was wondering why he was there, and when seeing below his feet his dead friends were there, so he blamed Zhang Yi and Isabella. For that, Zhang Yi was angry and told him that he was the one who killed his own friends, so Balian got sad and started to cry, saying you wanted to take advantage of that moment to escape, but Balian was already mad and wanted to kill them, since if it wasn't for them, Balian would have never killed his friends. In that moment, Balian starts to attack them. Isabella receives the attack, and since she had an injured arm, she decided to use her demon queen aura, but it neutralizes out of nothing Valium, taking advantage of her being distracted. Balian punches her, sending her flying, but Zhang Yi saves her using his brush and starts taunting Balian to see if he fights him, but he ignores him since he was weak, so he goes straight for Isabella, but Zhang Yi forges a sand ramp so she could go flying while she was running. Isabella was impressed about how Zhang Yi could forge that ramp being far away. When close to her, Zhang Yi asked Isabella if she was okay, but as Isabella argues with him because he didn't escape since Balian wasn't even using all of his power in that moment. Balian gets behind her quickly. She was expecting that, so she takes her sword out to counterattack, but Balian can feel that she might cut his arm off, so he stops, creating a wind wave which sends our protagonists flying. As Isabella was injured bad, she asked Zhang Yi to escape, but he tells her to leave it all in his hands. Isabella says that he could not do anything since he only has an ordinary brush, but Zhang Yi says that it would be enough. On the other hand, Balian was very angry and starts attacking Zhang Yi at a high speed. Zhang Yi forges several walls to protect himself, making Balian even angrier since he was just using tricks. When Balian reaches him at last, it was just a rock statue, since saying he was escaping with a rock, making it move with The sand when Balian saw that he started attacking them again, but Zangi avoided every attack. Balian was angry and was telling him to fight like a man while destroying every of Zhangyi's barriers, and Zhangyi told him that he shouldn't be one of the pillars because he was too slow. Balian was really angry and he was going to kill him, but once Zhangyi had him facing him activated the sand trap he forged as Balian's body were too heavy, he starts to be swallowed by the sand and Zhangyi takes advantage of that moment to escape, but in that moment Zhangyi starts to sink into the sand. Because Balian was spinning very fast to suck him and Zhangyi wanted to escape, but the sand was moving too fast. Zany creates a trampoline to escape, and since he had no other choice, he forges the sand changing its properties. Surprising Balian because he didn't expect that. In that part they doesn't explain to us how did he do that, they only let us know that Eliuo sold him a high-class superior forged stone. Once Balian escaped he attacked Zhangyi again, but as nothing was working he creates a new barrier making Balian to crash with it since he couldn't see it. What he created was a tempered glass that didn't break with the attacks, saying he starts to make fun of him again. Balian was very angry and start to throw a series of punches with which manages to break the tempered glass, but Zhangyi had already created several tempered glasses. Zhangyi makes fun of him once more. Balian could not handle that anymore, so he uses his true power breaking the glass quickly with a header, then he steps back to use an ability called Ray Fang, with which he destroys the tempered glasses and reaching Zhangyi who is expecting him, and quickly he creates the Prince Rupert's drop which is a very hard material. Balian ended up injured after crashing with it, and Isabella uses her great velocity to cut his head off once he couldn't move anymore, and before he died he realized that Isabella was the demon queen. Isabella couldn't keep up anymore, she was pretty injured, and she was asking to herself why she couldn't use her limit power before, but Zhangyi decides to look for a safer place to heal her. He found a cave, and once he was taking care of her, he worries because he didn't have anything to heal her wounds. Also his alignment stone was about to get dry, and in that moment the foreign queen told him to remove her suppression seal that was in Isabella's sword that Dorona gave to her, and it was because of that Isabella couldn't use her limit power after knowing that Zhangyi breaks the suppression seal with Isabella's sword. In that moment Isabella wakes up behind him making Zhangyi happy, but out of nothing she grabs him by his neck. Zhangyi worried asked her if she didn't remember him. Isabella, remembering the kiss with a smile, stops shocking him. And from now on he would have to obey to everything she says. Zhangyi realizes that now Isabella had the demon queen personality. He was happy about it since she would be able to recover from her wounds by herself, saying he decides to obey her and then he would look for a way to wake up the real Isabella. She demands to him to forge a bathtub. He says that his brush didn't have enough energy, but Isabella tells not to disobey, and with a bit of fear and very fast he forges a bath for her, saying he was about to leave, but she demands him to stay and to warm the water for her while she takes a bath, and he only wanted to watch her while doing it. She congratulates him for his work and she orders him to get up, surprising him, but he didn't disobey and he got up looking away, but in that moment Isabella put her feet into Zhangyi's shoulders making him nervous, so she asked him if there was a problem. Zhangyi says no, and then she takes her feet off him calming him down, but then Isabella turned her body and ordered him to give her a massage, saying he didn't know how to behave while he was getting close to her. She told him to hurry up and warns him if he looks more that she would take his eyes off. He massages her with fear and looking away while Isabella was enjoying all that. The next day he forges a tricycle, but he was suffering to move it since he had a weak body. Then they hear strong sound in front of them, and it was Prince Marvin who was still running away from demons. A lot of demons attacks him in that moment, but Marvin forges a hand from where a disc came from and killed all demons following him. He couldn't go on anymore because he used a lot of mental power by forging things, but he decides to go on since he had an important message to deliver to his father. But behind him other demons appeared and started to attack him again. Marvin forges a cannon with which defeats a lot of them, but he was over his limits. Now he was starting to lose consciousness. In that moment some black feathers start to fall from the sky. Marvin was scared because he knew what that meant. He receives the attack by not having enough strength to avoid it. The first ranked pillar called Darkula was the one responsible of this. From far away Zhang Yu wanted to help Marvin since he had a lunar stone on his hammer. He asked Isabella a favor to save him because if they could save him, they could get that lunar stone and find their group of friends, but Isabella didn't want to because she hadn't recovered all of her power, and also Darkula was the former demon king, and her father's disciple Zhangyi begs her to go and get that lunar stone, but Isabella says that if he wanted that stone so much that he should go alone. Darkula was getting close to Marvin and he was going to kill him, but Zhangyi creates a sand screen to save Marvin and also to gather all his things and then escape from that place. But in that moment his brush energy runs out. Zhangyi gets scared, and after a moment Dark Hilo stands on top of him and starts attacking him with his scythe, destroying half of the wood, but Zhang manages to survive because Isabella managed to parry the attack, and back with Sang Yi, he asked her to destroy the hammer to use the lunar stone. Isabella notices that Zhang Yi was hurt, so she got mad, starting a fight with Darkulo. The others noticed that Zhang Yi was alone and wanted to kill him, but Isabella hears that and furious she lands an attack towards them, defeating them all, and after that she decides to end and that fight quick to avoid Zhang Yi to be harmed. Darkulo uses his special technique to protect himself from Isabella, and once the attacks collided, killed most of the demons. Zhang Yi was also in danger, but Isabella manages to save him, and when Darkulo sees High Scythe, he noticed that it was being damaged because of the fight against Isabella. Darkulo already knew that she was the demon queen, and he says that she has improved since the last time he saw her using her powers. Isabella tells him that she is surprised to see that he follows Lillian now, and the other demons now that knew that she was the demon queen didn't know who to serve. The demon captain says that Lillian is their queen now, and demons only follows the stronger ones, and Isabella now was considered a traitor. Then he says that Lillian would grant them any wish to whoever captured Isabella alive. Once they heard that, they prepare to capture her, and Isabella asked Zhang Yi to hold tight on her since Darkulo was about to use a very powerful ability. Once Darkulo is using it, everything goes dark, but instead of attacking Isabella, he killed all the other demons who wanted to capture her. He left none of them alive before Dark Killer believes he tells Isabella that he would be waiting for her in the demon tribe, surprising Isabella, wondering if Darkulo was her enemy or ally. Then Zhang gets the lunar stone. He was happy since with that they would be able to reunite with their group faster. Isabella then covers her horns to keep her identity hidden. Then we found ourselves in a war between the demon army against the dwarves' kingdom. The dwarves were losing that war because all of their weapons were being destroyed, and also the demons had a rank 4 pillar called Chirons who takes out of his body an egg, which once it explodes, it creates a cloud of flies that exploded once they got close to the kingdom. One of the dwarves noticed it and asked to change the castle route, but they answer that they cannot do that since something was keeping the kingdom to change routes, and it was about some slimes that were covering the wheels. The guilty of all that was the 9th ranked pillar called Sumix, who was in company of the 6th ranked pillar called Sukuo. When these 3 pillars are together, the demon strength increases, and those demons were already entering the kingdom, killing everyone who stood before him. One of the dwarves goes to inform the demons are now going through their defenses, panicking everyone, but the dwarves' king Khan orders them to calm down. His son Roland realized that his father was about to activate something powerful and told him that his body wouldn't resist that, but he wants to do it to save his kingdom with his scepter. He activates the kingdom force, which allows him to control his moving kingdom. And with that he killed all the demons that were entering. Then he get out some giant arms with which he starts to kill the other demons. When the dwarves noticed that his king was fighting, they started to work harder. Once the pillars realized that Khan was the one controlling the kingdom, they decide to join into the war since Khan was getting weak and he didn't have a body capable to do it. He could only use 30 of the kingdom's power. In that moment he starts to worry because he couldn't control his robotic arm because Suo was controlling it, and with the help of the other pillars they managed to destroy the arm, but the dwarves had created a spare one. Khan uses more power to protect his kingdom even if he dies, so he starts killing the vast majority of demons. Khan's body was getting weaker, and the other dwarves wanted to help him, but they couldn't since the lunar stone can only be used by her princes. There were 3 lunar stones within the kingdom. One was used to move it, the other one Marvin had it, but he wasn't there, and the other one in Conceptor. Since Khan couldn't do it alone, they needed another one who could forge with him. Roland was sad not being able to help his father since he had no talent to forge. Khan was starting to bleed, but he didn't want to give up and kept fighting. Sumik starts attacking the kingdom, leaving Khan really injured. When the demons realized that Khan couldn't keep fighting, they all decided to attack at the same time, but suddenly a healing magic starts to heal all the dwarves, and one demon informs that reinforcements had arrived, and behind them some missiles start to fall, killing a lot of demons. The dwarves were wondering if Marvin had arrived, but it wasn't him, it was Zangi's team lead by Martin. Khan recognizes Martin and gives the order to not attack them by accident. Wharton gets into the kingdom to help Khan while the others are fighting demons, where Cielo starts to attack first, but Penny destroys Cecito's threads very easy, and she starts to make fun of the pillars. The pillars were very surprised since they didn't expect the human kingdom to help the dwarfs. They wanted to kill them, but they were wondering if that would affect the relationship between the human tribe and the demon tribe. Suicide says that they better kill them because they intervened in the war, but in that moment a person gets above them and throws Papade's head in front of the pillars. This person was Sophosis, which says that if any of them would dare to put a finger on his friends they would pay. Chirons was happy about his brother's death since now he could rank up. The other demons were feeling confident and they were about to fight that group of people since they now had an army, and the pillars were also with them. Sophists Uses an ability and Alina with her magic increases the size of that ability, making it defeat a lot of demons giants. Manages to protect himself just by a hair, but his shield was about to break that scared the other pillars because now they had to fight carefully against surfaces. Gyrons gets mad and uses his maximum power to kill sophists, but in that moment the corpse pillar ordered them to retire. Gyrons wanted to fight against the humans, but the corpse pillar says not to disobey orders, and with no other option all the demons start to flee. Lena was happy about it since she could only use her magnification power once a day. With the help of Martin they were repairing the kingdom. Khan was very tired and thanks Martin for his help, but he says that he haven't done anything yet because when using kingdom forges he gets tired very quick. Then Martin congratulates him because he was fighting like that for months, but Khan says that he was fighting with Marvin because he was the one who could take advantage of the kingdom's full power. When Martin remembers Marvin he asked where he was, but Roland says that he was killed by the demon tribe. He explains that they didn't fear the demon tribe before, but Khan couldn't stand seeing his people die, so he accepted a peace treaty with the demon tribe. But when they were talking about putting an end to the war the demons attacked Marvin in the middle of the conversation and nobody from his group had arrived yet. When Martin hears that he says that he will help the dwarves and sophists asks Khan if any other human arrived to the kingdom before they did. Khan says no, since they were the only ones from the human tribe. After that he starts bleeding worrying everyone, and Fiona wanted to examine him to see if she could help him. Roland told her not to touch his father, but Martin convinced him they would treat his father the next day. That night when Roland was alone he went to speak to the corpse pillar, and we find out that it was him who sent Marvin out of the kingdom. He also drained Khan's power to destroy the kingdom, and the pillar told him to be patient since very soon he would be the dwarf's king. Roland was very angry since he always said that, so he asked for an exact date, and this pillar said that in a few days he would send troops to finish off the kingdom for real. That said they leave thou in the demons Queen Castle. The corpse pillar Raymond was thinking about absorbing many corpses when the war starts again. That would make him really strong, so much that even Darkula would be on his side, even though Lillian would be pissed for what he was going to do. He wasn't stopping. The next day when Fiona finished diagnosing Khan she says that it was very weird since his body wasn't injured. Roland asked if that could be because he forged too much, but it wasn't that since Martin also forged a lot, but he wasn't as bad as Khan. When Fiona gathers everything she knows she mentions that Khan might be poisoned, surprising Roland because the venom he used was almost impossible to detect. Fiona says that even medicine won't work since that venom was unknown and the only way to save him was to find Shang Yi. In that moment some dwarves say that Roland was the best pharmacologist in the kingdom, but as he didn't want to save him he says that his knowledge isn't enough. The others say that he should try at least, but pretending to be said he kneels before Khan and the others left him alone so Roland could clear his mind and be happy because everything was going according to his plan. On the other hand Zhang Yi and Isabella arrives to the place the dwarves had fought against the demons. Zhang Yi was surprised because there were no bodies despite the blood, and Isabella says that Raymond the corpse pillar might have absorbed those bodies. He could also use them as puppets, an ability useful in long battles. Zhang Yi asks if she could beat him even if he absorbs a lot of corpses, and Isabella says that the last demon gave her that ability and since she has a demon queen limit power she could crush him. Zhang Yi asks if he had a weak point, but Isabella didn't have that information. Once they were going back to the ship, Isabella wonders why did she talk that much then. Marvin wakes up and asks them if they were the ones who saved them, and Zhang Yi said yes, but they decided to talk inside the ship. On the other hand in the dwarves' kingdom some dwarves were worried about Khan. Sophists decides to go and look for Zhang Yi since that's what's most important for him. In that moment one dwarf arrives and informs that the demons were gathering to attack again, and this time a ship unidentified was approaching towards the kingdom and everybody was getting ready for the fight. Some of them wanted to name Roland their new king so they could have a leader who could guide them. Roland says that he doesn't have his brother's or father's ability to forge, but Martin handed over the scepter to him and told him that he was going to help. When Roland was sitting down in the throne he remembers when he was a child and everyone praised him for being smart creating medicines, but he wondered why he didn't have talent to forge like his brother, and he thought that when he grow up he would only be useful to serve others. He didn't want to be a pharmacologist anymore. Then we can see that the dwarves that were with Marvin actually they had arrived to the kingdom, but Roland had killed them and made their bodies disappear with acid. He had always pretended to be a good person, but now alas he could become king, and as his first order he ordered all the dwarves to surrender before the demons. Everyone is surprised about that and asks him why is he giving that order, and Roland says that the demons will leave them alone as long as they give 100 lives monthly. Now everybody sees Roland true face. Roland knew that they weren't sent by the human tribe and he ordered to capture them. Everyone was wondering what should they do, but in that moment in destroying part of the castle's Yang he arrives with Isabella and Marvin. When Sophist sees Yang, he quickly asked if he was okay. Isabella was a bit jealous for that. Roland, on the other hand, when he sees his brother, he says that he would tell everything to him once he fully recovered. When Bart sees Roland, he punches him hard, sending him flying. Since he already knew that he had been plotting with the demons to destroy their own kingdom to avoid being discovered, Roland told him that he was wrong, but Bart says that he already confirmed that since the demons themselves told him Roland wanted to save himself, and says that the demons brainwashed him, making all the ministers doubt about Bart's words. Then he says that the humans were working with the demons to destroy their kingdom. Most of the ministers agreed with Roland, but Bart's was trying to tell them that they were wrong, and Sophists couldn't hold that situation and was about to start a fight with those dwarves, but Zhang Yi asked him to leave it in his hands, and when getting close to Roland he gives a lot of motives while they were helping them. Zhang Yi asked him to take him to Khan to answer all of their questions, and he says that just for having Conceptor that doesn't make him the king, since his brother Bart's had arrived to the kingdom that caused the ministers to wonder which prince they should support to make him shut. Roland accepts to taking him to his father and warns him that if he can't save him, all the human beings inside the kingdom should return to their kingdom to save Khan. Zhang Yi takes a potion out. In that moment we can see a memory from Zhang Yi taking his earnings to his teacher Ham Lion. He gave it that so she could stop working with Angus and start working for him, and he mentions all the benefits she could get. Palm Lion was hesitant, but he gives her a potion as a sign of sincerity, since it was a universal potion that could cure any poison. Zhang Yi remembers that and gave it to Khan, who after drinking it, he starts to dumping out a substance. When Roland sees that, he ordered all humans to be expelled from the kingdom, but Khan wakes up ordering not to do that, but Zhang Yi asked him to rest. Then one of the dwarves says that the purple substance is just like the Roland's medicine, and with that Bart's confirms that Roland poisoned his own father. When Khan saw them fighting, he asked them to stop since they are brothers, but Bart's tells him everything that Roland did just to become king, but Roland says that he never wanted to kill his father because it was too bothersome. Then Roland with his strength breaks free from Bart's, surprising him since the Roland he knew didn't have that strength. Roland says that now he is the king and he would bring prosperity to the kingdom, but Bart's refuses since that prosperity will only last if they sacrifice dwarves lives. Once Khan hears all that, he ordered Roland to give back his scepter, but Roland didn't want to since as long as he couldn't force, he could never be the king of the dwarves. He tells everyone that he pushed himself a lot to be able to forge, but everything was in vain since he hadn't that talent, which angered him since the only important thing within the dwarf's kingdom is forging, and even though he was good in other areas it would never compensate that defect. In that moment we see a Roland's memory where everybody was congratulating him for being good in other area, but they always told him that he should help Bart's in the future, making him angry because everybody saw him as Bart's shadow. Roland shouts saying that the throne must be for him, but Bart says that it is impossible because a king must be a forger to be able to move the kingdom and fight just like Khan did before, knowing that he was going to say that Roland activates the scepter, surprising everyone because everyone thought that he could forge. Bart's told him to stop since he would not be able to hold the mental energy the lunar stone consumes, but Roland says that he has made an effort that goes beyond his imagination to be able to forge, and in that moment he activates the kingdom forge and escaping the room. In that moment a guy stands up before them releasing a venom that covers the whole room. Moto managed to suck up all the venom with his Zhang Yi's invention, but Roland forges weapons inside the room and started to attack them. Martin stopped the attack by also activating the kingdom forge, but he couldn't stop it for long because Roland's mental power, he was growing stronger. Martin is thrown directly to the weapons, but Zhang Yi saved him by activating the forging field, surprising Roland since with that he damaged his metal power. Martin was also surprised and asked him how could he use the forging field, but Zhang Yi didn't know what he was talking about. Khan was also surprised, and Zhang Yi asked them what the forging field was, but Sophists told them to explain that later since they have to get out of there first, saying she told him that he should address her as queen, worrying Zhang Yi, who told her that she should leave that stuff for when they were alone, but Isabella ordered him to do it, surprising everyone since their relationship was getting deeper. Once outside, Roland was bleeding because Zhang Yi's mental power was crashing against his. He also couldn't forge. Once outside the room it was like an autonomous field. Zhang Yi starts to forge again, and this causes another impact in Roland's mental power, making him get angrier, so he decided to use the mental power of 400 people. He could do that because he took in forbidden drug to increase his mental power. Then Zhang Yi told him that he was just an amateur forger, making Roland go mad and attacking with robotic pieces, saying you could stop the attack by making those robotic things stop working, but he starts to feel bad. Roland gets happy because he might have used all his mental power, reaching his limit, but Zhang Yi was only felt bad because of his back since he massaged Isabella a lot. Roland was surprised and asked him if he took the forbidden drug just like him, but Zhang Yi says no, since he has a lot of talent to forge to prove it. He created a giant robot arm with which he attacks him and says that forging goes beyond creativity and knowledge. Roland, dodging his attack, says that it doesn't surprise him, and since now he saw him as a good forger, he would show him the results from a secret investigation that took him several years. In that moment he raises his power to 600 and he forges a steam giant, surprising Zany for its nice shape. Roland starts attacking him by shooting a projectile which destroys a part of the castle, making him think that Zhangji was dead, but then from inside the castle a giant robot starts to appear. When Martin sees that fight he wonders if they should leave me fighting alone, but Isabella says that if Zhangji can't defeat a simple dwarf then he could not serve as her servant. Roland gets angry because he thinks that Zhangji is just copying his steam giant. Roland was getting close to cut off his weapons, but Zhangji stops him with a strong magnetic coil with that he manages to immobilize it and saying he told him to give up obediently so he could go to his father and admit his mistakes before him. Roland yells to him saying that he shouldn't underestimate him, throwing a new attack so powerful that even Zhangji's robotic system warns him, saying that it was a dangerous attack, but he manages to stop him by using the useless wood shield. Zhangji stops moving for a while because he was figuring out a plan to end the battle fast to prevent the other dwarves to get hurt. Roland realizes that Zhangji wasn't moving and thought that his attack damaged him bad, so he plans to strike him again, but Zhangji throws him a rocket arm with which he takes him out of the kingdom so now he could fight outside. Roland was so angry he tries to get free from that rocket arm, but in that moment another rocket arm comes flying, sending him to the ground. That surprised everyone. Forging was amazing. But the most surprised one is Sophus's, because if there are more robots like that one they could match Angus's power. On the other hand, Roland was very injured after that strike and he was asking to himself if maybe he should escape since his secret weapon was about to be destroyed, but in that moment Zhangji arrives and he gives him one last chance to surrender, but Roland starts to attack again. This time he uses a special meat, a very strong one from the corpses. But Zhangji was very angry about that and he cuts that meat easily but regenerates and gets tangled into his robot. Roland said that that meat was going to regenerate forever until it kills him. Then he starts to attack Zhangji by shooting some projectiles, but that didn't affect Zhang Yi, who now uses a laser that destroys Roland's steam giant. Then he breaks free from the regenerating meat by releasing a great amount of heat to burn it. He also was worried because he thought that he might kill the prince, but Roland was alive and he was going to take him to the kingdom to get arrested, but Roland told him that it wasn't over yet because the demon tribe are going to kill them all, and after saying that a thing comes out from the arm which envelopes Roland in until making him disappear, surprising Zhangji because he could escape with that. Once back in the kingdom, everybody was surprised about Zhangji's robot, and Sophus on the other hand praises him, making Isabella jealous again. Then Khan arrives thanking him for everything he did for the kingdom and asked him if he captured Roland, but Zhangji told him that he couldn't since he escaped using a magic related to the corpse pillar that made Khan sad, but Martin cheers him up and they decided to talk about how to deal with the demons. Khan told everyone that they should not be afraid of the demons anymore because with Sang Yi, Martin and Bartz they could use the kingdom's true powers, but Isabella intervenes, saying that they are idiots since they doesn't even knows the position they are in, scaring Zany, who changes the subject to keep her identity hidden. They start to talk about they must finish with this war fast because the more corpses the more the corpse pillar grows stronger. Sophists agreed since he fought with that pillar before and he didn't die even when cutting off his head. Zhangji says that there are more enemies since all the corpses that weren't absorbed are now zombies, so he suggests the kingdom should raise its firepower to destroy them all. Moto says that it would be difficult since they are facing more than 100,000 enemies, but Zhangji takes out a blueprint of some weapons that would be very useful. On the other hand, the demons were preparing for war and the corpse pillar Raymond shouts that the day has come, the day they would conquer the dwarves' kingdom. The three pillars were wondering where Balian was, but Raymond says that he was killed just like Pepe. The pillars are surprised to know about Balian. Death Creons decides that he would be cautious when fighting to not end up getting killed, but Sumix was happy because he knew that he was going to rank up. Raymond asks his soldiers if they wanted to be stronger and all of them shout yes. Raymond told them that he would fulfill their wishes, so he activates an ability called Corpse's Call, and with that ability, corporation starts to appear from the ground and they start to attack the demons. When bitten pal the demons turned into zombies. Chirons and Sumix complained since he also turned their soldiers into zombies. Raymond says that they must accept his decision since Lillian allowed him to make some decisions and if they didn't agree they could just go and fight themselves. Cheyennes, knowing that he can't win, decides to listen, and then Raymond revives both pillars. They're killed, making Chirons angry because he absorbed them. Going back to Zhang Yi, he proposed a plan which was going to a big mountain to hide the kingdom, so they should only be worried about the front. Once they arrived the mountain they got amazed because it was huge, but Bartz was Worried because that plan was dangerous, Khan told him to trust in his friends from the human kingdom, and in that moment Shangyi asked him to call all of his forgers in the kingdom since they wanted to make a big-scale forge to defend the mountain. On the other hand, the pillars were looking for the kingdom everywhere so they could have their war, but Chiron say that he looked everywhere but haven't found them. Raymond asked him to keep looking since his zombie army never gets tired. Chironese asks if anybody have seen Roland, but in that moment he appears behind them since that thing that saved him was Raymond's, which makes fun of him because he had to escape from some humans. Roland yells that if it wasn't for him, they wouldn't achieve anything, but Raymond releasing his limit power puts an enormous pressure on him. Raymond told him not to be so arrogant since he's not a prince anymore, so Roland apologizes since he couldn't hold that pressure anymore. Once on the floor, Roland realizes that since he is not a prince anymore he is being treated as garbage, so he decides that he will take revenge. In the future, Raymond says that he has not forgotten his deal about making him the dwarf's king, but he had to be obedient, and seeing the lunar stone he asked him if he could still use it. Roland says that he ran out of his metal reserves and asks him for Zami's brains so he could recover that energy with the forbidden drug. Raymond accepts since he wants to absorb Roland in the future so he could use the forge. On the other hand, Shangyi was showing Isabella how the demon's army was, so she gets mad with Raymond because he turned the dead into zombies, saying he told her to calm down because she could release her demon queen limit power. After noticing how fast they were going, they were supposed to find the dwarves' kingdom in about 2 hours. Then Martin arrives, who congratulates Yangi for everything he has done so far, and he tell him that they wouldn't be able to help him with the blueprints he gave them because they don't understand the final product, but Zhangyi told him not to worry since he has a lunar stone. Martin told him to be careful because that stone absorbs a lot of mental power, and one example of that was Moto, who forged a mini robot with the lunar stone, and he almost passes out, saying he tells him that he has never felt tired when forging, making Martin remember that Zhangyi has used the lunar stone before, but he has never seen him being tired. He says that he should hold back a bit when using the stone because he might end up being bald just like Martin. Isabella imagines bald and she gets a bit disgusted, but then Bart's arrives asking Shanji that he couldn't understand one thing. Then we see the kingdom hidden inside the mountain, and Bart's ask if they just are going to defend themselves because now the kingdom was like a trapped beast that couldn't use its powers, saying he asked him to calm down. If an emergency presence, he had shield machines which would evacuate the kingdom very fast. Then he mentions that he trusts him because when he has to defend he gets the most out of the forge. On the other hand, the demons were heading to the mountains to find the kingdom. They were wondering why they would hide in a place where they couldn't escape, so they start to theorize about their plan. Raymond and creates a zombie and send it to investigate the mountain, but it gets destroyed by a minigun, and besides them there were more. The dwarves, using a special stone, they create a hologram where Khan tell the demons to retire, otherwise they would have to take the path of war. The pillars start to laugh, and Raymond mentioned that if they give sacrifices and honor Lillian they would have his word that nobody would be harmed, but he tells officers that he is a dab knight since Angus never sent reinforcements to the dwarves, but Sophist says that he only cares about the human kingdom and not what Angus thinks. Khan doesn't accept that deal since they had to sacrifice his people, and he finalizes saying that his people was ready to start the war. Roland intervenes, saying that they should join the demons because they work with Angus, who is the true king of the humans, but Zany start to make fun of them, saying that if they want to talk they should come inside, making Raymond angry. Roland tries to convince his father to surrender, but Khan firmly says that he regrets loving him, and after all that conversation the war starts. The demon starts attacking first, and Martin uses the Kingdom Forge to activate the miniguns and protect the kingdom. These weapons defeat a lot of demons one after another, but some of them uses magic to obtain a metallic skins, and the miniguns can't damage them that much. Moto says that they could not get through those metallic zombies, but Zanji was expecting that, so he modifies the miniguns, making them more powerful, and with a single shot those weapons manages to kill many zombies, surprising Chirons, who doesn't plan to attack yet since is very dangerous. Then with those weapons a massacre starts, killing a lot of zombies. And Roland says that if they keep going like this they would never reach the dwarf's kingdom, but Raymond says that firepower fell short and the zombie Valiant stops the attack. Just with his body Balian's army starts to destroy many powerful weapons without any difficulty, surprising Zhangyi since the existence of that zombie was very problematic. Then the other zombie pillar called Ninja starts to fly to attack, but Martin attack him with every weapon to prevent its attack. Ninja dodges all the attacks using magic, surprising Chirons because despite being a zombie he could use powerful magic. Raymond told him to wait because what it comes next will surprise him even more. Then zombie Ninja starts to use high-level fire magic. Sumix is surprised because that fire does not go away until it completely burns the objective, and it was also beneficiary because that fire was a limited attack. Ninja starts to accumulate a lot of that fire magic, but in that moment receives an attack that killed him completely. That attack was a missile shot by Martin, but the pillars didn't get surprised since zombie ninja were being overconfident and Martin on the other hand was tired since he was controlling the weapons by his own Zhang. You wanted to replace him but Khan offers himself to forge since they were going to need Xiangyi's powers, and later together with Martin they start to forge. Together when they are both forging, the weapon's power gets drastically better, making most of the zombies get paralyzed. But when they were attacking zombie Balian, they could not harm him because of his powerful body. Balian starts to attack with a weapon which I do not know its name, and with just one blow zombie Balian gets cut in half. Raymond doesn't get scared, but he is surprised by the power of those weapons, just like Bart's, who is surprised by Zhang, who's for. Isabella tells them not to be so happy yet, since the pillars haven't fought yet. Then Sukiyo starts to repair the bodies, with her threats saying he sees that and is planning to destroy them all, so they could not be repaired, so he asked Martin and Khan to be ready for the next forge. Zombie Balian starts to attack them again, destroying a big part of the turrets, but in that moment they forged 3 frozen fortresses. Zombie Balian was going to destroy those fortresses, but they turned zombie Balian into ice and then destroying his body completely. Then they shoot a lot of missiles to the zombies, but Sumix managed to avoid those missiles from destroying the zombies with his sticky parts. In that moment they receive a warning saying that the first defensive line has been destroyed, and Moto asks if they should be worried about that since they destroyed one defensive line. Zhangyi says that since they already destroyed a lot of zombies it would be much more difficult for the demons to go through the second defensive line. Then they start to attack all the zombies with all of their weapons, making them seem like they already won the battle, but in that moment a giant corpse appear. It was made out of 50.00.00 corpses. This giant carries a huge rock to throw it right into the kingdom, but it's taken down quickly by Zhangyi's missiles. The other pillars realized that Raymond wasn't as powerful as they thought, so they didn't help him. Sukiyo was Raymond's lover and she asked him what he would do now. Raymond, very confident, said that he would use his true power, and he makes the giant absorb the rest of the corpses to make him get on his feet. Now the even more powerful giant throws a powerful attack to the kingdom, but Martin and Khan tries to stop it by attacking them with the frozen fortresses, but it doesn't work since the giant is absorbing more corpses, getting stronger, and he even destroys all 3 fortresses. After that Martin and Khan starts bleeding because of that power, surprising the pillars because they didn't know that the giant was so powerful inside the kingdom. Martin and Khan couldn't keep fighting because those weapons consumes a lot of energy, and Xiangyi was ready to substitute them. In that moment Moto intervenes, and he says that he now will help since he practiced a lot, but just after touching the lunar stone he could not continue. After that interruption Xiangyi starts to forge and fight with the demons. And when Isabella saw him acting like that, she said that now he deserves to be called a husband, saying he defeats the giant at the end with only weapons that I don't know its name. Sasito destroys those weapons after, since they became a problem. Chiron starts helping by destroying those weapons with his insects, since he is the insect's pillar. But luck wasn't on his side because Xiangyi had created a mobile weapon and he put it in the middle of the zombies, killing them all with its laser. Then after using a lot of energy the mobile weapon stops working. Raymond noticed it and he sends the zombies along with the pillars to attack every demon got in front of the kingdom, since there were no more defensive weapons and even more giants appear. Faili asks Xiangyi why he stopped forging, but he says that his current forger has been destroyed, so he is redesigning it. Everyone inside the kingdom was worried because the demons were getting closer, and Martin asks saying you what he was doing, but he told him to wait a minute. When Sophists realizes how close the demons were, he says that they shouldn't allow them to get any closer, but Zany told them to trust him because he has a plan. When Isabella saw being so confident she told them to stop doubting, and she was starting to accept how strong he really is. The demons are getting closer and closer to the kingdom, and once Sanji notices that he uses his instant forge, starting covering all the demons with an energy sphere, the pillars reacted fast and they could escape. Once Xiangyi had them trapped he forged a neutron bomb and then threw it directly to the demons, and once get inside the energy sphere detonates, creating a big explosion that even the dwarves inside the kingdom could see, surprising everyone for its enormous power. Sophists noticed that Xiangyi had got better since he won the festival, and Penny was happy to be in Xiangyi's side. If you don't remember, she wants to kill Angus. Xiangyi sees that Isabella wanted to fight and he wanted to stop her, but she told him not to worry because she won't reveal her identity. On the other hand, despite not being inside the sphere, the pillars got injured and Raymond appears and starts to fight since he thinks they have no more weapons, saying his team gets out of the kingdom to fight in the front. Raymond starts to absorb corpses left by the explosion. Everybody was ready to fight, even who would forge an armor, and this is how the fight where everyone supports each other starts. In the fight, Sophist sends flying Kyans with just one hit from his sword and being in the air. Chirons uses his explosive flies, creating an explosion in front of surfaces who was able to resist and then attacking him again, sending him flying again and chasing him in the air, no losing time since they wanted to deal with Chirons first. On the other hand, Sumax was throwing sticky attacks. Twilly who uses his fire to burn them, but it was useless, but then AC helps him by freezing the slime. Soily and Nane I could fight Sumax without troubles. Isabella on the other hand wants to kill Suasuo by destroying his threads first, but Penny arrives and she gets ahead of her, cutting the threads, and when these two meet again they start to incite each other. Zhangyi tries to calm them so they could work together, and then Alina arrives surprisingly to help him since offices gave her the order. Isabella gets mad because Shanji was getting popular among women, but she didn't have more time to keep talking because Susil had arrived to fight them. Susilo starts attacking with his needles ability where everybody was dodging them, but Isabella didn't want to defend, so she went straight to attack. Once in front of her she attacks with her sword, but Susilo creates a barrier to protect herself. She is surprised since the attack was going straight to her eyes. Since her eyes were her weak spot, Isabella was surprised too because Lillian shared her limit power to each one of the pillars, making them stronger. Once getting back, her group helps by attacking Suul, but those attacks didn't work because she protected herself with her threats. Isabella gets angry with them because she wanted to kill her by her own, but Alina didn't obey and threw a rock to Sukiyo, who didn't pay attention to that attack, but Alina uses her magic, increasing the size of that rock and making it land onto the pillar. In the other fight, Ali's team was frustrated because Sumax was just flying around. Beautily jumps using a fire kick to take him down, but it didn't work because his foot stuck into Sumax's body. Once Sumax had him in front, he tries to punch him, but AC managed to freeze his belly. Soli could escape, then Neen throws him flour. Soli with his fire could create an explosion, but it didn't work since fire doesn't affect his body. The Sumax uses his slime ability to attack the whole team. Everybody managed to protect themselves using their abilities, but Sumax surprised AC on her back, capturing her. Billy wanted a fair fight, so he started calling him a coward. Sumax told him the same since they were three and he was alone. He also says they should care about themselves rather worrying about others. Oli was distracted and some slime started to stick to him, and he couldn't escape. Those slimes also had trapped Nene, and they were reaching the top of his head, not letting him breath. AC was immobilized too, and she asked him what he was going to do with them. Sumax told her that he wanted to hit them hard against that wall. Basie starts to freak out and tries to escape, but in that moment Nine Eyes attacks hit Sumax, sending him flying. AC asked him how he managed to escape the slimes. He says that he used flowers since he got a bit on his hand after using it before when he was unable to breathe. He realized that he could use his right arm with the flour to get rid of the slime. In that moment he remembered a cooking class where they use flour to dissolve sticky things, so everybody decided to use that method to finish with Sumax. On the other hand, on the top of the mountain, surfaces and Chirons were having an epic fight. Chirons throws a horde of explosive insects to get him out of the fight, but Sophices manages to destroy them by using a segregated sword strike. Tyrants throws 10 billions of explosive insects surrounding surfaces, but they couldn't get near enough because the segregated sword strike prevented them to get close. The Surfaces uses an ability with his sword that pumps the air, making all the insects explode, making Chirons angry. In that moment, when trying to give an order to his insects, Chirons couldn't speak. Sophisis was planning to use a powerful ability that once he uses it, he must rest for at least 1 month. Sophis focuses to activate his ability Empty World, which makes the insects die since they have no air. Chirons start to throw attacks despite not having air, but these attacks bounces when hitting the air pressured shield. Sophosis says that it is impossible for him to defeat him since he can control the air, and the last time he used the Empty World ability was when the human tribe was in war with the demon tribe, and that fight's offices killed 3 pillars and a 4th managed to escape, but he was injured badly. Chirons was mad and used his insect king form and start to tell Sophists that he shouldn't compare him with other pillars since he is the strongest. Chirons was able to talk because being an insect he released chemical gases which enables the sound inside the Empty World, but Sophices couldn't help less because with his speed he cut Chirons in half. On the other hand, Isabella was still attacking Suao, and even when she is destroying her threats she can't get near to her. Sukiyo was surprised and asked her what her sword was made from, and meanwhile when distracted, Penny transformed her sword and went through her body, but it didn't affect her since her body was made of threats. Suicide was surprised by Penny's sword since it was made from the Beast King's bones. Isabella told Penny to stay back since she doesn't know her weakness, but Zhangyi tries to convince her to work together so they could defeat her faster. Isabella told him not to forget that she was her queen now, so out of nothing she orders him to take out the mask and Xiang Yabang. He didn't think that Isabella was going to kiss him, and then she told them not to worry because she could handle it herself. After that kiss, saying he trusts that she is going to win that battle, so he decides to go and fight with Raymond, who with his magic he creates a coffin that starts to absorb corpses. Roland was worried, and to distract him he told Zhang Yi to leave so he wouldn't die, and if he does he would give him a lunar stone when he becomes King. Zhang Yi doesn't obey and shoots some missiles that makes Roland protect, but those missiles weren't aiming to Roland but to the coffin, but it didn't even scratched it. When Zhang Yi notices the shield he uses his light sword, and once he attacks again he destroys it a bit and realizes that those magic shields are weak against lasers. Zhang Yi plans to attack again to destroy the shield, but in a moment of distraction a giant demon eats him in one bit. Zhang Yi saved him by cutting it in half with a blood saw, but the demons regenerate since he was made of the corpse's tentacles. Roland decides to flee since he doesn't consider Raymond one of his own, but in that moment his arm starts to absorb him, and Raymond says that he was just raw material for his evolution, therefore he is absorbed completely. Roland injects something in his leg, and once he fell, well, the tentacles started to absorb him. In other fights Sumax was losing because Nani was hitting him with his hand full of flower. Sumax, unable to do anything, was waiting the flower to run out. Ali gets close and starts hitting him with his fire punch, and he lastly uses a ray strike. He manages to separate Sumax in little pieces of slime. Nini makes a giant dose of the pieces, could not regenerate. AC was doing the same, but her power was about to run out. Even so Sumax could go back to his form since while a single drop of him remains he can regenerate his body completely. Nini decides to fight alongside Lee and activates an ability that we don't know the name. Sumax sees those tattoos and asks if that is the human tribe's definitive power. Nini uses his cooking magic without answering, creating a giant pan, and asks Sully to make a giant fire. Once ready he creates some cookware and he starts cooking him, making some moves and turning the heat into pressure. Then Sumac starts to expand the pan, making it explode, hurting Yili and Nanai, who now realizing that they are no match for Sumac tells AC to escape and look for Zhang Yi for help, but Sumac starts to attack her so she couldn't escape. AC was protecting herself with the little energy she had left. Sumac, just like any other miserable being, wanted to desecrate her in front of her friends, but he got up to keep fighting, and when realizing that they couldn't do anything else, Casey asked him to escape and look for help, but Ali told her that in that moment he found a way to defeat him and remembers that despite he mastered the ancient martial arts he had some questions. Mike proposed a duel since that was the only way to answer his questions. Having improved, Billy starts by throwing 3 attacks from 3 different elements. Mike, using 2 elements, neutralizes at least 2 elements, leaving the thunder element. Mike destroys it using an ancient boxing punch, then he counterattacks using an ancient fire boxing, which Lee tries to stop it by using a water element fist, but he couldn't because of the incredible power of that ancient fire fist. Once beaten, Ali thinks that he has to keep practicing, but for now Mike tells him that in that moment flexibility is more important. Ali understood that he must adapt, so AC realizes that when adapting Ali can use ice by using an ice boxing technique, but at the end he wasn't going to do it since his plan was to raise his fire temperature until he finally can beat him, so he manages to create some platinum flames in his fist. Sumac starts to make fun of him since fire couldn't affect him, but Ali sends him flying with one punch. I was surprised because he didn't need flour to give him a direct hit, and he could do that by increasing the temperature of his fire because he realized that he is not totally immune to fire. Then Sumac gets up so angry that he starts attacking them, and while protecting them, Billy told Nani to escape with AC. Billy manages to dodge Sumac's attacks, and once facing him he starts to punch him repeatedly with his platinum fists, hurting him a lot. Sumac now starts to worry because with those punches he lost half of his body, so he starts to attack him seriously, but by stopping his attacks, Ali manages to create an opening to use his ability, shattering one of Sumac's arms. For the first time Sumac starts to feel pain in his body, and Ali was going to keep shattering him so he couldn't regenerate. Sumac told him that he wouldn't hold until that happened, but totally already knowing that starts to focus to use his last fire ability with which he want to evaporate Sumac until he is dead. Sumac was angry, so he got bigger to start attacking Lee, but none of his attacks reached him because they got evaporated by Ellie's fist. Sumac was astonished for what was happening, and when he was distracted, Ali gets in front of him and using everything he has got, he hits him and creates a big wave of heat after the explosion. AC and Neen gets surprised because Sumac's pieces didn't appear to have any power, making Lee the winner. Billy ran out of power and he falls into a coma, and when watching his arm they decide to take him to Master Fiona to heal him, but in that moment Sumac attacks them on their backs. With a little rhymenes of his body, Daisy manages to stop him using ice, getting her unable to keep going, so they decide to go and look for help. In the other fight Isabella and Penny were fighting, and by working together they were reaching the Sukuo's weak point. Penny was helping since she wanted to if the orcs were living in the demons' tribe, but Isabella didn't answer, but since she was helping anyway she was considering answering her. Susua was Angry for losing time with them, so she was going to fight for real, but when seeing Alina she gets big and kicks her. Forming her bed. When Isabella sees that she was unprotected, she attacked her, but it didn't work. Her body was made of threads and she could repair. Then Penny appears on her back to cut her head, but Alina kicks her, throwing her into the floor and also starts attacking Isabella. Alina didn't betray them since she was getting controlled by Tsukio's threats. Who managed to do it because when Alina kicked her she implanted her thread into her. Alina starts to throw so many hits, but they manages to avoid them, and Penny starts to crawl her arm to attack and destroy the threads, but those attacks didn't work because they were injuring Alina, and Susuo starts to make fun of them for not being capable to kill her friend. Then Isabella starts to attack her from behind, but Susuo stops her and creates a threads field, capturing Isabella inside. But instead of being worried, Suicide was disappointed because despite having a bit of the Demon Queen powers, she wasn't as strong as she thought. That's because Isabella, with just one movement of her sword, she managed to cut her threads, and Tsukio is surprised because she knows about that, so in order to kill her, she grabs her body with her strings. Isabella wasn't worried about that, and Tsukio thought she was pretending, so she starts to tighten her threads, but Isabella still showed no fear, and she used her Demon Queen limit power to cut the threads, which surprised Tsuko because she didn't have anything to destroy her threats. She starts to fear Isabella and starts wondering why there is a human so strong, but in that moment Isabella uses her speed and destroys Susuno's eyes. That allowed Alina to be controlled no more, but by having used her magic for so long she couldn't keep any more, and Susuo, on the other hand, was suffering because of her eyes. Isabella, while getting closer, told her that she has the same face she had when she betrayed her, and Tsukio, when she finally could see her well, she realized that she was the demon Queen. Isabella scolds her because of her treason because she saved her when she was a slave, and Susul thanks her for saving her, yet she says that she have found something more important in her life, and she starts attacking again. When Isabella sees her true face, she called her ugly. Susuo accepts the fact that she is ugly, but since Raymond is the only one who loves her, she is going to leave all behind for him. Isabella told her that she wasn't ugly because of her looks but her character, because she is very easy to be fooled, but Susuno says that Raymond's love for her is real, but in that moment she loses contact with Raymond. She thinks that he is in danger, so she goes to help him. Isabella tries to stop her, but she couldn't. Zany, on the other hand, sees how Sumax is being defeated by his friends and he prepares his light sword again to cut Raymond's coffin, but Susulo puts her body in front to protect the coffin and sends Yang Yi flying with a hit, who landed with Isabella, who wasn't worried about Tsuko anymore because her regenerative power had reached its limits. Isabella throws a powerful attack since she was not going to be merciful with a traitor. But Susul, besides not being able to regenerate anymore, she kept protecting Raymond. The other also attacks Yusuo, leaving her in a very bad shape, and Isabella tells her to leave him since she was just an expendable pawn for him. Suasuo tells her that she already knows, but she was going to protect him anyway. In that moment's office appears who also attacks Yusuo. Zhangyi was about to finish her, but the coffin starts to open and a very powerful Raymond gets out from it, getting Tsukilo happy. Raymond grabs her, but instead of helping her he kills her to then absorb her. Once he absorbed her completely, he got stronger, and now he can fly. After that, everyone start to attack him, but no attack could harm him since he stopped them all. Raymond gets behind Sophises and sent him flying with one strike. Raymond was so confident with his new powers that he said not even Lillian could stop him. Now Zany catches him within his energy sphere. He was happy because now that he is trapped all would end, but Raymond managed to escape since he noticed that he should not lower his guard against Shang Yi, and since he knows that he is a forger, he wants to know if he has limit power. He starts to release a big amount of limit power, which makes Shang Yi's heart not able to hold it, and Raymond realizes now that indeed he didn't have any limit power. He wants to kill him anyway because he still was strong. Penny managed to tie him with her sword, saving Zhang Yin, and Isabella, angry because he wanted to kill Zhang Yi, starts to attack him, and we can see that Zhang Yi could hold Raymond's limit power pressure because Isabella gave him a bit of limit power when she kissed him while Raymond was getting free. He says that they would never be able to defeat him because he is invincible, and Penny was in shock because she used a very strong type, but that was nothing for him. Raymond using his weapon catches Penny to absorb her, but she modifies her weapon to be a rapier. Raymond uses Susuro's threads abilities to absorb her, but Penny gives a blood drink to his sword to grow stronger, and to attack him she starts to get crazy, just like the time when she fought Isabella, but it didn't work, and he catches her and says that he would use her to threat the region since she is Angus's daughter. Penny was very angry and got free, so she used her beast form and started to attack Raymond, but like I already told you, Raymond is very strong, but worried about Penny growing any stronger, he sent her flying with a kick, leaving her out of combat, and then he gets near to Xiangyi to kill him because he got in his way. Now Raymond gets out the scepter and started to forge, surprising everyone in the kingdom, and Khan sadly realizes that he absorbed Roland Raymond realizes that the forge is very powerful and tells Yanji that if he teaches him to forge he would spare his life, but it was just a joke since he starts attacking him to protect himself, saying he gets his brush out and creates a light tower which shoots a laser destroying Raymond's forge. Raymond gets surprised by that power because when he was forging he felt that he lost a lot of corpses, so he decided not to forge anymore since it was useless for him. Zhang Yi says that forging is not as easy as he thought, but Raymond told him that forging wasn't important for him. Zhang Yi tells Isabella not to fight to keep her identity hidden, since now everyone in the kingdom could see her fighting also. Captain's offices was fighting with them. Isabella understands, but tells him to be careful since Raymond was getting serious. In that moment Raymond uses high-level magic creating ice above them, which starts to fall at a high speed, destroying everything. Zhang Yi protects himself with his useless wood shield, but the impact was so powerful that managed to break his arm, worrying Zhang Yi since the useless wood shield wouldn't be useful for him when Isabella sees that she was planning to fight even if her identity would be revealed, and although she only had a 20% of her original power it would work to punish Raymond. Raymond praises him to hold his attack, but then sophists appear and traps him with his air prison magic. He apologizes with Sanji for leaving him alone with a very powerful enemy, and knowing that his empty field was on its limits he decides to throw an attack that would determine who wins and who loses. That attack was harming him a lot, but Raymond managed to protect himself by activating one of his abilities, surprising Sophist since he shouldn't be able to do that. Raymond uses a magic called damage transfer, which function is that the more damages he receives the more his immunity gets. After in that moment Zhang Yi realizes that Raymond had absorbed corpses that died in a nuclear explosion, so he asks Isabella to lengthen the fight since Raymond was infected with nuclear radiation, but since he didn't know when it would affect him, he was planning to throw another bomb at his body. Raymond, on the other hand, is surprised about the fact that he ended up with those injuries, but since he had a million corpses he evolved, starting to fight more serious. Sophist throws some attacks, but Raymond ended up dodging them and being bigger. Now he starts stomping him, making fun of him for not being able to kill him, and in that moment he activates a nice ability to attack him, but Zhang Yi managed to save him by forging a Rupert's Drop. Sophis is worried, asked him to go. Rupert's Drop could not hold for longer and ended up being destroyed by such power, but Zhang Yi managed to save Sophis by dodging the attack. Zhang Yi asks officers to let him fight Raymond so Isabella could fight freely, but he changes the subject, thanking him for saving him. He was more and more convinced that he was his lost brother Sophosak. Raymond saw them distracted and he was going to attack them, so he uses the Pillar Ninja's magic. Isabella intervenes, attacking with her sword ability, but using Pillar Ninja's abilities he ended up avoiding all attacks. Raymond notices that Zhang Yi was very important for them, so he launches a powerful kick, but Zhang Yi protects himself, forging an air mattress. Even with that he couldn't do anything else, so Zhang Yi gets hurt. Sophis was worried, so he used a fencing ability and managed to save him so he wouldn't get hurt badly with the falsy, saying he ended up very bad hurt, waking up Sophis in Isabella's wrath, who were going to kill Raymond at all costs. When Raymond saw them in that state he starts to laugh, but suddenly Sophie is with his great velocity ended up hurting him, so Raymond decides to kill him first to end with all that. Isabella also starts to attack him, but Raymond doesn't consider her a worthy opponent, but using more power she ended up leaving him with a big injury. When Raymond sees that he wonders if Isabella had more limit power than him, but he decides to heal himself first with the regeneration ability. Sophis was not going to let him, so he uses an ability to attack again, but Raymond managed to avoid it. The Pillar Ninja's ability. Sophis and Isabella started working together to kill Raymond, who, noticing the tremendous limit power Isabella has, he asked her who she was, but she says that she haven't given permission to talk. Sophis start to protect Isabella so she could attack without trouble, and with her sword he starts to damage Raymond even more. Raymond was wondering why a woman was beating his powers and remembering the fact that he had to go through a lot of humiliations to get where he is now. He wasn't going to lose while being fighting with Raymond. Both of them had forgot about Zhang Yi, so Raymond took advantage of that and created a corpse to kill him while unconscious. The corpse created a weapon and it was going to kill Zhang Yi, but Sophists managed to save him using his body as shield, leaving him with a hole on his body. Raymond starts to laugh, then he teleported and took out the weapon from Sophia's body, killing him. Zhang Yi, once awake, wanted to help him, but he was in terrible pain, so he uses an emergency medicine, but it would take some time to work. Raymond saw him in that state and he attacks to kill, but in that moment an ability sent flying Raymond and even destroys the mini helicopter that was transmitting the fight. So inside the kingdom they were now wondering what was happening. When Raymond realized who threw that, he starts to get scared. It was Isabella, who had awoken her demon queen limit power. Raymond couldn't believe that he was before the former queen and she was going to kill him because he had hurt her subordinates. Zhang Yi asked her if she could hold that form, but Isabella told him that she only wanted to kill him and ordered him to help surfaces, saying he Takes a bit of that gave him, but he was wondering if that would work since the injury was pretty bad once he poured it into Sophus's body. The hole on his body ended up closing in the fight. Raymond was backing up because of Isabella's power, but he decides to fight since his only queen now was Lillian. Raymond tells her that her strength is not like before. But Isabella with just one move of her finger cuts his head off. Raymond creates a corpse's mountain to attack Isabella. But with just one look she makes them disappear. While Raymond was regenerating himself, he tells Isabella that she is not as strong as before because if she wanted to kill him, she would have done it already. But in that moment Isabella gets behind him and goes through his body, taking one of his demon powers. Once in the floor, Isabella stomps the head till destroying the demon power, recovering a bit of his demon queen powers that were taken from her in the inner world of the corpse pillar. Raymond was scared because even though Isabella didn't have her whole strength, she was very strong. Since Isabella broke Valiant demon power, he wouldn't be able to use it anymore. Isabella, knowing that he is pretending to be dead, she was going to take him out from his inner world, and to do that she starts to use demon electrocution magic, which was starting to damage Raymond in his inner world. Raymond creates a corpse and starts to throw some attacks, but none of them manage to damage Isabella, and she says that she would make him feel absolute pain before killing him. Using an ability she takes out from him Pillar Ninja's demon power, so he decides to escape to inform Lillian about the situation. Raymond starts to come back to his original form after losing the demon's powers, and since he only had Sasito's powers left, he transformed into an animal to escape. Flying Zhangji manages to reach by hitting him with his armor since he doesn't want Isabella's identity to be revealed, but since the hit wasn't strong enough, Raymond starts attacking him, saying he manages to get free from those attacks by using his lasers, so he starts to chase him again. Zhangji knows that he lost some abilities, so he was convinced that he was going to catch him, but Raymond manages to avoid him, and since he wasn't afraid of him, he uses his abilities to absorb him, surprising Zany because despite losing powers he was still strong to be able to escape, saying he forges various giant objects. Raymond was mocking him since he had anything else to offer in that moment when distracted Zhangji gets behind him and kicks him down to the floor and starts bombarding him non-stop. Raymond creates some corpses which starts to attack Zhangji, so he starts cutting each one of them, but they regenerated. The corpses were pursuing him and eventually they caught him. He was worried about getting absorbed, so he releases some parts of his armor, and since it was now incomplete it would be very difficult to fight, but he decides to fight for Isabella no matter what. Raymond now had a new plan and told him that he would capture him to use him as a token of exchange with Isabella. Then Raymond starts to feel a terrible and violent pain when Zany sees him like that. He got happy because the effects of radiation were starting to appear. Raymond, very angry, asks him how did he poison him. Zhangji didn't want to tell the long story, so he told him that since the moment he absorbed the corpses from the explosion he was already doomed. Raymond starts attacking him with his arm, but it also starts to fail, and Zhangji starts mocking him because he can't catch him. Raymond, angry, creates some dog corpses to attack them, but they were also affected by radiation he entered in his inner world and all of his corpses were disappearing. Raymond looks for a solution to stop that since his body wouldn't be able to hold, so he thinks about looking for a container to store those corpses, saying he wasn't going to let that happen, so he starts bombarding him for 15 minutes straight and his body was reaching his limit. Raymond could protect himself with his arms, but the effects of radiation were finishing with his body, and Zhangji was happy, but in that moment some things start to get out from Raymond's body. That thing was Sukuo, who ends up being melted, and Raymond starts attacking him because as long as he was alive he could keep fighting. Zhangji was worried because it seemed like Raymond was getting used to the effects of radiation, but in that moment Isabella arrived, sending Raymond flying with a kick. Isabella says that he should not disobey her orders since she told him not to fight, but Zany was happy because she came to help. Isabella says that even though he was her faithful follower he will be punished later, but as long as he was obedient she would consider giving him a gift in the night. On the other hand, Raymond said starts to remember that life was unfair to him since he was a slave while other demons were the leaders, but since his quality was the patience, then one day they gave him the power of corpse pillar. Since that power disgusted the royal family, so he ascended very quickly. Raymond proposed to himself to gain power and fame to become the next demon king, but all that had disappeared in a day, so that's why he used a new plan. Raymond gets something out of his body which opens his mouth using an absorbing power. At 100% both knew that the last attack they would use would be the ones to decide who gets the victory. Isabella didn't want Zhangji to be harmed by the attack, so she was going to send him to a safe zone. Zhangji refuses since he wants to fight with her and he doesn't want to leave her alone, and once Isabella accepts she decides that they will work together. Raymond wanted more power, so he raises his absorption power, and Isabella wouldn't use her limit power completely because Zhangji wouldn't hold it. In that moment she feels that the absorption power rose a lot. absorbing everything, so she uses her demon claws and starts to touch the floor to not get sucked in that moment. Isabella lets Zhang go, and being focused he starts to use all his brain and he could enter the forge field. Martin and Khan mentioned before there with the stop he could forge everything easily. Zhang Yi was thinking about what to forge since his weapons could be sucked in before they even start working, but he remembered a weapon in one of his blueprints, though it was in an experimental phase. If he used it, it could kill Raymond instantaneously, but if it gets out of control it could kill him as well, but he wants to do it because he is planning on controlling it when focused. A little stain gets out from his brush and it's nothing less than a black hole. Once in the real time, Isabella managed to catch him before being sucked in. Then the black hole, after eating Raymond, starts to swallow everything around it. The black hole starts to expand and even Isabella with her wings couldn't escape, and Zhang Yi tries to stop it by creating energy spheres around it, but they were sucked in effortlessly by the black hole. To stop it, Isabella leaves Zhang Yi alone so she could use her real demon form. Even though she didn't have all of her powers, she throws her most powerful attack to stop it, but even yet the black hole kept expanding and growing stronger. Isabella pushes herself a lot and manages to destroy the black hole, and seeing that power she recognizes Zhang He is the hero who would save the demons. Since Isabella emptied all of her demon power, she ended up passing out and naked after her demon form disappeared, saying he forges a bed for her to rest, and when he wanted to cover her he couldn't because he ended up looking at her body. Then he realized that she was awaking, and when she realized that he saw her, she asked him if he liked her, but Zhang Yi turned around and said that he was worried, but Isabella gets up and suggests to wait until they recovers. She told him to turn around. Shanji obeys and do it with his eyes closed, so Isabella orders him to open them. When he sees her he confesses that indeed he was her body before. Isabella wasn't angry, but complains to him about turning an easy to handle situation into something dangerous with that black hole. Even yet she congratulates him for having so much power, and she is thinking about making him her real husband, but he shouldn't disobey her orders anymore because if he would she was going to do unthinkable things with his ass. So Zhanji in his head and scared he promises never to disobey her again. By a night they went back to the dwarves' kingdom where everyone were worried for surfaces because even Fiona was having a hard time to heal him. Fiona uses superior healing magic and mentions that even with that medicines Yang he gave to him to heal his wound, she can't heal him with any spells, and sophists seemed to be a container with no soul. Even when her magic had a temporal effect he would not hold one more night, saying he says that there was a way to save him. Everyone gets surprised, so they all wanted to help, but Zhangji asked everyone but Isabella to leave the room, and what they were going to do it should be kept between them. Once alone, Zhangji had planned to use the redstones from their rings to save Sophises. Isabella wanted to help because it was about a love person. After touching the rings, some magic circle starts to repair Sophises' soul. In that moment Isabella felt a familiar feel. After finished, Sophises' body starts to move, getting Zanya happy, who goes straight to him. Isabella gets a bit angry because he let go of her hand. Sophises wakes up scared, so I'm not sure if he already know the truth about his world, because when he sees Zangji he promised him that he will protect him. When Isabella saw them hugging she got in bad mood, but the other came in very happy to see Sophists alive. Fiona, after diagnosing him, she got surprised because he recovered completely just in a few minutes, and Zhang Yi, to mislead them, says that it is a business secret because Basil told him that it was forbidden to create life, so even if he tries to read the other's mind, it would be very difficult for him to find out. Penny notices Zhang Yi's redstone. Since the day was exhausting, everyone went to sleep. When Isabella arrives to the room, she ordered Zhang Yi to forge appropriate clothes to sleep. Zhang Yi was getting ready to sleep on the floor, but Isabella ordered him to sleep with her in the bed, so Zhang Yi lies now nervously meters away from her, but she ordered him to scratch her back, making him even more nervous. When she asked him to do it under her clothes, Zhang couldn't resist, but then Isabella gets on top of him since she is planning to give him the gift she promised. That gift was a kiss, and then we see the Demon Queen personality telling Isabella that they were giving him a 1% of her demon power, so from now on he would not suffer the pressure of others' limit power anymore, and from now on they would never see each other since she recovered a part of her original power, so they would be one person again. The personality asked her to thank him since she made real progress with Zinji, but Isabella says that she did well, and before she goes the personality said that even when they are different they both like Zhang Yi, and just like that, after the kiss the real Isabella takes control over her body, and with a serious face she told him to go to sleep, leaving Zhang Yi puzzled, but then she blushes because she was starting to accept her feelings. The next day all the dwarves from the kingdom were thanking Zhang his team, and even the ones from the royalty vowed as gratitude gesture for saving them. The dwarves forged the statue of them where there was also Faili with her cat, even when didn't do anything in the war. Khan asked them to stay on more day to celebrate the thermal waters party. Zhang Yi was going to stay to relax, while the other wanted to see the other women naked. After a while Martin and Khan decided to take Zhang Yi to a forging lab where Connor Longbarts used to make some experiments with the forge. Martin told him that from now on they wouldn't be able to see each other so often anymore, since Angus could take a role in this matter of saving the dwarves, so Martin could behold as responsible of everything, so Matron decides to stay in the dwarves' kingdom since Angus could take advantage of that situation to push offices. When Martin remembers that Zhang Yi can use the forging field, he asked him to have a real forging battle at the highest level. Surprising Zhang Yi, Martin says that in that battle he want to teach him the last secret of the forging field, and once in the lab Martin told him to not hold up even if he was his teacher. Zhang Yi told him to come, but Martin forged some crossbows and attacked him merciless, and then shouting him to take this fight seriously. Many starts to attack with the crossbows, but Zhang Yi could defend himself with his energy sphere. Martin decided that Khan would fight as well so Zhang Yi could fight for real, so together they use the forging field and the energy sphere starts to disappear. Zhang Yi wondered why, since he didn't cancel the forge, and then he realizes that Martin's and Khan's forging field were manipulating his at their will. Wharton tells him that he can use the Forza field, but only if he activates it together with Khan. Also, they had to use gems to be able to focus the mental power, but Zhang Yi was different since he was never seen tired while forging. His mental power were tireless and he learned the forging field by himself. Zhang Yi was a genius since he dominated all this easily, so he could force with no limits without using a brush or alignment stone. Bear Zhang Yi to use the forge field, but Zhang Yi didn't remember what he felt when he activated it. Martin, knowing that in a calm situation he could not activate it, he starts to attack him, but he protects himself with his useless wood shield. Both of them makes the shield disappear, starting to attack him again, and Martin shouts him to remember what he felt when he activated it, so Zhang Yi concentrates to remember what he felt. Then he realizes that every time he activated the forge was because he wanted to be stronger to help Isabella with all that. Remembered Zhang Yi activates his forging field, and with just one hand he could vanish Khan's and Martin's forge. Once he realized how strong he was, he said that it was like having the power of God. Both of them couldn't keep fighting, so they told him that they made him learn the forging field so he could activate it, not just when in danger. They also told him that he is the only one who can forge with useless wood so easily. Even them can only forge with useless wood. Only in the forging field they both lost their hair by forging a piece of useless wood, and even Martin missed his handsomeness. Zhang Yi wanted to help them by forging some seats, but he was surprised because he couldn't do it. Khan told him that first he must consolidate everything he learned. Since they trust in Zhang Yi, they know they will do it, making them happy. And now that the relation between tribes were in tension, it would be very difficult for them to see each other. Zhang Yi thanks them for they taught him and did for him. Isabella tells that despite she forbade the cruelty against humans, they would still lived under a cruel tyranny since they were treated like animal in the demon tribe. Sophists had spent his whole life searching for his brother, but he would only find one disappointment after the other because he never found him. However, when he found Zhang Yi, a little ray of hope appeared because the resemblance was overwhelming, getting Sophists happy because the relative he loved so much had appeared. When Zhang Yi hears all that, he thinks about becoming Sopha's brother, and even if Sophisak gets back one day he would still treat him like a brother. The next day Moto decides to stay in the dwarves' kingdom to learn more about the forge, and Martin was feeling sad because the king might blame him for everything, but they all decided to take that guilt. They say goodbye to him and went back to the kingdom. On the other hand, Roland managed to survive by having Raymond's blood in his body, with which he makes a ritual to call a dimensional door to the demons, but when getting closer one demon gets out to attack him. That demon was the door pillar, who was the guardian of that dimensional door, and since he was no demon he wouldn't let him get through. So he said that he was sent by Raymond, but he couldn't come because he was murdered by Zhang Yi. However, the pillar starts to attack him, but now because he wanted to take Raymond's blood out of him, but in that moment Lillian ordered the demon to let him through since they had a deal once. Tyro Roland already knew Liberty, the magic pillar, bio with the disgrace pillar, and Matoso, the sword pillar. Once Lillian KW and he about Raymond's death, she asked Roland who did it. Roland told her it was Yang Yi and one girl with a demon or a call to say Bella. When they hear that name they start looking into Roland's memories and ended up confirming that it was about the former demon queen Isabella. So Lillian gets happy because she was as beautiful as always. She turns Roland into a pillar for showed her those memories and she thinks about giving him demon powers. So in that moment some demons start to appear from her hands, and they go in through Roland's mouth. Once all those demons are inside his body, Roland starts to feel a tremendous power, so he was so happy that he wanted to become Lillian's right hand, who ordered him to send soldiers to the borders of the human kingdom because she wanted to say hello to Isabella as soon as possible, and she wants Zhang Yi to be captured to thank him for protecting her queen. On the other hand, Zhang Yi's group arrives to the human kingdom and they were happy, so they wanted to celebrate, but Penny decides to go since she doesn't want her to be seen with them, but then they start to worry since the Whole place was in total silence, then some knights appear and they were going to arrest them by order of the king, since they are considered traitors. They decide to go without resistance, so once in the palace the king seemed worried and he was going to talk, but then Yalu interrupts insulting Zophasis, but Zophasis without paying attention explains that he tried to help the dwarves because if the demon tribe would have took them in they would have become much more powerful, making them a true threat in the near future. The king was about to accept his allegation, but Angus very angry tells Zophasis that only he has the right to work with foreign relations in the human kingdom. When Zophasis realizes that their friends might end up in jail he starts to say that he was the one who convinced them to go to the dwarf's kingdom, so they only got him in jail, but all of them decided to take guilt. However, in that moment all of the teachers from the academy arrives and they say they are all guilty as well because they convinced their students to go and help the dwarves kingdom, so they should be in jail too. When Angus saw that all the teachers were protecting their students he wasn't planning to punish them after all but relegate Zophasis from his rank. As Captain Sophists didn't even care, so he does not object. However, Angus wanted to close Zhangyi's business skilled because he doesn't want some foreigner to control commerce since he knows he is being manipulated for someone from the demon tribe, saying he worries because it seems that Angus knows the truth about Isabella, saying he makes everything possible to change the subject, but Angus wasn't playing around and he tell everyone that Isabella is the former queen of the demon tribe, surprising everyone there, but at the same time nobody believed it. But at the same time they started to remember that sometimes Isabella showed an aura similar to the demon's one, just like that time when she lost control in her training, so they confirmed that Isabella was indeed the former demon queen. So every dragon knight starts to surround her to capture her. Zhangyi wonders how did they find out and Surfaces very shocked asked Zhangyi if that was true and he said yes. Once knowing that it was impossible to keep hiding it, Isabella decides to start fighting with her demon form, depressing everyone because they feel betrayed. Isabella didn't want to fight her friends, so she says that her only target was Angus, and Sophasis grabbed his sword and got in front of Zhangyi, who protects himself from being attacked, but Sophasis doesn't attack him, he was just protecting him and telling everyone that if they touched him he would kill them. Sato ordered the White Dragon Knights to attack, but Sophasis knocked them all out with one of his abilities, so the rest were planning to attack. However, some teachers started to help Isabella escape, so Isabella listened to them and she escapes, but Sato starts chasing them. Billy and Emery also followed her, but to help her, and the others remembered that she wasn't bad, so they wanted to help too, but AC stops them because if they keep helping Sophasis she would have to bear the responsibility. However, she was helping them a bit on their way. Isabella tells that she wants to go back to the demon tribe and take her throne back. She also apologizes with Sophasis because of her he had to betray his kingdom. Sophists told her not to worry since they were family for him, but in that moment some chains catches Isabella and Shang Yi and then they get pulled. It was Sato who did that to provoke Sophists to fight with him, but Benelli appears who knocks him with one of his abilities. Then some knights appear but Nani defeats them. Mumu tells Yangi that all of his responsibilities were now in the hand of the regent and his workers were cancelled. Zhang feels guilty, but Mumu cheers him up, saying that Angus would do it eventually since a lot of knights were behind them. Nanai and his master stayed to distract them, and once they were in the exit, Sophas is thought about staying in the kingdom because he promised his adoptive father to protect the little king, and since both of them had someone to take care of, Zany accepts his decision so he could keep taking care of Isabella. Alina was going to stay with Sophists, but after a kiss he convinced her to leave with them. Then Sato arrives with his sword for his long-awaited fight. Sophosis prepares to fight, but in that moment Zhang he calls him big brother and promises him to go back to have a new life, and he says goodbye. Sophosis was very happy about that. Then he decides to give up since his objective was a success, making Sato angry because he wanted to fight him. On the other hand, Zhangyi and his group wasn't having a good time because they got across with some demons and two pillars who wasn't going to let them see Lillian. Everybody was surprised about Liberty and Isabella resemblance, but she explained that Lillian could give her a part of the powers she stole from her, making them look like sisters. After the demon starts to attack the ship, Zhangyi was very upset, so he throws a lot of missiles to them. However, Biowit managed to protect the demons with a barrier, so Zhangyi, a bit scared, uses the maximum speed of his ship to escape. Then after thinking that they had escaped, they think about going to the demon tribe, but then Liberty appears with her real demon form. Isabella worries and wonders how she could use that form since only the royalty should be able to use it, but in that moment Liberty throws a powerful attack to them. However, a magic circle saves them, teleporting them to Zhangyi's ship. The one who saved them was Vasily, who asked them what was their plan. Isabella tells that Pillar de Kilo is waiting for her in the demon tribe, so she wants to go since she thinks he is still on her side. Isabella asks basically for his help, who plans to help them a bit by sending them to the demon tribe, but the problem is that there was a magic in that kingdom that could detect people from outside to be able to help them with that. He gives them 2 forbidden books where they could learn a magic that would change their looks, one to Emery and the other to Isabella before they go. Basically gives both men a special match so they could use it in a key moment, and with that everybody got across a door which sends them directly into the demon tribe they managed to get in by disguising as demons, but then they got surprised because it was all very pacific. Then Zanji sees how some demon kids were enslaved since Lillian reactivated slavery in the demon tribe. Philly takes them to get them out of there, but on their way the kids themselves heard him and they escape to get back to their master because slaves could be tracked without problem with a collar. But in that moment some demons appear to capture them for what they did, but while escaping some magic captures them. It was Darkilo who takes the others out, but Zhangyi, so they couldn't hear what he had to say to Isabella. Darkilo explains that he is taking no sides, but he is planning to join the one who is winning, since the only thing he cares about is that his raven breed don't die, because if for any reason Isabella ends up losing, Lillian could use the crow breed as sacrifice to create redstone for the gods. Zhangyi, angry, tells him that other breeds and races can be uses as well, but Isabella, not knowing anything about it, asked them if they were hiding something from her, saying he had no their choice, so he tells her the truth about the world, scaring Isabella since everyone in the Hilo plains were like food for the gods. Then Darkilo tells that the royal demon family has the gods' blood, making them the only ones who weren't controlled by the gods in the Hilo plains. Then he explains that the war between humans and demons started because humans were the ones that created the most redstones for the gods' revival, so to avoid that the king demon started a war, making a lot of people die and lowering the reproduction rate and making it harder to create red stones. That shocks Isabella since she wanted to stop the war without knowing that, but Zanji cheers her up, saying that she did the right thing by not letting people die. Darkilo said that he will help if she promises that the raven breed would not be sent for sacrifice to create redstones. Isabella doesn't accept since she wants to save all breeds and races. In case I didn't mention it before, the demon tribe is composed by various breeds and races. Darkilo warns her about the gods. They are terrifying, and if she wants to oppose the demon royal family lineage will disappear with her, but even so she was going to cry. Even if she died, if she gets killed, her descendants will keep fighting against the gods because she was planning to have children with Zhang Yi. Darkilo wasn't satisfied with that answer, so he calls her naive by wanting to defy the gods, and he goes once back. They decide to go straight to the demon's queen palace. On the other hand, in the palace, Lillian was punishing Liberty for attacking Isabella, but since Livy was a masochistic, she was enjoying the punishment since she doesn't want to say Bella to be with Lillian. Lillian decides to forgive her because she was enjoying the punishment and she wanted to find Isabella to protect her, otherwise others would kill her. The reason why she betrayed her was to make her weak, since for some time she was always behind her. However, since she was so strong, she decided to make her weak so she could protect her. Lillian had used Laby as Isabella's substitute because of her resemblance, which makes Liberty hate more Isabella for taking her love from her. On the other hand, Zhang Yi and his group were going to the castle flying, since with that invisibility magic Emery learned with the book basically gave to her, it was easier because the cast had an alert barrier once in an upper floor that decided to go through a hole under the pallets to climb it up. Once there, they meet with a demon that had excavated that hole, so when I say Balasachi introduced herself as her queen, which makes the demon angry, thinking that she was an impostor. This demon attacked her, but he didn't want to alert the other demons since they thought he was just digging. Isabella asked him why he was like that, because he used to be loving, so to make him remember who she is, she gets close to him and she sings a song. With that, the demon get very happy. He recognized Isabella because she sang that song to sleep, so he helps them get into the palace and he introduces himself as Zeocom. Then he goes so he doesn't attract any attention because of his size, and Isabella uses a magic that learned from Vasely's book to share memories about how the palace is from inside. Then they use the invisibility magic to separate in groups to look out for the dagger Lillian used to take Isabella's power. Zhangyi and Alina enters Isabella's father warehouse, in which among other things Zhangyi use a parchment to take all. Then they decide to regroup with the others since the invisibility the effect was about to wear out, but in that moment a demon attacks them, hurting Alina bad. This demon was Pillar Matoso, who could sense their smell humans despite hiding their aura. On the other hand, Roland had caught Emery. Roland was furious because they got in the middle of his way to become king, but Ali was going to fight for real to finish with him once and for all. Isabella, on the other hand, reaches her old room, and when she sees her parents' photo, she asked them for forgiveness for having lost her place as queen. Then when she was going out, an aura surrounds her, showing where the dagger with her powers were. Going back to Zhang Yi, he was protecting Alina by getting her into a capsule. Matoso, knowing that he was Sophus's brother, he starts to attack him since Sophus killed his brother sword god Moxia. Zhang Yi knew that he was going to use his speed, so he forges a very thick crystal where Matoso crashes with and leaves him almost unconscious, and Since he didn't want to fight, he decides to escape and later tell the whole truth about Moxia's death. On the other hand, Ali was kicking Roland's ass. Roland was very angry and he throws many demons to kill him, but Eli burns all those demons. In gets close to Roland and with a lethal fire punch he leave him injured. Bad memory is surprised by Ali's power. But it was also dangerous because Ali was getting injured and Roland could regenerate, but Ali was going to give him an opportunity to let him go back to his kingdom to apologize. Roland was starting to be scared since till he had some white flames in his fists which made things look blurred around them, but he didn't want to apologize, so he starts to attack again. Ali would show no mercy, so he uses his most powerful punch. It was so powerful that left nothing around. Xiangyi arrives and he uses his drones to start coolingly, so his wounds wouldn't end up being that bad, but he ended up passing out after using all of his powers. Emery was healing Eli and Alina, and then they would go and look for Isabella, but in that moment Lillian appears behind them with two pillars. She angrily asked Xiangyi about his relationship with Isabella and he fearless answered that she is his wife, getting Lillian so much angrier. She gets close to him and starts saying that Isabella was hers, but when he tried to escape he couldn't because Lillian was very strong. Then Biowit discovers Isabella's location, so Alien was going to welcome her, but Xiangyi tries to stop her. However, Liberty blows him away with a kick. With Biowit's help they caught Xiangyi and Liberty wanted to kill him out of resentment because if they haven't returned Lillian would only think about her and not Isabella. Xiangyi asks Emery to escape, but he wouldn't do it because two of her friends were injured and would fight to protect them. Then she takes out a staff showing us that in truth she was a cleric, so at most she could summon an ancient beast. Xiangyi on the other hand was going to fight with Liberty. He uses his new lasers and shoots them from his arms, and Liberty was so confident that they wouldn't do anything to her, but those lasers got through her body, worrying her. On the other hand, Isabella is reunited with Lillian and Isabella was so mad that she wanted to kill her, but Lillian wanted to give her back the thrones while avoiding her attacks, but Isabella didn't want to kill just for the thrones, but also for killing all of her subordinates and her high priest, while remembering that she launches some powerful attacks starting to hurt Lillian, who instead of being worried she was happy because Isabella was recovering her powers. Even if she were massacring Lillian she would be happy because she was being punished by his former queen. Then Lillian told her that she doesn't know her full power, making Isabella remember that Lillian was a very powerful disciple of her father, but she didn't know about her powers since she never saw her fight to be able to get by her side. Lillian uses her real form, raising her power so much. On the other hand, Emery summons the King Wolf Lightning, which makes her happy because it was a very powerful beast, but when the wolf realizes that someone weak summoned it, it didn't want to fight by her side. However, Emery shows her cute side and convinced the wolf to fight, attacking Biowit, but it gets scared when realizing that was going to fight with his former master. The wolf tells Emery that Biowit's real name is Russell, better known as the best cleric from Hilo Plane, surprising Emery with that. On the other hand, after receiving the attack, Liberty asks Zany how he could injure her since that attack didn't have any magic in it. Xiangyi straightly says that it was the power of science and he wanted to show more, so he forges two drones with the same kind of lasers he used before. At first she could avoid them, but when a bit distract damaged her, leaving some injuries, and then he makes fun of her because even when she looks like Isabella, she wasn't as strong as her. That made her angry because he compared her with Isabella, so using her real form she caught Xiangyi's armor, but he was expecting that he was already out of his armor, which starts melting and catching Liberty since that armor was an animecha. Xiangyi gets happy for capturing her, so he wants to kill her with one blow with his weapons before she raised her powers. On the other hand, the wolf betrays Emery, going to Biowit's side. She tells that when she was known as Russell, she was a cleric who collected 12 beasts in Hilo Plains, and one of those beasts was the lightning wolf that destroyed Emery's confidence, and she was prepared to fight, but Biowit was going to let her go since she was like a master for her for being a cleric, but she must leave her friends behind, so Emery doesn't accept that, so she decided to fight and uses an ability to disturb Biowit's limbs. However, it doesn't do anything to her because Biowit quit to her human body and makes Emery be affected by her own attack. Emery surrenders, so she asked her to take her as well. Biowit realizes that she was a smart person and she offered her to be her disciple, but Emery refuses. If she accepts, she would teach her every magic she knows and also to summon a beast's equivalent to a dragon, which is the divine ancient beast, the Golden Daughter. That surprises Emery because the Golden Daughter is an ancient beast that lived with the gods, and it was a quiet beast that could cure every disease and could turn every enemy into a rock. Emery wonders how someone that evil could subdue the Golden Daughter, and Biowit accepts that she is evil, but that's how she is now. Then with the power of the Golden Daughter she turns into rock all three of Xiangyi's friends and captured them. On the other hand, Xiangyi throws a nuclear bomb to Library, which surprises Lillian because despite not having magic powers he was powerful, and Isabella attacking her told her that she was right, the man she liked was that strong, making her a little angry, and she starts to remember when she betrayed her love, and she tells that Isabella's father knew he had little time, and he was worried about his lineage because all of his children born deaf, but one day her most beautiful wife was a few days away from giving birth, so he ordered Lillian to take care of her. When William touched her belly, she got excited because the baby seemed to like it, and then after some time Isabella was born alive and the Demon King was very happy and named her his successor. However, her mother was about to die after giving birth, so before that she asked Lillian to take care of the little princess. Isabella leaves her with a beautiful wife who is the Demon Queen. After discovering Isabella's identity, they decide to escape to the demon tribe. Whereas Isabella, meeting William, begins to tell her why she broke her heart before after the death of Isabella's parents she became the Demon Queen. Isabella was very kind when dealing with her subordinates, surprising Lillian, since she was different from her father because he was very serious, making his subordinates respect him since no one approached Isabella because of her position as a Demon Queen. She was happy to have Lillian as her only friend. Then there was an incident where the pillar of the door called Betty had killed a human despite Isabella having forbidden that, making her angry since she killed them in a horrible way. This because she ripped out the hearts of humans to increase her demon power, so she decides to execute him for having disobeyed her orders. After that, Isabella goes to see the documents to make peace with the human tribe, but the problem was that the conditions for humans to make peace were too harsh. At first he gets angry about it, but she thinks to find a way to make peace since Isabella does not want her precious civilians to die in the war. Lillian, upon hearing that, gets angry because she wanted to receive all the love from Isabella, so to take out her fury, she went to punish Liberty. In that moment, Biowit arrives and tells her that Raymond was going to betray Isabella, so she was going to tell her queen about it, but she joins them when she sees that they can make Isabella weak so Lillian could protect her, and Isabella would only loved her. Isabella calls her crazy, and she regrets knowing her, so using her real forms, she plans to kill her. On the other hand, after the explosion, Liberty was suffering the effects of radiation. She began to attack Zany, but because of the radiation her body did not work well. So Zhanji, taking advantage of that, improved his mecha. Then he planned to kill her with one blow, but Bio-id intervenes, attacking him but does nothing to him since Yanji returns the attack and Liberty shows her true form. Since her fake body was destroyed, Shangi plans to finish her off, but Biowit threatens him, saying that she will kill his kidnapped comrades if he does so. After saving Liberty, he is surprised by Zhangi's power since forging and creation of the gods have the same meaning. Zhangi lets her know that his creations are actually science, so Biowit, curious, wanted to know what that was, but she couldn't because she was not free because Lillian controlled his life. Zhangi explained to her in simple words what science was, surprising Biowit since Zany was the person in the prophecy who will kill the gods. He was surprised, so he asks if she knows, basically, to which Bio-in answers yes, since in the past they were great friends because she was also a slave of the gods. On the other hand, in the fight, Isabella was winning the match, worrying Lillian since despite using her second form she was losing. Isabella begins to use human fencing and then thanks Lillian in quotes because if she hadn't betrayed her she would never have experienced living with humans. Then uses a powerful attack, splitting Lillian in two, but it did not kill her since with her powers she regenerated her body. In that moment we see a memory where Dorona teaches Isabella the most powerful fencing skill, so she decides to use it, creating a powerful giant sword. Bio-id, when seeing that she is going to help Lillian so she doesn't die because if that happens she will also be finished, Zhangi follows her and plans to make Biowit to join him since she was not so bad in the fight. The gigantic sword separates, creating 10,000 swords. So Isabella with all her anger throws those swords at Lillian. Lillian, scared, uses a lot of magic to protect herself. However, Isabella put much more force into the swords which begin to pass through Lillian's shield, doing a lot of damage. Then to finish, the swords fall on top of Lillian, causing a great disaster, and Isabella, using a lot of power, ends up going back to her human form. In that moment Zhangi arrives, who seeing her naked forges and armor for her. On the other hand, Biowit was barely able to create a shield to protect Lillian, but even so Lillian was suffering from the swords, so Biowit was going to heal her. However, Zhangi begins to attack so that she doesn't. He tries to calm her down since he didn't want to fight, but Isabella stops him because they couldn't kill her because Biowit's body was just a container since his soul was elsewhere. Since Isabella regained the throne by defeating Lillian, tells her to obey, but Bio-id didn't want to because she didn't follow Lillian because she was the demon queen, but that they knew about her. She plans to introduce herself first. She tells them that she was a slave of the gods just like Vasily, and it was his fault that Biowit have that body. Lillian had a life in her hands, so if she dies Biowit will too, and Sanji, knowing that, wants to save her by defeating Lillian, but that would be in vain since a special person will try to kill Biowit because he knows a lot, and Isabella asks about that special person, but they are interrupted by Lillian, who was following Isabella and Biowit, seeing that they are distracted, makes witchcraft to both of them, messing up the control of their bodies. Then Lillian, worried, asks about Liberty, so Biowit tells everything and gives Lillian Liberty's original body. Who was angry and asked to kill Zhang Yi, but in that moment Lillian eats Liberty since she was only worried about Liberty's demon power getting lost. After eating her, Lillian's power raises dramatically, so she acquires a new form. And she was happy because all of her body was beautiful, but in that moment her body starts to get destroyed little by little, because when she ate Liberty she also ate the radiation within her body. Biowit, knowing that, told him that she would kill him if he doesn't cure her, but Zhang Yi told that it was irreversible since radiation effects were irreversible, so even if she regenerates, his cells would die one by one. Lillian orders Biowit to kill Zhang Yi, but she was undecided since Zhang Yi may be the prophet who will kill the gods. Lillian, seeing her like this, shows her the bracelet where her soul was being able to kill her, so Biowit, scared, thinks of killing Zhang Yi, but in that moment the spell that Vasily put on him begins to activate, so with that he captures Biowit with some magical chains. Then Isabella, getting rid of Biowit's witchcraft with her speed, attacks Lillian, causing the bracelet to fall off, and Isabella was going to pick it up, but in that moment a hole absorbs him. Then Zanya companions are released, but Biowit is absorbed by the same hole as before. And Isabella, thinking that it was Vasily, begins to worry. Then Zanji helps his companions, but in that moment more demons arrive with Matoso in front, who wanted to save Lillian. In that moment Dark Yellow arrives, who decided to join Isabella, so he tells Matoso to obey the authentic demon queen, and they explain to us that Matoso joined the demon tribe to take revenge on the humans since Angus annihilated his tribe. Isabella, when approaching, lets him know that she knows his suffering, but if he did not join her, his only option was to die. The other demons accept Isabella back as their queen, but Matoso does not accept it since she was accompanied by humans. When making that decision, Archilo was going to kill him for opposing Isabella, but Matoso was not weak either since he defended himself from their attacks. However, he decides to escape because there were two people powerful against one. Isabella decides not to follow him since Matoso's hatred was normal, and then the demon army welcomes her. Isabella orders to call all the ministers to make an important announcement, and within 3 days the coronation ceremony was happy for Isabella because she recovered her throne, and she approaches him to kiss him, surprising the demons. Because they will have a demon king, she begins to thank him for all the times he has helped her, so for all that he will the demon king, and they are going to get married, making Zhang Yi happy since he managed to make Isabella fall in love with him. Both of them were getting affectionate in front of everyone, and Lillian was angry, and by still being alive, she did not want to see Isabella with another person. Zhang Yi wonders why she is still alive, and Archilo tells him that Lillian is immortal since she is an ancient beast, and according to a legend not even the gods can kill her for being immortal since they couldn't kill her. They go to the tomb of demon kings, and after entering, saying he is surprised by the huge statue of Isabella's father, she tells him that her father put that statue since the remains of the old kings were in the tombs and he wanted to protect them even after he died. Zhanji is glad because even though Isabella's father was serious, he was also a good person, but the purpose for which they were there was to leave Lillian lying there. Lillian asked them to not leave her alone, so with Isabella, in order to free her, orders her to tell her why someone as powerful as Biowit followed her orders. Lillian agrees to tell them since she lived long before there was intelligent life on the Hilo plane in a forest. Biowit captures Lillian, but she was a small beast, and at the end she goes to the celestial city, where upon meeting the king god he congratulates her for her good work and orders her to teach the lower lives about the magical arts, but since the gods weren't going to be there anymore, those 3 slaves were going to have a young master, all that because the gods were going to hibernate. And the one in charge of that preparation was the third self called Ivica. They both get surprised because all of that matched with that they knew. But they were wondering who Ivica was. However, following the story bio, it had locked Lillian down with some beast. She were there for some days, but when the place started to collapse and once she got out, she was surprised because the celestial city was under a cave. Then she saw Biowit fighting with Vasily because Vasily had betrayed the young master. He betrayed him because the young master had created a weapon to kill the gods. In that moment the god king arrives, and he was disappointed because Biowit was his favorite slave. Biowit does not regret anything, so she didn't care about dying, but basically begs the god not to kill her. However, the god king starts controlling him so he doesn't bother him. The god king turns her into a bracelet with his dagger, walking up her soul until she reconsiders. Then he gave it to Vasily, who was crying for what he did to Biowit and Lillian. After waiting for so long, she finally could get the bracelet, managing to control Biowit, and with that they created a theory where Vasily only used them to catch Biowit, but it was difficult to believe since he was someone hard to read. Then, after knowing all that, they wanted to use the dagger with Lillian because they want to extract all the power that belongs to Isabella, but they had to do it carefully because they could infect her with the radiation. However, when trying to use the dagger, it didn't work since it only Worked with magic, so they try another way, which is by activating the forging file. Once he do it, he could see Isabella's power in Lillian, so using the dagger he takes Isabella's power from her and gives it back to Isabella, who recovers all of her power. Then they leave Lillian in the Demon King's tomb forever. Once out of there, saying he plans to build an army at the forefront to go back to the human kingdom to save sophists. On the other hand, back into the human kingdom, Sophia's was being punished by Sato, who was doing it to make him fight him because Sato only finds a purpose to his life by defeating strong people. Then Angus arrives and orders officers to join him. Sophists didn't want to since he was loyal only to his king, and he starts to make Angus remember all the bad things he has done. Angus angrily asked him how did he know all that. Sophist says that when Zhang Yi healed him with the redstone he saw the truth about the world, and now he knows why his adoptive father killed himself. Sophists will continue to support the little king because he thinks that one day with his people's help, they will rebel against the gods to kill them. When Angus hears that, he starts to laugh, and to demonstrate him how fearful the gods are, he shows him how they can kill them. With the redstones he has, Angus creates a human life, making it grow until reach it all hood to then kill him with no effort. Since he was his creation, with that he made him see that the gods being their creators, they could kill them effortlessly, and the reason he didn't make peace with the demons was to keep the war going. That would make the gods going to hibernation again since they wouldn't find enough lives because of the war, yet he had to keep the gods with the little lives they had. When Sophists hears all that, he gets in shock because Angus seemed to be the good guy for protecting his breed from the gods. Then Angus leaves him to process everything and decides to go with his army to attack the demon tribe. The Thorn Queen saw everything and she goes to inform Isabella. On the other hand, Betty was escaping from the demon tribe since Isabella was the demon queen again, but then some semi-human appear. They wanted to kill Betty for killing their generals, and Mitoso had joined them. On the other hand, in the demon tribe everyone was preparing to celebrate the wedding of the demon kings. At the end the spouses arrive, where after everything which normally happens in a wedding, these two are officially married, making all the demons happy. Emery seeing Isabella like this throws a hintedly so that they get married one day, but just like every man he did not understand. Then they celebrate with a big party all day, so at nightfall Zhang Yi takes his wife to his room to be alone, where they start to remember the good and bad times, but to stop talking they decide to continue with the wedding night, where we see that Zhang Yi with a lot of effort finally slept with Isabella. After finishing, Zhang Yi finds himself in a dark place, where when he sees a head he is scared because it was a god, but he realizes that he looked a bit like Isabella in that the god of nothingness opens his mouth to swallow Zhang Yi, but in that moment he wakes up scared. However, seeing Isabella, he asks why she was in her human form. She explains that the women of the demon royal family, the first time they transfer the demon power to her husband, that is why Sanyi now became a true demon king, surprising him since he can even fly. In that moment tells her that she had a strange dream with a god that looked like her, astonishing Isabella since that god was known as the founder in Shangi, was the only person to dream of the founder. This makes his Bella happy because Zhang was accepted by his ancestors, but in that moment the message from the foreign queen arrives, telling them everything. Knowing that Angus wants to start a war, both of them decide to prepare, but before that Shanji was wondering how strong Angus was. Isabella knew that he was strong since he was able to defeat the former demon king, but now they Hudson Yi who can win, as he was chosen by the founder. Then after some time saying he already had everything ready to start the war, where he also had transmitters since communication is vital in war. Alina was worried that Angus could threaten to kill sophists, but they told him that he will not do it because he had not started a war. Zhang, using technology, introduces himself before the human army and he asks them to stop the war since he does not want innocent people to die. However, Sato lets him know that they will not stop, so being that the answer saying he started the war, where using warplanes he begins his attack. They were killing the knights since the projectiles were very fast. However, Sato destroys the planes with his chains. Darkolo is surprised by how Xiangyi had created so many powerful weapons in a single night, because with that they were terrorizing the knights from the human kingdom. The knights, despite the fact that they kept falling, did not stop, but Zany with some tanks begins to kill most of the knights to stop the advance. However, some captains use magical barriers to protect them from the tanks, and then they separated on each side to surround the demon army, but Zanji, expecting that he had created some traps where many of the knights went falling and ended up dying, scaring the others because although they dodged the traps, War kept appearing. A captain with his powers wanted to destroy those traps, but he couldn't since they were made of useless wood. In that moment Barry arrives, who orders to continue forward, and this because they wanted to use them as bait to get closer to the demons. Out of nowhere something locks up many knights, and being so dark the demons take advantage of that to start attacking them, killing more knights. A captain, to protect them, activates a magical barrier driving away the demons, but in that moment they receive an order from Zhangyi which was to withdraw since the reinforcement was arriving. This was the Demon Zeokong, with which he begins to kill many knights with his tremendous power, so breaking the formation they escape, where another captain, despite losing many knights, was already about to arrive where the army of the demons were. But Zhang Yi made them get too close to use a new and more powerful weapon, and in a blink of an eye he started to kill many knights, scaring even the captains who were watching Zhang Yi's powers. Zhang Yi in that moment remembers that he didn't want to start a war, since he wanted to calm everything down by talking to the humans. If that didn't happen, he would have no choice but to fight, but he felt bad because he saw that the humans did not want to go to war, but Angus, by making a plot, forced them to go. Isabella is happy for having chosen Zhang Yi. Although he is powerful, he seeks the well-being of his people. On Zhang Yi at the end of the war plans to apologize to sophists for what he is doing. The captain saving themselves from the attack from before they launched to attack Dark Yellow and Ali, but being stronger, they managed neutralize their attacks. Ellie was going to give the final blow, but Angus's relatives arrived to fight against them, and the relatives begin to call Fully a traitor for being with the demons. Billy asks to keep the knights away to avoid many deaths, but the captain's angry to hear that he is a traitor. We're going to continue fighting for their kingdom. In that moment, the captains called the War Griffin, which are a group of humans who are considered the strongest of the human kingdom. When the War Griffin arrived, the regent's family were confident. They thought they already had the one, but Darkilo, using a powerful form, he caught the humans in a sphere of infinite darkness within the sphere of the regent's family. Seeing nothing, they were attacking themselves, but in that moment Darkilo begins to massacre them. They are very afraid, and they start to look for the exit. On the other hand, the War Griffins were being protected by powerful priests. With this, they thought they had the advantage, but the Demon Air Force commanded by Isabella arrives and they begin to massacre the War Griffins. Since Emery was also helping protecting the demons, they were excited to see that they were winning the war, and Alina wonders why the regent did nothing. The Lino, seeing that the human kingdom was being massacred, seems to be going to help them, because as she leaves her position as commander given to her by Zhang Yi, Angus, on the other hand, wasn't doing anything because he was waiting for Zhang Yi, and his wait paid off since Zhang Yi and Isabella wanted to talk with Angus, but before that they show that they have his 3 captains and family in custody, and they were about to die since Dark Yellow had massacred them. Pangus, using part of his dragon form, goes to see them in person, where he showed them a lot of red stones he had, scaring them a bit. Angus start telling them how he took control of every of Zhang Yi's properties. Even his workers had betrayed him, becoming Angus minions, but since Yanji had talent, Angus swears to them that he would give them everything back and to go back to the kingdom and one day becoming king of the humans. That made Zhang Yi laugh, since Angus' true objective is to become king, while Zhang Yi was just the subject. Angus tells that he doesn't want to be king, since he already knew all of the God King's facets, and the human kingdom was built when the gods still dominated everything from the gods' point of view. Everything on Hilo Plains was just like ants, and even when every breed built its own empire, the gods saw them just like little ants, easy to kill. And even if they don't believe him, Angus says that he does everything for the humans' well-being, to keep the gods sleeping and minimizing the need of more sacrifices. Isabella says that maybe she could have done the same before, but now they had a new hope, and it was Sanyi. He was the prophet who would kill the gods. Angus laughs and start attacking them to show them that they are not as strong as they think they are, but Zhang Yuan, defending himself, astonishes Angus because he was very powerful. Then he forges a demon king-style armor, and to keep Isabella out of danger he sends her to direct the war. Pangas finally accepts how strong Zhang is, so he does not plan to hold back, and using his divine field ability, he starts to land a few good hits on Zhang Yi, but in an opportunity he parries Angus's attacks. Angus, angry, changes the color of his divine field, making it stronger, so Zany begins to beat him again. Being able to resist those blows, he waits for an opening, so when he is won he begins to attack him with his lasers, but since Angus changes color again he raises his strength, so Zhang tries to escape the divine field, but that field chased its enemies, putting them back inside. In that moment, the divine field's color changes, making Zhang Yi's armor melt, but still he could still fight. Then he realizes that the divine field wasn't getting better, but every color represented a specific function, and that function only lasted for 20 seconds. So thinking about that, and knowing that this ability had a cooldown process, he forges a nuclear bomb. And after a few seconds he throws it to the regent. The explosion was so big that even the knights of the human kingdom were worried that Angus had died, and then we see that Zhang He was able to escape from the explosion. He tells everyone that he killed Angus, since until now no one had been able to survive his nuclear bomb, but in that moment it starts to snow, causing the knights to start disintegrating. Sadarkulo, knowing that it is a dangerous ability from Angus, he covers his comrades in a sphere within the Nevada zone. All the people were dying, and even Zhang Yi's weapons were disintegrating. Says Yang Yi gives the order to not get close, all that was made by Angus changing his divine field color. He was still alive even after receiving that nuclear bomb. The Archilo knew about that technique, since in the ancient war with Humans Angus used the same ability, killing almost all the demons, so Isabella's father had to intervene Angus. Even though he wanted to fight, he was no rival for the Demon King, but using the snowy area he was able to fight his equals against a Demon King. Angus after a single fist destroys Dark Eulasphere, and the three of them were fighting together, but they couldn't even scratch Angus. Shangi again uses a nuclear bomb, but it was disintegrated by Angus, and Dark Elo uses his raven form, increasing his strength since he wants to kill him since the day he met him. However, he was no match for Angus since he turns Dark Elo into ashes, scaring him from now. Angus was stronger than the deceased Demon King. Then with his power he trapped Zhang Yi, who in that moment sees that Angus only had few red stones left since he had used many to protect himself from Dark Elo's attacks. Angus with a blow makes him go back and then again try to change the color of the divine field, but Zhang Yi was prepared and uses his forge field, which is stronger. Having the power of the Demon King with his new power, he begins to forge useless wood, trapping Angus in a sphere of several layers. Angus was destroying the useless wood, but it kept appearing, and in that moment next to him a Tsar bomb appears. This bomb caused the biggest man-made explosion in its entire history, so using that against Angus, it created a huge explosion that even destroyed 30 layers of useless wood. Everyone who saw that explosion freaks out since they had never seen it before. Seeing such destructive power, they wondered if the regent was still alive. Even Sato was afraid that the regent could have died, and the knights full of fear began to escape. Zhang Yi, not knowing the capacity of that bomb, almost got caught in the explosion, but he could save himself. In that moment Dark Elo arrives, who could survive by a hair, but he has a fur that allowed him to keep fighting. Dark Elo couldn't feel any vital sign coming from Angus, so he thought they had won the war, but Angus appears and he was using his dragon form. Angus wanted to recruit Xianyu before, but seeing how dangerous he was, he decides to kill him, so once he grew stronger he starts to beat Zhang Yin. Zhangji wonders how he could to protect himself because he at least should be under the effects of radiation, but before he couldn't even finish his thoughts, Angus caught him. Zhang Yi manages to get free with his Demon King power, but Angus begins to make fun of him. Since at least Angus seeks the prosperity of humans, while Zhang Yi only talks about killing the gods without promising anything, and angrily catches Zhang Yi again. Sanji, deducing that Angus used 3 redstones to protect himself from the explosion, thought that now he only had 1 left, but Angus tells him that he is wrong since he did not use them to protect himself but to return the attack. Zanyu begins to get scared, and Isabella has been worried about she goes to help him, but Alina betrays them by starting to attack Isabella. When Alina catches Isabella, she tells her that she is on Angus's side since he has always given his life to protect the human race. Also, she knew that Zhang Yi was not Sophus's brother, and in that moment Angus changes his divine field, stopping time, or even Dark Yellow is affected by it because he is not that strong. Angus tells Zanji that he was able to save himself from the explosion since he used the redstones to use his black divine field, which absorbs attacks, and he accumulates them with all the power that the black divine field accumulated. He plans to use it to kill Zhang Yi, and Isabella wanted to go help him, but Alina would not let her pass. Angus places the black divine field inside Zhang Yi, making him feel a weird sensation all over his body. Isabella, despite being hurt, she could keep moving to help him, but it was too late because Zhang Yi starts to turn into ashes, so apologizing with Isabella for not being able to keep fighting, he dies and his body disintegrates. Well guys, I'm sorry to inform that there are not enough chapters for a next part, so you would have to wait a couple of months. So if you want a next part in the near future, comment below with the word wife. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe and ring the bell. Comment what other man will you like me to resume for you in the next video.